As we take a look at the map bans, what are you expecting?
Well, there's a couple of things. It's almost like both OXG and the Soniqs are probably like a 4 to 5 map teams overall. They don't have a super deep pool, which means that their pools overall are pretty consistent. What I want to know is if they end up going for maps that they're comfortable on or ones that might throw their opponents off guard because of how similar their pools are. OXG banning Chalet out the gate, that's probably pretty fair. I'd call it one of the Soniqs' best maps overall. They were 6-0, they were undefeated on it. And of course, Cafe, we will never see the Soniqs ever play Cafe at any capacity ever, and if we do, it's because hell froze over. So that won't be a problem. Oregon's first pick, this is actually a map that both teams really, really like. It's not the map that I think Oxygen are the best on, but they still really, really like their Oregon overall, but so do the Soniqs. Seeing a Clubhouse is also pretty expected, but this is a map that I still don't really know if either team is super comfortable with. With no bank, this is one that we normally see neither team play. It is a permaban, but we look to Coastline as a decider, and I like this. Oregon, both teams like it a lot. Clubhouse, we looked at the Soniqs, they're 3-2 on it, and Oxygen are 2-3. So both of the first two maps are ones that both teams are completely comfortable playing. And then we look to Coastline. This is a map where OXG are 4-0 and Soniqs are 1-2. So in the event that we go to a decider map, this could be an Oxygen series.
You could definitely see that happening, but overall, once again, the philosophies of these two teams are completely in polar opposites. We can confidently say that.
That's true.
But their map pools are almost exactly the same, and it's really weird that they don't like Bank, Cafe, or Villa, all permabans for them, with sometimes different things coming through. Oxygen, only liking the Chalet against certain opponents. Seems like Soniqs are not one of those opponents that they feel comfortable with their playstyle on that map towards. But Oregon, you said it wasn't necessarily the best for Oxygen. I do think that is their best map. But as things stand, I don't know.
I think
It's still
Coastline is
hard.
a coin flip,
I
Jacob,
think
because
Coastline's
let's
a
just
coin
be
flip
honest.
Difficult to
too.
call it, isn't it? Yeah.
Soniqs is great there, but by the way, for those of you that are watching at home, just tuning in, or you've been watching this whole time, shout out to you beautiful people. Soniqs are actually up in a series 2-1 against Oxygen, so this is going to be a very good match, and I'm telling you now, Oxygen, they don't like losing, especially against this team. So fellas, it's about that time. Let's jump into predictions. Mr. C-Daps, you want to brag because
there's an 100% right down below me, and there's 0 and 0.
Jacob, are we try-harding this from now on?
They're missing a 1 and a 0 coming before both of my percentages, by the way. Yeah, they totally are.
Let the rookie have his fun because we're going to dominate him. Go ahead, C-Daps. Who do you think is going to win, Mr. Mastermind?
Soniqs in 3.
Soniqs in...
To be fair, that's not super crazy.
I like it.
I'm going to say OXG in 3 simply because of what the decider map is, but it will go to 3. Like, I think the one thing we'll definitely agree on is that they need to go the distance to settle this rivalry for the year.
By the way, C-Daps, I'm loving your predictions. Keep killing it, man. So when it comes to predictions, I'm going to have to rock with Oxygen. Only for the simple fact of this. Oxygen have been tearing it up lately. And not only that, but the last major over in Sweden, Fox say he wasn't able to travel because of COVID and whatnot. And I was talking to Laxing, and Laxing said, you know what, man, we feel like this was our event. We feel like we were the best we've ever been, and we just needed the full team there. And if the full team was there, they felt like they were going to show out. Because of that, and because Foxay will check me if I don't believe in that team. So, Foxay, I'm predicting you guys. Make me proud. If not, I'm calling you out, man. I'm rocking with Oxygen as well.
Here's the problem. You look at an OXG team that went to Sweden. They couldn't play with both Yaga and Kino and like in the same location because they had to follow the same protocol. It's the same reason why Foxay wasn't able to play with the squad. They're going to be hopping mad that they weren't able to do anything in Sweden. And this is the last meaningful event that really either team will play up until they go to the 6th Invitational. OXG, they're hungry. They're burning up inside. The Soniqs weren't able to do anything in Sweden themselves, but OXG literally had to play with a coach and were not up to par for that entire week that they were in Sweden for. So they're going to come into this and use their rage as fuel for the fire. And yeah, because we're going to a third map and OXG really like Coastline, that's where I see this going.
C-Daps, before we jump into this matchup, man, who do you think is going to be the biggest standout in this lobby?
I really think that Kino's going to shine.
Okay.
We already highlighted him once. I think we should highlight him again. Keep your eyes glued on Kino. He's going to go crazy.
He knows best. They both came from Challenger League together. But ladies and gentlemen, it's about time to kick off the second series of the day. And in my opinion, this one is going to be one of the best the entire tournament. It's going to be Oxygen versus Soniqs. It's time to pass this over to my U.S. Sin boy, Stokes and Blue. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Veli, and it is a pleasure to be here at the U.S. Finals once again as we get ready to dive into our other semifinal now as the Soniqs get ready to take on Oxygen. Stokes, before we get into the match, You're looking quite nice today, by the way, wouldn't you say?
I would say that more about you, my friend. I mean, listen, John. Listen, we could possibly go on a date. That's all I'm saying. I'd take you out. You look so nice right now, dude. You guys see this tie? You see these ties? I mean, the threads are just looking drippy. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely, and this was provided to us very nicely by Indochino. We want to give them an excellent shout out as they provided great experience. Full customization of your garments. You could do it either online or in store, and you could do plenty of customization, such as the amount of padding in the shoulders, plenty of other details if you want actual buttons or just decorative ones. Same for your lapel hole. You can even do things like monograms. You can see I have my alias here. Might be a little hard to see on the camera.
You could do purple
Yeah, you've got
insides.
that
You could
one.
do. There's so much stuff,
You could
man.
do your name on the inside. I got it somewhere around here. There it is. Got your name on the
Fancy,
inside as
fancy.
well. It's very, very nice. Make sure you guys go ahead and check out Indochino as they provide some very nice services and as well some very nice suits.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, funny enough, with my experience with that, I didn't even have to go into the store, John. They already had my measurements from the last time that we got suits, and I just ordered them. They showed up at my house, and guess what? They fit perfectly. Fantastic stuff. But besides Indochino, you and I have a matchup to commentate. It's Oxygen versus Soniqs. How are you feeling about this, buddy?
I think it's going to be a really excellent closing match for this rivalry that's been building up over the past 9 months or so now, as these two teams have been going back and forth against each other. You heard Veli mention it on the desk there, but the record currently stands at 2-1 in favor of the Soniqs. The first two times that these teams met during stages 1 and 2 went quite handily over towards the Soniqs, but stage 3, that script finally flipped with OXG taking the match 7-5, and this will be the first time they face off in a best of 3, so I'm very curious to see how that is going to go.
Yeah, it's been a very, very long year for both of them and very competitive as well in between, as you were saying, especially with stage 1, these two neck and neck inside of the standings. But now we get the full breadth of a best of 3 to prove who is the better squad. It starts here now on Oregon, folks. Let's jump right into it.
Number 1 and number 2 qualified teams for SI by qualification points. So let's see how they duke it out against each other here as we get into the initial map, and more importantly, as we get into the bans between both of our teams here. Soniqs will be on the defense, so they get the 2 outside bans. Oxygen's on the attacks. They're going to get the 2 inner ones. Starting off with our first attacker ban is going to remove Hibana from the mix initially as Soniqs take their first operator out of the pool.
There's a lot of different ways to put some obstacles in front of the offense, as well as the defense inside of these operator bans, and Hibana is going to be the one to start us out. She's just so damn good at getting those hatches open, and not having her is definitely going to be something that both the offenses wish they had. And speaking of that, Thatcher is also going to be removed off the board.
Taken away. So far, no huge surprises when it comes to the eliminations on the ban pool here. Mirror is going to be next up. Once again, still a mainstay when it comes to quite a few of our maps, and as such, quite a mainstay when it comes to the ban pool as well. As Mirror will be removed once again here.
And waiting for this last ban now from the Soniqs. A Valkyrie going to come out, and a routine one for multiple squads, but definitely one for Soniqs as well. Just so much intel being provided from Valkyrie, even post-nerf, that you just really don't want to allow her to be inside of the pool. Way too many people are good on this operator, so might as well remove her. And for the Soniqs, they already have some plans in play to try and make other things work around the map. We'll be jumping in with Soniqs on defense. Auction obviously going to be covering the offense for us here, and we're going to have some interesting things to talk about already. Competitive Siege recently has been pretty interesting to watch, especially with Finka coming into the mix. We've been seeing her so much more. Saw her at the Sweden Major quite a bit. Those frag grenades as well as the buffs that she's had recently, seriously helping her out.
Yeah, so let's see once again here now how these two teams are going to try and dance around each other. No surprise for the Soniqs will be going right to a basement defense that has been the mainstay, not only for them, but for quite a few of the North American teams here in the league to go right to that one, as this is, generally speaking, the most straightforward to hold on to as a defender. For the attackers, there's quite a few different ways you can approach this site, more than likely having an emphasis on one of the 3 main routes we see teams normally pursuing, either through laundry on the bottom of your screen, the Frazier on the left side of it, or the construction on the top right, supported by another angle more than likely going to be added to that in the last minute or so of the round as well. We'll see if Oxygen's going to be able to properly set up for that and pinch Soniqs out of this very bunker-heavy setup.
Yeah, one that we actually don't see too often coming into the basement right now for the Soniqs is Maestro. This is something that we don't see too much traction out of usually, but a great pick nevertheless, especially with the Evil Eyes and the way that they're going to be able to use those for info across the board. You can see Grixer setting this up now as well, so that Evil Eye is not only going to cover laundry, but also some area inside of Freezer, and it's not going to risk anybody's lives. So very nice setup so far from the Soniqs. Also going to have Yeti out here on an extended hold as of right now. all the way over towards Showers. Could see some early stuff going down, but more than likely a better call to rotate back, and that's exactly what Yeti will do.
Yeah, not going to see anything transpire out of that. As soon as he hears the bullets coming from behind him, since there's a focus on small tower, he gets the heck out of there and proceeds to a much safer position down the stairs. Despite, as well, you can see the clear coming in from the OXG members, most notably Yaga, as he pushes forward here, trying to contend with any potential setup that might be lurking over towards security or inside of the kitchen. But as you guys can see at home through the silhouettes, there's not much to be seen there. So the Sonics are going to back away, play entirely into the basement here, and allow Oxygen to get the very early full clear on the first floor.
Yeah, straightforward for Oxygen. Sonics is going to lean on utility here and see what they can do with this intel game. I like this so far. They got the Evil Eyes as well as the BP on Kansan, so should be pretty solid for intel as to where Oxygen are going to come in from. Now, it's just getting down to those dying moments and see what Oxygen want to do with that. We've been seeing a lot of teams early on today, or earlier with Pengu and Parker casting, with those off-kilter executes, where it's very early on in the round in comparison to what we usually see in Siege, was that last dying minute. When people are ready, they're there and ready to go, so we'll see if we see that out of Oxygen as well. Could have some early time to execute to really throw Sonics off kilter.
Trying to look for an option to deploy downstairs himself, since he is going to be on a very utility-heavy operator, would be very bold to try and go down on his own, so we won't be seeing much of that. He'll back away, regroup with the rest of the team, and focus on the main push, which is still being kind of formulated at the moment here by Oxygen, as they are putting a big focus on that hatch to work their way down into electrical, and then deploy from there. This is another one of the go-to attacking strategies. I failed to mention this earlier, but this is oftentimes where we see teams trying to deploy towards Swell. You'll now see the rotate coming out from Oxygen as they move a few players over towards the construction avenue to try and open up a second angle of attack.
This is fantastic from Oxygen thus far. Use the entire team to clear out that mid floor as well as the top floor. Make sure you got no roam game. Make sure everything's secured before adjusting to what you want the execute to look like initially. I mean, look at the time right now. Foxay already getting a pick as well at 1 minute and 5 seconds. This is looking so solid for the Oxygen squad thus far. They're going to take down Super as well. Just stuck his neck out a little bit too far right there. But finally, the Sonics will fire back. Vertical will fall, and Kansan looking for one as well.
Initial exchange is found, yes, but the Sonics still sit behind by a player at this point. However, with time getting low, Oxygen are going to begin to be pressured here, and that's where the mistakes could begin to show up for the attack and the chance for Sonics to come back in this round to be found here. Most notably, Kansan still waiting out a little bit further down the construction hallway, trying to see if he can potentially find out some of the members of OXG as they work their way in. As once again, OXG starting to get low on time, starting as well to redirect players. There's going to be the first, I believe, Adrenal Sarge working its way out for Oxygen, and as well, the first trade from Kansan as they start to put down this attacking push. Yaga, though, and Foxay will immediately trade out both of those frags as Rexon and Grixer go down. Kansan being left alone, and not for long either, as OXG quickly clean up shop and take the first round on the attack.
Seriously well done from Oxygen there. We'll see what the Sonics want to do later on, but those early picks coming out of Oxygen is really putting the nail in the coffin for Sonics. Really not much you can do there. Might just try and fight back on the entries, and they do that, but once you're already at such a man deficit, it's difficult no matter really what you do in a round of Siege to try and fight out of that. So for the Sonics, it's going to be back to the drawing board for this one, and they will send it back downstairs. This time around, we will be seeing the Goyo here, but Yeti's going to quickly switch that out for the Wamai. Grixer's still sticking to Maestro as well.
The losses being taken there in the early part of the round that brought it down to a 3v4, unfortunately just causing the members of the Sonics to have to split themselves up way too much. And in a site that's already fairly cut up in the way that it's usually defended, that is not a winning formula, unfortunately, for the Sonics here. So they're going to fall to pieces on that defense. The good news is, however, they've learned from their mishaps on the first rounds. They're going to go right back into it on round number 2 and see if they can quickly correct these mistakes and look to pick up their first round to tie us up at a potential 1-1.
Oh, very interesting here as well. Obviously, we're still going to have that Evil Eye combo with the BP from Kansan, so they're going to have solid intel still for this round, but Yeti also going to be bringing those sensors to make sure if anybody comes in close, they'll at least be able to have a beat from those proximities. So we'll see if that could possibly assist Sonics in anything. Could just be some assistance in that intel game, possibly Oxygen just getting a little too deep inside of sight without them realizing, and that's why those players went down, but we'll have to see. Obviously, those happening off screen, so don't exactly know where the dagger went from Oxygen. We just know it was there.
And Yeti's going to try to maintain this early advanced positioning. There was a drone somewhere towards kitchen, though, that's more than likely already spotted him out. So if he's going to try to do anything sneaky here, he will more than likely be caught. And indeed, will once again just immediately fall back after being spotted out by his drone. Again, coming from that same position in kitchen, he knows he's not going to be able to do anything aggressively without taking a massive risk for both himself and the team. So he falls back and is going to play into that defensive setup once again, just like the last round.
Yeah, it feels as though he's just doing that initially just to see if Oxygen will possibly take a little bit longer to look around showers and all that kind of of stuff, but Auction has so much intel in this area, and especially around the space for free, so that they know that he's heading back down quickly. So not going to be too big of a deal for Auction to deal with. And I mean, look at this. We already have control across the entirety of the map. Vertical already inside of meeting. Auction are doing a bang-up job of getting control so early on, and Yaga already bearing down on the Soniqs members in sight.
It's a little bit risky due to the operator that he's playing on specifically, but as long as he keeps his wits about him, this is going to be a very strategic hold as it prevents a large amount of rotates from Soniqs of working their way into the freezer, which could act as a cutoff to the way that Oxygen is going to approach the site, should they approach it in similar fashion to the previous round. Still need to do some work on opening up the hatches, though, as we're seeing the freezer one popped open right now, and more than likely the other two to be worked on over the next 40 seconds or so here. Oxygen proceeding very much in the same way they did on the first round, and why shouldn't they? It went pretty much swimming with their first round attack there, so they can pretty much execute in a very similar fashion.
Yeah, patience is the game right now for Oxygen, but for the Soniqs, they need to heed the warning as well. The oversight last round that ended up getting 2 people killed. They don't want to try and mimic that following up with round 2 here. For Oxygen, with all of this control right now, it's one overstep here for Soniqs, and they'll start losing bodies. Frag Grenade's already out. Yaga will start clearing out this utility in this space, be able to get rid of the bulletproof as well as one of the evil eyes as Kansan tries to pressure, but with a lot of time still on the board, Kansan does not want to try and give this up too early.
Semi-cut-off deployed against Kansan from the laundry room now, so he's not going to be able to so easily swing into this freezer position. Still can do it, as you're seeing here, but just has to hug the wall now instead of taking the more forward approach that he had previously. Gonna fall back fairly quickly as well here, as now Grixer is going to take up a new position, but Yeti actually gets the kill, pushing a little bit closer to that freezer spot to knock out Yaga and get the first kill of the round, as we're now under 1 minute, and Oxygen going to panic a little bit at the loss of that player. They need to make that up quickly, and they may not necessarily have the time to do it. Laxing, though, with a very well-placed nade, does it anyway by knocking out Kansan, and now Foxe is going to look for an additional pickup here, still being held back in the freezer. He's not the only one as well. We're only just now seeing the end of Super Smoke Chain come in here as well, and that's not going to leave a whole lot of excess time. Grixer catches another mistake from OXG as Kino has got way too far into the open there, allowing for another kill to go by the way of the defenders.
The utility right now for the Soniqs is paramount, is holding back Oxygen, but so is Grixer with the LMG. Can he get it done again? No, it's Rexon with the assist. Vertical more than likely not getting away with this as he simply tries to walk into Laundry, but that's going to be the Soniqs' very first round, and a very quick adjustment as well. Already seen the leadership from Super on display here. Everybody playing a little bit closer to the chest, not overstepping into those angles and losing people early on, leaning into that utility, especially to keep Oxygen at the gates, and it went off beautifully.
We saw there a little bit of utility working out for the attackers, but ultimately not nearly enough to get them into the site, as they were basically just trading 1 for 1, and by the time we were down into that 4v4, we're already nearly at 30 seconds into the round. That's when the attackers are going to start getting stressed, going to be forced to make moves purely because they don't have enough time to play things carefully anymore, and like I said back in the first round, that's where mistakes start to pop up, and unfortunately was the case for OXG. They just couldn't work their way in, but what is going to work its way in on the third round, that was a very interesting pick coming from Foxe.
Who even needs 2 hard breachers, John? I mean, honestly. But for Foxe, he's going to be bringing in the knock. Now, we'll have to see what the secondary utility is going to be, but right now, we still have some sneaky plays going on. As for the Soniqs, though, I really like their defensive setup downstairs, especially how it favors, more of that defensive playstyle up towards Laundry and that kind of thing. It's very difficult to get around that space. So the one thing that I wanted to talk about with Auction in that last one was I feel like the adjustment to the back end and actually attacking construction as well as Big Tower was the play there. That's a soft spot for the Soniqs, especially with the way that they were pulling their aggro in different directions. So for that, I think the Soniqs played extremely well into what Auction wanted to do. They wanted to try and change up where the execute was coming from, but that was Sonic's plan all along. They wanted them to attack from that direction, and it went off flawlessly.
And not only that, but OXG never, in my opinion at least, really got a full picture of what the defensive setup looked like down in the basement back in the first round. Because they had already killed 2 players before they even really entered it, except for maybe one of them. The setup was already in very weird shape for the Soniqs as Oxygen worked their way down there. So great adjustment from the Soniqs, and an unfortunate misstep from OXG that is going to cost them their first round, but it's only tied us up at 1-1. And as you can see, we're already well into the third round here. So let's take a quick look at what exactly we're going to get out of Oxygen this time as they try to clear out the second floor.
Well, this time Yeti will actually be on the roam. He'll be down in Kitchen. Not exactly the area that we've seen him running around in previously. That was more towards the cafe area, but already some solid intel coming out of Foxe's drones in security. Yeti could be in some hot water right now and not even know it just yet. You can see the coiling of the snake as well. Yaga in behind, and that's going to be a drone sacrifice, but more than likely a kill coming through very soon, and that is exactly what it will be. Yeti Ends up getting bodied. Same for yet another Rexen to fall. And wow, some beautiful shots from these Oxygen members.
Some great finds from Yaga. They're capitalizing again on the over-eagerness from Soniqs to try and trade out these kills. The second one is found, and only one exchange picked up from the Soniqs themselves here, so that brings it down to another dangerous point for the Soniqs, just like on round number 1, but it's a different site that allows for more movement freedom, so they're not out of the fight just yet, like they were back on the first round on basement here. Still plenty of opportunity for them to deploy, but at the same time, plenty of opportunities for Oxygen to quickly break this, now that they are a man up again.
Yeah, the only issue they're going to have right now is obviously losing Kino and don't really have access to things how they would necessarily want to, but the man count is definitely going to be a huge advantage walking into this. There's a lot of stuff that Foxy can do here, especially with these frag grenades. He's going to deal so much damage to Super, who's now even going to have to play more safe, as he's the only one with truly preventing secondary utility still in his pocket with that Nitro Cell. Really wants to hold on to that, but there's so much time still left on this clock. Oxygen can work this in so many ways, especially with Vertical still being up, have so much intel to try and search for these members, as well as just the constant barrage of frag grenades spilling in from this mid-floor.
Seeing the nade hunters come out here trying to desperately find that last bit of HP off of Super, but a moment of hope for the Soniqs as Kansan does catch the win against Foxy in the 1v1 to take him down and even out the player count here. A much slower Oxygen is being deployed. Yaga tries to bait off that Gemini clone, but it doesn't work out. We see a player from the Soniqs get behind coverage way too quickly as Kansan is going to hold the line. And now Laxon will be lost as well here. Vertical trades it out, but Kansan trades it right back down into an advantage for the Soniqs as only one will remain, in Kansan with a swift rotate can put himself in position to close things down as the Soniqs take the lead at 2-1.
That was beautifully done from the Soniqs, keeping them at the doors once again. It's what we saw in the second round, but this time more with the fragging potential rather than the utility coming through. Soniqs really paying attention as to what Oxygen wanted to do with this space. A lot of people conjoining around White Stairs and made it very easy for the Soniqs to deal with this situation. It's 2-1 in favor of the defense.
And a great job from Super, ultimately just being a distraction there for a good minute or so in the round. Lots of nades chasing on him, coming very close. We saw that first one chunking off a good 70% or so of his HP, but at that point, we saw another 2 to 3 used against him, as well as at least one player trying to desperately take him out through the floorboards that ultimately never pans out as he just sits safely in the corner, allowing Kansan to go crazy when they finally push White Stairs.
I mean, just to quote the man, stats don't mean everything, and they really don't in Rainbow Six Siege. That's the funniest thing about it is, you know, you might carry your friends a lot, but if you wasted a lot more time and played with your team, you'd probably win a lot more, and that's the lesson that Super constantly teaches people every single time he plays professionally. It is not about your score, it is about winning the game. That's what it's about, and that's exactly what he did inside of that round. So, tip of the cap to Super. Doesn't even have a kill yet, but the amount of time that he wasted was so influential over that round.
We're going to see the more recent Sonic special come out here as Thunderbird is going to be brought into the play here. And more importantly, those Kona stations are going to be deployed and enable Sonics to get a little bit more aggressive here, as those stations will enable players to get a little tiny boost. The most proficient way we've seen them use so far is players just kind of boosting themselves up, going for a little swing. That means they can take an extra bullet or two of damage there, allows them to play a bit more aggressively. As we've been seeing the Sonics definitely want to do inside of these first 3 rounds, but haven't always had the necessary capability to do so due to the conditions put onto them by the Oxygen roster.
Yeah, she's like the light version of Finka, basically. Like, Finka's that operator nowadays, didn't always used to be, but nowadays where it's, hey, I want to have a brawl, we want to get in these gunfights, and Finka's going to assist you in doing that. Not only with the ability to heal you and everything else, but just having everything that she has nowadays, especially with the secondary frag grenades coming in, just makes it so much easier to play along with her. So having that potential to try and carry some more health into a gunfight is always going to be just a great thing to have in your back pocket. So we're seeing these on both ends as of right now, but I completely agree with you, especially with the Sonics coming through with the Thunderbird. We don't really get to see it all that often, but we get to see it whenever we see the Sonics, more specifically on Coastline. I'm happy that they've translated this over to Oregon, though.
Let's see now how our 4th round goes. The Sonics starting to build a bit of a lead for themselves here on the defensive side. 2 successful defenses in a row after they find the formula to work things out after some bumpy moves on the first round here. But now, inside of our 4th round, they are looking very much in control of this match, and it's Oxygen needs to find better footing, specifically inside of these late round executes, to finally get them into the site. Clearing out roamers and extended players is not too much of an issue for them, but when they get into the site and have to deal with the actual setup, that's where problems have been continuing to arise over the past 2 rounds.
ADS is in here for the Sonics, but Obviously, Ori being burnt is super. Also be burnt alive from Yaga bearing down on him from inside of concrete. Rexen will actually fight back and be able to take him down. Yaga just letting it sing a little bit too long there, giving away that position and making it easy for the Soniqs member. But Vertical will be able to fire back as Foxy's already made a line inside of the attic wall, and they'll finally get control of this top floor.
Vertical with a good trade out there. Once again, puts Oxygen into that pivotal 4 versus 3 position that they've been in so often here. Once again, going to have to work their way forward, but this time they have the vertical advantage. They're going to have these top-down angles against the Soniqs, specifically on the inside of Kitchen there, that can more than likely be used to shut them down. And Laxing is going to be the one to open up all those angles as he's now entered the kid's bedroom here with the hammer in check. Does get a little bit of a fight against Kansan there as he peeks in slightly through the doorway, but ultimately doesn't lead to a whole lot as both players will back away from those positions.
Yeah, a little scary on that angle. Actually, if you lay down, you can see all the way behind the bomb chassis on that one as well into Cafeteria, which is terrifying. I mean, just look at this positioning right now here for the Soniqs. They have a lot more influence over this position than you would initially give them, although all of this verticality is still going to be highly abusable from Oxygen. It's going to be up to them to get this right as to where the Soniqs go. We could see them collapse onto this, and if they do it properly, Oxygen could be worse for wear going into this. Speaking of worse for wear, Grixer, he's going to be on an extended roam, and this could be for better or for worse, and oh no, it'll be Vertical with the turn on as it's all down to Yeti. He'll be able to at least get one, but won't even be able to see the feet of a single member. They'll all cross the drone holes, and Yeti won't be able to stop it. Laxing finds a man laying in the hallway, and he'll end it all as Auction tie things up.
Unfortunately, won't be able to see his last opponent there, Laxing, giving him the runaround as he shuts him down and shuts down finally a second round for Oxygen as they finally tie the record up here at 2-2, but that's on the weakest site, the tertiary site for the Soniqs here, as they were finally forced into a first floor position. Laxing got it as well. You guys probably saw that, but he didn't even realize that was Yeti's body initially, as he thought it was a dead version of Yeti's body, but obviously not the case. What is going to be the case here, though, is Soniqs rotating back to their original site as they head back into the basement for the first reattempt at this since they won it a few rounds back.
It's like we were talking about in the green room earlier. Prone actually is just one of the most broken things in Rainbow Six. It is really, really good. It can hide you. No one really expects someone to be on the floor either. Like, even right there, Laxing could have oversought that and immediately ran into security. And he possibly gets a kill through that drone hole. You never really know. But that's the game of Siege for you, folks. There you go. Tied up right now for Oxygen and the Soniqs. Soniqs, speaking of which, will be headed back downstairs. We saw them with a couple of unlucky picks early on inside of the first round, but the second round coming through with flying colors as they shut down Oxygen's take of Freezer as well as Laundry.
The question here is going to be one of adjustments from Oxygen, whether they're going to be able to learn from their mistakes and more than anything kind of avoid that Laundry and Freezer push that Soniqs was set up to counter against, but you're also going to see Soniqs still have quite a hefty setup to fend off that construction play that they used quite easily to win out the first round as well here. So time to wait and see what exactly is going to be the plan for Oxygen. We can already see one very obvious switch up at Vertical, now bringing the Ying into the fold here to maybe make that execute a little bit more explosive this time, and I think that utility will certainly do the job quite well.
Yeah, that already kind of forcing them or more leaning towards that box execute that we see with the Ying, but that doesn't mean that they're hard pressed into that. They're not immediately committed just because they've brought the Ying, but something that we see extremely often with this operator. Obviously, you could still see them come through Freezer or any other spot, so we'll have to see what Auction want to do with this piece of the puzzle. As for the rest of the squad, though, they're still sticking to their guns as they've cleared out the mid-floor already. We'll have Yaga hop back into Freezer, so we'll see if he can continue to thwart Sonic's plans for the Laundry space here. As for the Soniqs, though, they're going to keep things spread downstairs, still have solid intel across the board here, so they're going to lean onto that to try and see what Auction want to do with these opening minutes.
Yaga once again in that pivotal position at the bottom of the Freezer stairs. You're going to see if he can find himself an isolated gunfight or two, but once more than likely will not get that. The big contention this time, though, is going to be he does have some active pressure against him inside of the Freezer initially, which, because I don't think they've been able to go and actually open up the Freezer hatches yet, they're really not going to be able to push that back just as of yet here. There's still going to be some delay, and actually, to correct myself, we did just see that hatch get popped open a few seconds ago, so now that pressure can be deployed, and more than likely Sonic's going to have to respect that a tad more. Same can be said for the other hatches that they are being worked on, and there's a big stack of players building up towards that execute, surprisingly, into the Laundry side right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how this will play out for Auction due to what you were talking about before, due to where we normally see Ying get used more towards the electrical drop.
Oh, well, Yog, that's kind of got slapped on that one. That's just unfortunate. Kansan with very minimal shots, but amazing shots coming down through Laundry. They'll be able to get the initial one. We'll see if this slows down Oxygen at all. It's going to be a big player here being removed as Yaga will end up losing the Finca. Down to still an LMG in the pockets of Vertical, but you can already see the drone economy starting to take a hit here. Minus Laxing and Foxe, so at least still have some intel to influence this last minute. For the Soniqs, they're just going to sit on their hands. Don't really need to move too much as of right now, but as soon as I say that, that's immediately going to change up. The Candela's out, but Grixer still has the shots, as well as Super coming through with the Toxic Babe. He'll end up getting the case on the ground, and Oxygen, seemingly no answer for this.
The cutoffs are just far too harsh as they try to force their way in through Laundry once again, and as you see, everyone getting shut down, even not necessarily by the gun skill, but by the utility being deployed there as they try to force themselves in. I do respect that Oxygen tried to do this a little bit earlier in the round, but it's now left them in a very awkward scenario. It's just Laxing and only Laxing here as Fox has just been taken out by Grixer. Try to hold on inside of a 1v3 now and shut this down. Laxing specifically with really no safe path even into the site. All the attention going to go towards him. Super using one of his last Toxic Babes to block off the doorway just for that added layer of security. Rexen will handle things without too much of an issue. Another solid basement defense coming out from the Soniqs here as they take the lead again as we get ready to head into our final round of the half.
That setup's just so strong towards the Laundry side, and you know, for Oxygen, I like the adjustment here. We're going to bring the Yang to try and get something going on in this space so they can try and pressure forward, but every single time that we see it, we constantly see all of these angles that are being abused from the Soniqs as well, and how long distance they are, first of all. I mean, we have people playing all the way in the back towards Pillar. That's so many things you have to worry about initially, and Oxygen are just getting overwhelmed. I mean, even trying to run it with the Candelas, that's all fine and dandy, but everyone's not being blinded. They're just being chucked into Laundry. Everyone's got solid positioning inside a freezer as well as closet and possibly the the laundry machines over in the corner, and nobody's actually getting struck by those. So it's just kind of landing on deaf ears. Oxygen really aren't getting any value out of it. It's it's just all for naught really at the moment with the way that they're handling the basement right now. But luckily enough for them, they don't have to go and try and hit that yet again. It's going to be, at least for the Soniqs, upstairs, and they will be headed to for this next round.
Unfortunately for Oxygen, this is also a site that the Soniqs are currently flawless on when it comes to this hold, so we will have to wait and see what exactly goes on here during the course of this round, and more importantly, what adjustments Soniqs are going to make to try to allow for easier entry into the site this time around.
Well, here's my question. What are we going to do with the Nook this time around? Because the last time that we saw it, it wasn't played in the traditional sense that we see a Nook, which is that, very hidden play style, try and work her in, like, maybe in towards the basement, or just get her around some space where she can really abuse the camera usage of the defense. But for Foxe, he's mostly been on drones and trying to use those frag grenades to break up positionings on that top floor. So we could see him used here in a different way inside of this round. But overall, I still like the strategy here from Oxygen, even if they aren't leaning on Nook's utility. And oh no, Kino of all people is going to be the one removed. No hard breacher here for Oxygen on the top floor.
Laxing now needing to try and find a way to exchange this back out with the loss of Kino, who's been struggling in this game so far, as you can see, with a 1-5 scoreline after that most recent death. Taking on mostly hard breacher roles, this is a little bit hard to pick up frags sometimes in that department, but either way, lagging behind a bit here as the others try to pick up the slack, most notably Laxing and Yogg, who have been performing quite well inside of this match, but that little bit extra the team is to work themselves forward. Here's Super going to be, unfortunately, the hefty target of nades once again, as two explode very close to him and nearly knock him out as a result of that.
Scary moments here for Super, but he'll at least be able to cling to life for a couple more minutes here. We'll see how long that lasts. But as for Oxygen, they're on to trying to clear out the mid floor, and they actually have a body to worry about. It's going to be Yeti inside of security, at least for the time being. Has the hatch open, so he'll be able to rotate out if things get a little too hairy, but might have to do it here initially. So we see Oxygen ready for any moment or any move that the Soniqs really want to make around this space. And he also has a rotate into kitchen here, but it's more than likely going to be cut off soon here from Vertical. As for Yaga, though, start pressuring White, just seeing if any of the Soniqs members want to try and push forward, as finally Oxygen will get a break as they'll catch Rexen downstairs.
A good fight from Oxygen, a very much needed one at this point in the round two. The team was stagnating, didn't really seem to have many options when it came to pushing themselves forward. Oh, and another one's going to be found here, but this time it's for the defense as Yeti absolutely locks onto Yaga's head to knock him out with a TCSG. That slug shotgun doing its work quite well.
Yeah, something that we don't get to see too often, and Yeti actually going to get cut down here from the ARX of Vertical. Now onto White stairs. Case control, not in anyone's hands right now. Needs to be picked up if they want to have an opportunity to try and plant that, but also that might not even be the game plan as the damage starting to come through in massive heaps onto Sonic. Super at low HP, same as Grixer. These gunfights are going to be difficult going forward, especially with Vertical. The ARX just tears people apart. Laxing now pretty cheeky angle, trying to abuse this hatch as much as possible, but this timer starting to dwindle as Oxygen needs to act.
Yeah, 20 seconds remaining. Someone's going to have to put their foot on the gas pedal soon here and get themselves into the site. They don't have time to analyze anymore. They still have 5 drones available, so lots of intel should be flowing in from the dead players here if they can get those drones into correct positions. But Kansan strikes first here against Foxe. Down goes the Nook vertical. It's pretty much out of play now at such low HP. Laxing's got to be the hero here, and he's immediately dropped. The Soniqs will easily pick up a second defense on their upstairs hold, and as well, a 4-2 lead coming out of the initial half.
These are just such solid defensive rounds with the way that the Soniqs are handling Oxygen's aggression. Always holding them right outside of sight and not scared to contest. This is something that we've been seeing across the board in Rainbow Six Esports. LATAM especially playing that playstyle quite a bit. Granted, it's a little bit more extravagant in the way that they handle their maps. I mean, everyone saw Team 1 with Consulate in the Mexico Major. You know, when you're playing the top floor that aggressively, when you're actually playing the basement, that's a little bit different. But Soniqs still pushing it to the limit inside of the site, and that's what I'm really appreciating right now. Just not giving Oxygen that foothold that they're looking for so desperately.
We are seeing some mistakes occasionally, but where they're already being spotted is relatively easy to fix, and usually players just getting slightly over-aggressive. That's just a simple call from Super. Hey, Yeti, don't do that.
Yeah, just boom, don't get
Fixed.
overzealous. That's really what it is. You do not want to give up that round, especially when it's so easily going into your pocket. Now, the big thing is, guys, we've reached the halfway mark. Now, I know these rounds have been coming pretty fast and quick so far, but the Soniqs have been dastardly on that defense. 4-2 split. Oxygen only able to muster those 2 rounds, and to be honest, they didn't look that great. Coming into this defensive side, I seriously want to see a change up in the way that the team's operating.
Good news is, once again, the defense oftentimes presents some fairly easy opportunities to pick up rounds, especially if your basement defense, as well as the upstairs defense, is going to be up to snuff for what the attackers bring to the table, as we saw in Soniqs' initial play on the first half there, despite the mistakes made in the first round. So, time to see if Oxygen can bring something similar to the table. We've got an Ella pick being brought out for them, which is going to be interesting to see how that gets played out, more than likely mainly around the staircase, but aside from that as well, usual spread of utility here, most notably the Goyo brought in this time as the main piece of delay utility down in the basement.
Also, I'm a huge fan of what the Soniqs have done with the hard breachers here inside of this one. Super's going to be bringing the secondary hard breach on Ying, and then Yeti on the Maverick. Now, the reason I'm favoring this a little bit more isn't just, you know, because of the destructibility of Thermite. It's mostly the gun. You know, giving the Soniqs some better weaponry is definitely going to make things a little bit easier for them. And you can see that inside of Kino's scoreline. You know, Thermite's not a slouch when it comes to gunfights, but when you're consistently fighting against those SMGs and some of these better weapons in close range, it's super difficult to try and win out those gunfights, especially if you just aren't hitting your headies that day. So for the Soniqs, this could favor them in a couple of different ways. We've seen Yeti on Maverick so much this season, so should be pretty solid on that M4.
Time to see now, however, things are going to continue to deploy that way for the Soniqs. Yeti specifically trying to open things up for his squad, and most of just trying to get enough of a hole in there so that this will fully breach the hatch, and indeed it shall, as they are going to work their way past that one. Another one going to come out here more than likely in a second from Super as well, to quickly deal with the E-hatch to work their way down to electrical as well. The Ying Candle is also being deployed there quite early on by Super in the process, so we see how the lack of that later on in the round will potentially hurt this team as they use it to mask their breach instead there.
As for the Soniqs, be patience here early. Need to get these hatches open and begin the regular work of working their way towards the basement. And this is routine now, folks. We've done this a handful of times thus far inside of this one, and this is just typically how you work things on Oregon. Luckily enough, they've cleared out that top floor as we saw Yaga go up there very early on, but he skimpered down towards the basement early on inside of the round just to play out his life, which is going to be way better for Oxygen's well, WinTac here. See exactly what they can get done, though, as the Soniqs just right around the corner, but don't necessarily know which way they want to go with this just yet. It looks like they could go for this drop-through freezers. They're trying to clear up some utility. Rexon will try and hop back down, but nothing really going on just yet. Still so many positions that are unknown to them as Oxygen playing this one pretty close inside of the site.
Soniqs sitting back here waiting again for the opportunity to present itself for them to finally move in and execute towards the site. It's going to be an interesting split of players, though. The Ying solo at the moment, trying to chuck the Candelas in through Laundry. A lot of attention going to be drawn to that, but that's not where the play is coming from, as Yeti starts to push his way in through the hatchwork, and he's not going to be alone. Kansan has some trouble working his way in, though, so he'll be the first exchange in the favor of the OXG roster as he goes down at the hands of Yaga. Stuck in a 4v4, though, with only 15 seconds left. Soniqs now facing that same situation that Oxygen was throughout a large majority of their attacking half.
Oh,
no! The M590 gets one but it's the wrong player here. Super carries forward. He gets 2 on his lonesome. Yeti as well with a 3rd. That leaves the entire defensive structure up to Vertical. He's got a chance to deny the plant, but he's not going to be able to do it here. Grixer, though, accidentally cuts the head off of Super, leaving this down to a 1v1. And Vertical knows exactly where this player is, but he can't find the shot. Grixer wins it anyway, and the Soniqs take the opening round of the attack.
Oh my God, I'm sweating. That was so very close, and Grixer getting a good laugh out of that one as well. Super did everything for that round to go off, got his first 2 kills, gets the Candelas down and the plant. Grixer still kills him, but Oxygen just not able to fight back, and that's why we're going to see this tag timeout coming out. Redeemer with some words to say to OXG.
We'll see what exactly the comms are going to present to OXG. Because clearly there are problems surfacing here. The distraction more than likely coming from those Yin Candelas being deployed by Laundry, making the OXG roster possibly think that there was going to be a heavy focus on the push from there. So the players specifically inside of the closet and whatnot shift their focus towards that when that is certainly not the case. It's just a distraction for utility deployment, and the rest of the roster from Soniqs comes in a completely different department of the map, causing massive panic for OXG as they try to shift around that when they realize it.
I like what Oxygen's initial strategy was down the stairs. They wanted to wait and see what Soniqs wanted to do, especially with the utility in hand. You know, they already knew earlier on that the Candelas were there, so they can't pressure in the same way because you're going to end up getting blinded out in a lot of those spots. You know, even we saw that Super was prioritizing Freezer Hallway with those Candelas, so that entire space more than likely not safe to play if you did want to be there. So that's going to limit a lot of the options for Oxygen, and a lot of them actually just sitting inside of the stock area. They wanted to be very safe about the way that they handled that, try to lean into the utility and just thwart anything once the plant was being attempted, but they simply couldn't. I mean, the Soniqs just pulling through with so many frags as Oxygen tried to fight back, and really it was all for naught, especially when Super made his play. I don't think anyone was ready for him to flood in through Laundry, especially on the position that he took. Very aggressive up towards the closet wall, able to get those 2 big kills and immediately start the plant.
Well, Oxygen are going to hit the retry button to see if they can play things out a little bit more successfully this time inside of the basement here. Overall, things are thematically going to look very much the same, especially when it comes to operator picks here. They'll bring that same formulaic lineup. Once again, just hoping that they don't make the corrective mistake that they'll have to try and change up going into the second attempt here of not getting forced off of that adjustment towards the Laundry or the other issues that they faced in the execute there. Soniqs, meanwhile, once again, with things going as swimmingly as they did back in the first round, no real reason for them to shift it up, but if they do have a secondary strategy to deploy here, now would be the time to do it, to keep OXG on their toes, having to catch that adjustment.
It's just been a hard-fought game here for Oxygen so far. The scoreline especially showing this, where for Oxygen, these gunfights have just not been favorable. Soniqs, especially Kansan, having a day right now, 10-5. And this is something that we don't routinely see out of Kansan either. He's usually in that middle pack. We see Grixer and Rection just pop off. Grixer also having a hell of a game, but for Kansan, this has been big, time and time again, in the way of Oxygen and just making their lives very difficult.
Rex are currently running the same kill death as Kansan there at +5 at the moment there. Rexen a little bit further behind, but with the 2 of them performing as well as they have been, the lack of a performance from the other 2, as well as the contributions from Super that we're seeing occasionally, as well as Yeti here, are also making up the difference and allowing for the Soniqs to win out a large majority of these rounds.
There's only so many kills, though, and Kansan just keeps taking all of them. I mean,
how dare he?
Donate to charity, Kansan. Like, I mean, come on, man. You're in the top 1% here with the 10-5. But as for the Soniqs, these offenses starting to come together as well. These last round especially very, very solid as came through on that 4-2 split. Hoping to extend this now to a 6-2 lead and continue to put the heat onto Oxygen. Soniqs can basically just go about this in a pretty nonchalant manner. They're up 3 rounds. It's a very comfortable spot to be. They're just coasting. It's up to Oxygen to try and heave this mantle, raise up, and try and get something done here in round 8.
Kansan with the same attacking approach we saw from Yaga in the previous half there as he takes the Finka and mounts that up on the position down below the freezer stairs here. Vertical looking to try to make an aggressive play, but yeah, with the drone spotting him out, that'll pretty much immediately kill that due to the intel being known. Yeti as well as Super still working on opening up those hatches. Super having deployed both of his can openers. His job is done, and now he can focus on getting ready for the actual attack. Still half the round to go, however, so still some time before we more than likely get to that phase of the round here. But still, that doesn't mean the Sonic can't start to push the focus towards that due to how low the time is starting to get. The more that they can save, the more they're going to have to use, and here we go. The execute begins. Once again, it's Yeti that strikes first for the SQ roster, but Foxy quickly trades that right back into a 4v4, causing some hesitation that's quickly corrected now as another volley of kills comes in. Foxy and Rexen both picking them up to the deaths of Super as well as Laxing. Both of those players getting knocked out. We're still going to be at even numbers. Look at how close this fight is as well here. Vertical's just ready for it, though, as the play comes in. But again, there was another exchange as Kansan managed to take out Kino closer to the front of the site. Rexon walking up. He thinks he's got Foxy, but Foxy gets his third trade of this round by itself, and that leaves everything on Kansan. He's got the intel on Foxy. Still needs to figure out where Vertical's playing from, which is going to be over there towards Pillar. He knows it now as he's taking some heat on peeking out towards it, but he's also pinched here. Needs to play this so carefully to make sure he doesn't take one step in the wrong direction, which will lead to his own head getting cut off in this round, coming to a premature close here. Kansan finds an opportunity, but misses that pixel angle that Vertical has to shoot through, and the management by Pillar is enough for OXG to finish things off on top of the domination from Foxy inside of the laundry closet.
It was a stellar stage 3 for Vertical and a stellar round for him here as Oxygen will finally get something going on the defensive end, and it was something that was desperately needed. Finally, stopping Soniqs in their tracks. They're sitting one round away from getting onto map point. Not going to be changing things up too much here yet for the Soniqs, so we'll see if something comes through for the 6th pick. But for Oxygen, the downstairs area, playing very well into the calamity that went down during that. The Soniqs, the initial execute, have very solid data as to where Oxygen are, but the longer that round goes on and the more that Oxygen's allowed to linger, the more difficult that round's going to be for the Soniqs to take, and that's exactly what happens. Oxygen's positioning all of a sudden becomes unbeknownst to Soniqs, especially for Vertical playing around construction, and for SQ, it's always going to be difficult when it comes down to that. There's so many boxes to check when you run out of intel and you don't have time to jump on a drone, and all it takes is one corner that you don't look into, and they'll be able to get away with some things like that. But for the Soniqs, should be fairly straightforward, as we talked about previously. This is a very comfortable spot to be in.
So after another rebound of rounds, we're right back where we started at the beginning of this half at a +2 advantage for the Soniqs. Obviously one round closer to our ultimate goal with 7 rounds here, though, so the Soniqs still some slight advantage here. But Oxygen's starting to come alive on their defense with their first successful hold down inside of the basement. We'll see if there'll be similar issues in trying to hold the upstairs, or if they'll have a similar trajectory to what the Soniqs had and have a much easier time of closing this one out due to the extra complexities that are added to this attack by the attackers themselves here as well. They're going to be out and spawned onto the map as of about 10 seconds ago. So time to see what the initial push is going to look like for the Soniqs as they begin to clear out this setup upstairs.
And don't worry, guys, I didn't ruin my Indochino suit by sweating. They're way too nice. They're way too nice. We were sweating earlier, but the quality's just so high, you know? So, as for speaking of quality, actually, we're hoping that the Soniqs have a quality round here. They'll be starting things out over towards Showers, as Oxygen obviously going to be working this top floor. It'll be extended out towards Attic, but this is something that we see routine. Now, the big thing that we don't see too often is the constant manning of this Attic hatch looking down into meeting, and this is something that we could see Vertical use to get a pretty cheeky frag here if it does come through. For the Soniqs, it's going to be onto the frag grenades that we saw Oxygen abusing on their side as well, constantly just trying to harass these players in their known positions that are usually held up. You can see him coming through right behind the bunkers right now, but for Kino, this is going to be the most solid spot in the entire room for him to play. Luckily enough for us, Ubisoft made all of these metal, so you don't have to deal with anything flying through mattresses or anything anymore. It's just a better spot to be, especially standing on top of this reinforced hatch.
Be carefully dance around that, trying to make sure he takes out the drone presence that's working its way through white right now as well, but I saw on that, so Soniqs do get a little bit of an information bleed from that drone before it ends up getting knocked out. Still plenty more to deploy later on in the round, as well as 6 available to the squad to be used at any point here. Super, in the meanwhile, is going to be on the buck as well, looking to try and open up some of the floorboards from below this time, and hopefully make the ground that Kino or someone else is going to be standing on a little bit less stable, as we can see him already deploying towards that here, with quite a bit opened up towards the top floor.
This has been absolutely beautiful from the Soniqs thus far on their offensive side. Yet he's going to get taken down here in a frost trap of all things. Oh man, the gambit for Oxygen, seen as if the frost mats will possibly work, and just not getting any eyes on Foxy, not expecting that hopping in as they were going to try and attempt the plant. You can see Oxygen playing very far back because of those traps being under the window. They wanted the Soniqs to get overzealous, and that's exactly what happened. Now Foxy going to push up and actually defend the case. Kino will get a second frag as Foxy gets yet another. Kansan hopping inside of the window. Grixer and Rexon, last two remaining now for the Soniqs with very minimal time, and well, it's going to be all down to 1 very quickly as well. They more than likely know where he is as well. He'll make his presence known. He'll take down Yaga, but we'll see how far Rexon can possibly get. The ARX, a pretty dastardly weapon when it comes down to it, but not one that really favors you in a 1 versus 4.
More than anything, just taking his time with this one, this is going to allow for Super to give it a little bit of information here as we see the attempt from Rexen to pull out the clutch, but let's be real, it's probably not happening. So, yeah, Foxe swings out there and completes the set. That is going to be OXG taking a second round in a row here as they rocket forward, putting them only one round behind what the Sonics have now. Allowing for them to make this potential comeback. A great hold for them and a serious misstep, unfortunately, from Yeti to go down with the case in hand of that Frost Trap. Unfortunately, the attack seemed like it was dead past that point due to the fact that they were forced to try and go back in and retrieve that, and unfortunately could not.
That's exactly what I was about to say. It's always a pretty bad feeling when it comes down to I hopped in a window and died to a Frostman, and that's why we lost the round. You know, because it's kind of cut and dry right there. The case is literally in enemy territory. The only way you get it back is you flood white or get way too many kills on some other end of the map. You're not going to get in that window. Oxygen is going to play with that every single time that situation presents itself. So for the Sonics, it's basically all for naught. And now the huge lead that they have is dwindled down to one round. But, I mean, you can, you know, really argue it either way. I'd say fortune favors the brave, honestly, and these last two rounds have really been up to the Sonics in the way that they've broken down. So I think there's some adjustments here that they can definitely make in order to make this successful. We could already be seeing one come through here for Super, an operator that we don't get to see, I would say, enough anymore, John. Even though I know how much everybody at home hates shield operators, Monty will be in here, and the beauty of him is that constant pressure that he emits. You have to be aware of him, because if you're not, you're more than likely going to get a pistol shot in the side of your head.
So time to see if bringing the Montaigne to the table is going to be the boost the Sonics need to finally pick up their 6th round and put them on the edge of map point here to close out the initial map of the series, and as well put them ahead overall there. But Oxygen as well, like we were talking about, has really found their footing as of the last 2 rounds, and with the misstep from the previous one, Oxygen kind of get a free skip on their upstairs site to be able to hold that one, and now are finally forced onto the tertiary site, where again, that is where we oftentimes see the attackers fall, or sorry, the defenders fall apart here just due to the complexities that are added into this site. That's why they play it third after all. So Sonics may have their best opportunity yet on this site to try and close things out to find that 6th round indeed. It's going to start with a bit of a top-down clear for Rexen here as he swings into T3. He's going to make sure no one from OXG is hiding out around here, especially in the backstage area, before they begin to push their way closer to the site. Nice ping comes in too, prevents Kansan from possibly overstepping and losing his life early on.
Rexen might be one of the only people that I see use the new Hollow as well, as he'll be using the G36C here on Yana. Clear of top tower, or big tower rather, will go swimmingly here for the Sonics as they begin to clear out utility inside of Kitchen Hall. Laxine will be playing up towards stage as of right now, but this should be pretty easy for Super to waltz on in and try and get some intel onto where these members currently on. They can't really harass him in the same way that they can another person, and he'll more than likely be a magnet for utility use as well. A lot of nitros will be thrown his way, as well as those smoke babes coming in from Kino.
Again, he's going to just kind of hold for support here, allow for Super to once again get the can opener down, allow for this team to open things up. Immediate Nitro are going to be chucked out by Laxing, but unfortunately nobody in the neighborhood to take any damage from it, so it'll be a swing and a miss. As the rest of the team deploys in, though, you can start to see some of the inner workings for Oxygen, specifically Vertical, holding that top-down angle, looking to punish any sorts of swings to the inside. Super is going to work himself forward anyway, but he's got a tough task to get into this site with here. Vertical as well, armed with that Nitro to open up the hatch down below here, and once again cause problems for the Sonics roster if they try to force their way in. Foxy gonna get spotted out by the Gemini, but that's of no huge consequence to him. You only have that small can opener hole opened at this point, and there's literally zero pressure against him. Besides that, you can see Yeti once again trying to open up nades that will put a little bit of pressure back onto Foxy, but he was smart enough to realize that was going to be a potential move here and backed away from the hatch before the nade exploded.
It's on a knife's edge here for round 10 as Oxygen are trying to tie things up here. The last 40 seconds remaining. Sonics, the strategy thus far has worked out for them, especially with the Monty and Finka combo, getting his health back inside of these fights and actually being almost at 100% HP, although he's been having impacts and everything else tossed his way. Oxygen, as of right now, backed off inside of sight. Super taking a little bit more damage, but he's just trying to oversee what the next step is going to be for the squad. And oh no, how has Vertical worked his way to this position? Oh my god, he's going to be able to take down one as he works his way up the tower. No one in the space. They actually have case control as Rexen has to try and fight back, and the Sonics get it down to a 2 versus 2, and they have case control. They're going to walk inside of Kitchen, yet he's got it from meeting as well. And oh, Oxygen, it's a blunder from them. Can he get it?
Oh,
Vertical! Oh, prime time. Perfect spot to be. They don't go deep enough inside of the B site. They're not even aware that they have full control of it. They have an Oxygen member all the way upstairs, as well as one one all the way over towards tower, and Oxygen able to stand tall here and tie things up.
This is just a tragedy for the Sonics over the last 2 rounds here. The misstep with a Frost Trap, and this time just not catching a simple lurk, working its way up the back stairs from Vertical. That was the difference maker, even with those trades coming in from the members of Sonics that tried to turn things back around there. I believe it was Kansan and Rexon that find those 2 kills. Even with that, once again, Vertical is able to go back down the stairs, redeploy himself at a later point in the round, and shut down the plant due to a player being like 1 step too far out into the doorway.
I just want to know what happened to Yeti in E-Box, because he was playing down in that position for so unbelievably long. He opened up the hatch and just started playing that space to make sure no one can play up and close to stage, because he's more than likely going to be able to find an angle on them. But Vertical, he has to go through that area down low in order to get to Big Tower Stairs, so I don't really know what broke down in that space, but that's just such a big problem for the Sonics. They had so many good things going for them, but Vertical with a huge play there in round 10 to bring this back, and we're all tied up here on Oregon.
But with things locked dead at a 5-5 scoreline here, both teams are going to have to work their hearts out to try and close things down, but I think that work is going to weigh a little bit more heavily on the Sonics here. OXG know they can control all 3 of these sites. They've made the run already. It's just about repeating those same successful strats to shut things down. And they only need 2 out of 3 of them at this point in order to make things work. Obviously, there's that possibility to go to overtime open as well here if the Sonics can continue to trade things out, but they seem to have run into a brick wall, and very much the same point in the round that Oxygen was also having trouble on their attacks there. It's getting into the site once again that seems to be failing the Sonics here, as they are just getting ripped to shreds as soon as they reach that threshold.
Well, these squads doing such a solid job of contesting the execute here, making it difficult for anyone to work their way in and try and get a case down. In fact, I'm pretty sure we've only had 1, yes, successful plant across the entirety of those 10 rounds, and that goes to Super on the round that he got both of his kills. He had to fight so hard in order to just get the case down. And it was still a clutch moment there for Grixer as that team shot came through and ended up taking Super down. So
Super stays winning.
yeah, yes indeed. So as for the Sonics now, though, going to be a simple clear of the mid floor and get working on these hatches yet again.
Wrexon will lead the charge when it comes to trying to put any sort of pressure down onto the launcher area for the time being. Once again, very early on in the round, so no real reason why we'd see the Sonics try to go for such an early attack themselves. But as we saw back on the first attempt for them to try and get access towards it here, if the time allows them, and more importantly, if the utility is cleared out enough, they have no reservations of hopping into the site in about 10 seconds or so, as I think we saw their first attack at least start at around the 1 minute or 1 minute and 30 mark here. Away from that, though, it seems like things are being played much more in line with what the meta kind of demands of teams on the attack right now, as Sonics take a slow approach, making sure they open up everything and clear out as much utility as possible from above before they even set foot downstairs.
Vertical. It's been seen, as well as the adjustment now coming through to clean up his positioning. This drone's constantly been on him. This is going to be such an easy pre-fire for Grixer. That's just so very straightforward. What's happening? As it usually does in Siege, just a drone that you weren't able to see around your feet or up high, and end up getting pre-fired off from some angle that you really weren't ready for. And, well, Oxygen now worse for wear in this one is Grixer. He's just going to walk down tower stairs. Nothing more, nothing less. He's going to find a frag for it, as well as Oxygen. They have to fight back here. They've done such a good job of tying things up, but now it looks like it's all for naught as everyone's asleep at the wheel. Finally, Yaga will be able to get one as Rexon will just bail into Freezer. Grixer trying to get the refrag here from Pillar, but it's instead him being fragged from Foxay. There's an oversight here. Foxay actually playing on the Warden as well. These glasses so clutch when it comes to those Candelas pouring in on top of you, able to see through all of these stuns. And now for the Sonics, they're trying to abuse so many different pieces here, especially with this Mav Torch now on the back end, trying to make it well, a preventable angle, stopping Oxygen from pushing forward inside of stock. It's a 3 versus 3 right now. It's dead even going into the last 10 seconds, but Oxygen have the preferred angles, and Yaga, he'll be able to take down Kansan from Freezer. Yeti will step up to the plate, but Foxay, he's got the cross. This, oh my, it's gonna be Yaga going off with the Evo here. The Scorpion working out as, well, Oxygen finally able to get something on the board, and in a big way as well.
Great turnaround there from Yaga after, once again, Kino is struggling a little bit on the inside of this match there. We see the push from Grixer as he walks literally right down the stairs, right into Kino's face to be able to take him down. Led to a very stressful situation for Oxygen as once again, pressure came barreling down into the site, much too prematurely before they were really ready to handle it. As a result of that, led to another very intense scenario in the final few seconds. Thankfully, again, the cutoff was there from Yaga, and he was able to save not only his teammate, but the round as well, with the second two kills, picked up by him, and that allowing for another round to go into OXG's pocket here. A very, very close map, but one that is now led by Oxygen for the very first time, I do believe. Actually, no, they had a 1-0 lead at the beginning. But either way, since that 1-0 lead, the very first time that Oxygen has had control of the matchup, and only one chance, unfortunately, to shut it down in regulation here at 7-5. As if Soniqs traded back out, we're going right into OT.
Yes, indeed. It's been the adjustments from Oxygen across the board that have made things so difficult for the Soniqs on their offensive half. It started off so strong as well, showing some new cards, especially in their hard breachers coming through in the way that they wanted to make that work. And honestly, I've been loving what we've been seeing, especially how strong the intel game has been, getting that big pick onto vertical there, as well as Grixer finding some frags. But Oxygen able to make it work nevertheless. And honestly, I feel like it was just Soniqs getting lazy in that moment, just not having people close enough for those refrags, and Oxygen pressuring once again to make sure that the offense doesn't have the proper space in order to get that execute to go off. So very well done from OXG, as the positioning was just so very strong inside of that one.
All right, so we're going to get back into it now after the tactical timeout for the Soniqs has expired here. They're going to use it quite literally at the last moment they can to try and once again come up with a winning strategy for the attacking side of this upstairs attack. One that, again, Oxygen was able to control for themselves quite handily. But that was mainly due to a mistake that was made by Yeti and the Soniqs, however. So not necessarily proving their worth when it comes to this defensive setup just yet, not really seeing it tested to the full degree. Let's see if this time things are going to go a little bit more swimmingly for our attackers here as they try to even out the scoreline once more at 6-6. Trigger OT.
Well, lucky enough for the Soniqs, there's no frost mats in this one, so they'll at least be able to hop in some windows safely. And just as a reminder, those frost mats, such a nuisance when it comes down to it, committing you into that 50-50. Either shoot the mat, try and contest the man that's watching over the mat. But for Oxygen, not gonna have to worry about this one. Like we were talking about before. Rather, we're going to have Foxay on the Wamai with the Jaeger combo here, just really leaning into that utility and making sure that the Soniqs can't bowl over that in an easy fashion. Ryage is going to start things off down low. He's going to get droned out by Yeti initially, but as I thought, immediately start pressing back. Doesn't want to get picked too early on here and give that advantage over to SQ.
I'll go very quickly, going to rotate back upstairs here now that he does see the pressure start to work its way in, so especially through small tower there. The Soniqs are once again going to take early control of that for themselves here. A couple other small reinforcements going down. Once again, it's just Oxygen committing to the bunker at this point. We do have a yellow ping going down, I think, on Aquino's position here as he's going to hold on top of the hatch once more here. Not going to see the bucket brought this time by the Soniqs, which they did bring on the first Kids attack there. That was used in an attempt to kind of force Kino out of position, but never really saw as much use again due to the unfortunate chain of events involving Yeti. So they're going to just ditch that this time, go to probably a much more traditional form of attack. Yeti's still looking for an early potential hop-in over here towards the big window. And more than anything, just got to keep an overwatch on it for the time being while his teammates set up. But either way, good for the Soniqs here inside of the first few minutes of the round here as they try to set up their opening opportunity to work their way in, and this is how they're going to deal with the upstairs hold this time. Nicely done here as we're going to see the hard breach utility used to open up that hatch and make the position for Kino a lot less safer than it was a few seconds ago.
Ace and Habana both so strong when it comes to that ranged hard breach. Able to get rid of a couple of the positions for Oxygen, especially that important one that we saw Kino working the last time they were on this site. Still plenty of time for the Soniqs to get a lot of these jobs done and continue to find intel to influence what they want to do with this last minute. Plenty of solid drone positioning as well. They'll be able to clear out all of Kids' dorms right now as Oxygen have been pushed back all the way to the east side right now, playing inside of Attic as well as Games Room. And with Soniqs having all 5 men, this could be pretty straightforward. This is looking like a round that could build up to being a bloodbath unless one of these Oxygen members can possibly make a solid rotate. So we just saw Vertical here on the staircase down low, coming up from Freezer, or actually rather the main stairs, and could definitely get something going here for the defense.
Barely a single point of damage on any player here as we go into the final minute of the round. Vertical walking up on a flank, but he's not going to be able to take his target out initially. Soniqs are tearing the defensive setup to pieces, and even more on top of that, the diffuser now down on the ground as the Soniqs successfully push it through the big window here. Vertical finally commits in on the rotate here. He's going to be able to take him out, but also Kino is lost deeper in the site. Laxing will rotate into Kids to account for the loss of his teammate here, and he's also still going to have Vertical pushing in through the connector. Laxing as well, he walks right up onto Rex as no one seems to be the wiser to his position over by Kids, but he will get chased as he tries to hop down. The Hatchet Super takes him down, leaving all the pressure onto Vertical with only about 10 seconds to make this play work here. And oh no, the angles just don't work out in his favor as Super gets the last kill. The Soniqs tied up at 6-6 to go to overtime on the first map of the series.
And that is how their initial round should have went upstairs. Very forward plant, did not need to dwindle down on time. When they were ready, and they immediately hopped in, got that case plant, and really, really the only thing you could ask for from Oxygen there is kind of a better play from Vertical on that flank. If things go off without a hitch, he's more than likely going to be a much bigger thorn in the side of Sonic's overall game plan there. But even then, it was really the Sonics on the front end, just winning those gunfights as they come in through the window to get that plant down that made it so difficult for OXG. I really like how the Sonics were pushing things initially as well. There was just so much space for them to work with, so much room to breathe around that window with the positioning of Oxygen, with the area that they were in with Sonics initially on that execute. It just made it so very easy. But now into overtime here as Sonics have guaranteed this in 6-6.
Oxygen unable to find that one final round on the defense, needed to close things down here, but that does mean they get to carry forward with the defensive start as well as a reset on their basement hold here as we go into OT. They'll be able to return back towards it, and unfortunately for the Sonics, they'll be forced to attack into it once again. Time to see who will come out on top of this one, as if the Sonics find it, that could be very, very dangerous for Oxygen's chances to still win out on this map. With that being said, OXG does have that slight edge, and they have 2 out of 3 of these rounds on the defensive side over to the Sonics.
Yeah, a huge favor in the light of Oxygen to be able to continue to play out this defensive side, especially with Yaga's play thus far on this, and we've seen some big plays coming out of Foxy and Vertical as well. One player we want to see highlighted in this overtime has got to be Kano. Would love to see a big play coming out of him in one of these rounds, but you can ask for a lot. That doesn't mean that you're going to get it. So the Sonics are going to make a couple of adjustments on this offense. The Fink has been dropped. They're bringing in the Rotero drones of Flores to see if they can get rid of some of these harder to reach spots that Oxygen have built up.
Be a bit of a slow building process here. Yeti also popping open that front doorway just to see if there's going to be any shenanigans being deployed up the laundry stairs. Certainly not the case from Oxygen here, as they're sitting pretty much fully in their hold now. As you can see, Vertical rotating all the way back down is flirting with a potential swing up the stairs there to try and check the backstage area and see if there's going to be any deployment from the Sonics. But as you folks can see at home, there's absolutely nothing deployed to this area. There's nothing really to be gained from Vertical, and making that push this early on, all the focus from the Sonics is still on those front 2 hatches. And over the next few seconds, we'll slowly see them start to swing back towards the further portion of this map to open up the 3rd and final hatch, and then finally focus on the descent from that point forward.
As we see over and over, time and time again, with this site, it's usually going to be the same thing, the focus on the hatches and breaking things down. And for Oxygen, last time around, Sonics trying to get very forward with the way that they wanted to handle the basement. Some big picks coming through, especially from Grixer as they pressured the pillar side, but Oxygen able to battle back in such a convincing fashion, making it difficult for Oxygen, or rather Sonics, to try and push forward onto them, especially with some of the positionings being so difficult for them to try and suss out initially. Now, starting to get into those same moments here as the timer continues to dwindle. Yeti this time, though, will be on the construction side, seeing what he can possibly get done. But he's got 2 bodies to worry about, specifically Foxy, who's taking the fight right now, and Grixer will not be allowed to come down the tower stairs. Super will get gutted from the smokes as well as Kino with a big double kill now. We talked about it previously, how we wanted to see him with a big round, and it looks like we've got it.
Yeti going to be next up the bat here to try to move it, especially towards Pillar. An opening opportunity
no.
presented against Kino.
No.
And the double swing of unfortunate events for Yeti as Yaga comes right out from the left side of the Pillar hold there, shutting down Yeti on his push right after we saw his opponent go right behind the Pillar itself to remain safe in that situation here. Kino still going to be in play as a result of that misstep from Yeti. And we'll start to see a push deployed over towards the stair to really push out this last bit of attack presence from the Sonics here. Rexon is going to have his HP get shredded here, and it won't be too much longer before the only other member of the team gets knocked out as well. OXG take the first round of overtime and now need only one more yet again.
I love the idea from the Sonics, especially with the Monty coming through, but they just didn't have everything going for them necessary in order to make that work, especially on the construction side. Just really nothing going on there. Able to bear down and at least put some pressure onto the Oxygen members, but Foxy was just so solid in that position. There's really no way for them to get inside and have influence over that pillar position and make it easy for Monty as well as the other teammate of the Sonics working down the tower stairs. And for the Sonics, way too many bodies lost in that situation. So now Oxygen getting their lead back here for first time in quite some time. It's going to be 7-6 in favor of OXG as they'll be 6-picking off of the Maverick and bringing Flores themselves.
Back and forth between these two teams for quite some time, so OXG as they once again push ahead here, and now are also in the driver's seat to try and shut down this map. But in order to do that, they'll need to find success on this attack in the basement, which they have done once before, but since then there's been 2 successful defenses put up by the Sonics roster, so no guarantees that OXG can light that flame yet again. They try to push things up to an 8-6 victory on map number 1.
This is going to be quite the difficult round on both ends here. It really, I feel as though this is based around how these Rotero drones are going to go, as well as the frag grenades and clearing out this utility, mostly because, especially with the Sonics, the Evil Eyes in the positions that they are, they're more than likely going to be dealing with a couple of these Rotero drones pretty early. So if Foxy can get these past the initial defense of, the intel game that the Sonics have going on, he's going to be able to get rid of a lot of these positions that the Sonics have been favoring, especially around these deployable shields, making this so much more difficult for them and allowing Oxygen to actually bear down onto the site in the way that they did the initial time. So for the Sonics, more than likely going to be trying to play out and get these picks initially, especially around that freezer area. They know Yaga likes to favor that, so could see some adjustments to try and thwart a lot of Oxygen's game plans.
Very early days in the round, so we'll be some time before we start to see that deployment from Oxygen down in the basement, much like we saw from the first minute or so. The Sonics attacking round, it's all going to be spent opening up the hatchwork and trying to clear out as much utility as possible from upstairs, such as in that top of the L in the freezer hallway, and a few other positions such as around the pillar downstairs as well, depending, of course, on where OXG want to focus this attack, which have been in a couple different places depending on the round that you have looked at here, namely freezer later on, but that hasn't necessarily panned out as of yet for OXG due to Sonic's setup being positioned specifically to counter a lot of that play out.
Okay, well now for Kino, doing the hard job here. This is a hard breach. He'll be popping open both of the hatches, but it's been the big change in between these two. Oxygen favoring that Thermite, whereas Sonics bringing super on a lot of these secondary hard breach operators and trying to make their life a little bit easier by bringing more influential primary utility. But for Oxygen, still a lot of options out of the gate here, especially with the stuns on Kino, can still get some burn on these ADSs, but no true picks coming through just yet. And actually one of those Rotero drones will end up getting the Evil Eye, just not having the gate open up quick enough to try and get that. Foxy so far doing such a bang-up job on this positioning. Vertical actually end up pretty deep here with the hologram. This is not the real person, folks. I promise you, as he will be pretty deep here inside of Laundry. Get some solid intel, but nobody will actually take that out, so should have that up pretty soon.
Fortunately, that is not the real person once again.
Yeah, that would have been terrifying.
Having the biggest freebie of the round right there, but either Sonic's realizing it or just missing it
now
entirely,
it is.
but okay. Now he's going to walk it, but he walks a little bit too far as Super catches it from the construction side. Cans it as well. A great pre-fire onto Yogg at the bottom of freezer stairs, and now you just have a 2-player push trying to work their way in. Super did get down over a construction hallway, but retrievable, it looks like, by the hands of Yeti. So we'll see how that pans out in a moment. You can see Kino has the cutoff, however, if someone does try to go and revive Super. I don't know if the angle will work out in his favor, however, and now you've got Foxy also creeping in, looking to capitalize on this, but Yeti gets Kino. Laxing takes out Kanjan in the meanwhile in an exchange, and he's still the potential pressure that's going to boil in a second from Foxy. That should confirm not only Yeti, but Super to go down. No, he's been brought back up, so he's still in the fight. Laxing, however, will take out Rexy, meaning everything is now on the newly revived Super to win out the 1v1 versus Laxing. Only 13 seconds left, meanwhile, on the other side of the coin for Laxing to get this case down on the ground here, and he's running out of time. Doesn't even have control of it as well, as he's going to try to shift himself around, wants desperately to take the gunfight versus Super, but he will not give it to him, so time will run out, and the Sonics will claim round number 14 here on the timer.
You don't need kills to win the game. Just abuse the timer. We saw it earlier with Dark Zero not able to execute within time and end up losing a round round on it. Now Super using that into his favor as well. There's too many variables, Laxing practically swimming in them at that moment as to the position of which Super could be in. And, well, Super, he's just going to play far back and to see if Laxing will actually push into construction, but that never happens. Doesn't get the case either, and now it's 7-7 as Auction will switch back over to the defensive end, and Super will be bringing the buck once again.
Bit of a curveball for Oxygen's site choice, though, is actually not going to head upstairs, the usual expected site choice. Instead, they're going to head down into the first floor hold of their meeting hall and kitchen play, which, I'll be fair to them, that did seem like a much more solid hold overall at the end of the day compared to what we saw on the second floor and the issues that were popping up for them there and how close it was on the second attempt, ultimately going towards the Soniqs there.
It's definitely going to be pretty favorable for them just because of what the Soniqs' choice was for secondary hard breach operator here. With Super being on the buck, that's not going to be as abusable as Ying would be in this situation. You're still going to be able to make some pretty cheeky angles across the board, especially if you do take, top floor control and start breaking up the flooring inside of kids' dorms, which we would expect here, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to. But we'll have to see what the Soniqs want to go forward with. Either way, still a little slight advantage to Ying in this situation, but Super can get by with anything that Buck has to offer here. So as for the Soniqs, out the gate here in 5 seconds for the very last round of Oregon.
Indeed. Soniqs can excel on their attack, or if Oxygen will finally come out swinging here on that first floor hold and try and shut things down into their own favor and take control of our very first map of the series.
Oh,
Foxe
no!
with the dirty pick, and they can't even exchange it. He makes it safely back to yellow. He's good. He's not going to get traded more than likely now. He is well within his team's territory. That's a freebie for Oxygen right in the opening seconds of the round.
And I mean, guys, you have to feel for Cans in this. He was on cloud 9. Not the organization, but just for the phrase here. 10-5. He's 13-12 right now. He's fallen off a cliff in the kill department. The influence isn't there as it once was. Oxygen making some very serious changes to take advantage of what the Soniqs are doing. I love how sly Foxe was in that situation there, pushing very far forward, getting that initial pick on practically a spawn kill. And not only that, but it's 7-7, something you would not expect in that moment, yet he gets away with it.
So, nice surprise coming in there from Foxe as well. Normally expect to see moves like that come from Laxing of all people. Foxe giving us a bit of a surprise on that as well. With some
I call him a rat too much, man. Listen, rat is not an offensive term. If anything, it just means that your big brain, like Vert, he knows they're both here. Yeti, what happened, buddy?
Vert's
my
been stealing
God!
kills this whole
Oxygen,
game, man.
They're just not even allowing them in the building. The Grixer's going to sneak in behind, but Laxing's already got his position. This Banshee's also going to give some of that away. Super inside of meaning as well, but Oxygen have so many bodies here. This is going to require so much heavy lifting from the Soniqs.
Vertical continues to get away with an absolute thrashing as he once again finds a multi-kill against the Soniqs attack.
Oh.
Case gonna go down on the ground. Super picks one up, but he's immediately gonna get a nade to the face.
That's it.
2 trades come out from Oxygen, and that'll shut it down, ladies and gentlemen, as Kano finishes it off with the last kill. Plenty of time, of course, for that counter defuse. OXG will take the map at 8-7 and take the lead in the series at 1-0 as well.
Oxygen flipping the aggressive switch at the proper moment. A lot of very tightly contested rounds and everyone basically playing right on the limit, making sure that they can't be taken out inside of these gunfights, trying to dwindle down on that timer. But that last round, a complete 180 in the strategy of Oxygen, threw everything off kilter. The pacing was just not there for the Soniqs.
Even just the site choice,
yeah,
right?
I mean, it just completely threw them off. I mean, guys, we're a professional team. We should not be overlooking Armory stairs. I mean, things like that Oxygen, just with that pacing change, really threw that curveball in there, and Soniqs not able to adapt in the moment.
And so, with success being found for OXG here, they are well on their way to finding that ultimate revenge against the Soniqs for the earlier record and the earlier matches earlier on this year.
2-2.
Try, yep,
2-2
like
on maps.
2-2 on maps now, and a chance to potentially take the lead. As guys, this is a best of 3. We still have potentially 2 more maps to go as well. But the next one being an interesting one, as Clubhouse is going to be on the docket.
So if the Soniqs take a map, and then this finishes 2-1 in favor of Auction, they're tied 3-3. So I think the only way to settle that is Laxing and Super wrestle on stage. I think that's it. And if anything, we should have Caliber Jacob cast it, because he's probably got the most history with wrestlers. And that's the only, I just want to hear, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That's all I want.
Sounds like good content to me. Hey, we're based in Vegas.
Oh, that's true. Oh, hey, hey.
It seems like it's
Ooh,
working.
Hey. I mean, face it, you want some content, man? I don't know. Like,
Eat your heart out, Jake Paul.
There you go. But, I mean, so far, what an amazing series in between these two. Honestly, walking into this, I thought that this was going to be a coin flip as to how this was going to go. It could be either very dominant in one direction or extremely tight-knit in between these two, just because of the maps that we saw throughout the stages in between them. So I'm very happy that we ended up on the side of highly contested, and I hope that continues, especially in the Clubhouse.
I think it's really going to be the case because we've got another very structured, very team-oriented map coming up in Clubhouse, and then if we need to, we've also got the craziness on map number 3 of what's going to come out of a potential Coastline.
Spice.
That's going to do it for the two of us for now. We'll be back, of course, for map number 2, but for the time being, we're going to toss it over to the desk to break this one down.
Whether you wanted to believe me or not, ladies and gentlemen, I told you this was going to be one of the hottest matches this entire weekend, and just like we called it, just like Jacob and I called it, Oxygen went up 1-0 in maps right there over the Soniqs, and as we head into map number 2, let's talk about it. Foxay with that entry kill right there in that last round, Jacob.
Oh, dude, yeah.
He set the tone.
He did. It was the idea of simply not allowing the Soniqs to get into the building to begin with. He pulled a really good play, got the kill, scampered back to yellow, ensured that Soniqs couldn't get a trade back, and it meant they were without one of their top players, without their Finca. They couldn't use it for an execute. Obviously, this was a game that was closer than Oxygen would have liked it to be, but the point is, they won their map pick, a map they knew coming into this that both them and the Soniqs have played consistently and won somewhat consistently in North American play. Now we head over to Club. That's something that both teams, again, to a certain extent, still like playing because of how frequently they go for it, but in this context, for Oregon's sake, this was a defensive-sided game the entire time.
C-Daps, any thoughts?
I mean, the biggest thing is, you said, they're feeling good. They won their own map choice in max OT.
Which, okay, you have to win your own map pick. If you lose your opponent's map pick and you won yours, that's fine. I do hear you on the max OT thing,
It's
though.
close.
That's a
It's
little
very
closer
close.
than
That's a
like.
coin flip where, like you said, if Foxay doesn't make that huge play on overtime match point, we might have seen that result as well as with Vertical and his positioning. He had it a couple of times. We saw it mainly in that max OT.
Right.
He was over by main stairs, and he was able to just take out that player entirely. But there was also round 10 where he did something pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That flank that was just absolutely massive. He was downstairs, right next to Yeti on the map, trying to nade through the hatch.
Right.
And they walked right by each other. It was actually beautiful. If you see both these players, they're down below, and they barely missed each other. In that play right there, that slight bit of timing, that completely wins the round for Vertical. He takes out Super in just a couple seconds right there. That's the Monty inside of sight. You're like, uh-oh, everything bad is happening. And then Rexon, as well as Yeti, they get inside of the B bomb site, but it doesn't matter. Vertical is just going to take him out from behind once again with another flank that's just extended later and wins it, ties it up, breaks the momentum for Soniqs. It makes it difficult.
It's the kind of thing that we expect Vertical to do. He did it for all of this stage. We focus on attack roles more often than not, but on defense, he's one of the smartest roamers in the game. You put him right up there with a guy like Hot and Cold, which is why he was competing with him for MVP honors in Stage 3, because he understands map timing, he knows the optimal moments to rotate, and on a map like Oregon, unfortunately, you can't watch every angle at the same time, and the one thing that the Soniqs don't do is, what they do is assume that they have all of stage control and backstairs essentially free to themselves, but because of that one little moment from Vertical, it turned around in their favor, and defense again on Oregon swung towards OXG. It's what they wanted on a map that they selected.
You know what our boy Kicks loved the most? He loved talking about impact kills, and Vertical was full of them. Actually, he's talking about that. Let's take a look at the stats in the last round. And we saw Vert get those 2 kills. It was actually on Yeti and Rexon, which was Mav and Twitch. That was so crucial, and because of that, he was rewarded with the big win. 8-7 for Oxygen, and looking at the stats on the side of the losing team, Soniqs, Kenzen was on top, 13-12, but stats don't matter when you lose, but when you're winning, it looks so much better. Foxay, 14-9, and 3-1 when it came to opening engagements. C-Daps, who popped off to you?
I mean, if you look at the stats, sure, Kansan did a little bit better than Grixer, but you have to say Grixer was overall more consistent because of that cost right there. That 53% cost with 13 kills, that means that Kansan was very streaky.
Yeah.
A lot of his games were, or a lot of his rounds would be 3Ks, multiple kill rounds, as opposed to overall consistency with Grixer, where he was getting 1 or 2 every single round, feeling great on the side of the Soniqs. Naturally over for Foxay. You don't have to really say much. Those stats are absolutely juiced as the IGL.
Yes.
He's doing well for himself.
Boxay was juiced, but Yaga was on one. Jacob, remember when Yaga joined the team? Kino
Yeah.
was like the star, right? The star rookie. We always talked about Kino this, Kino that. But Yaga has been so much better lately. And also, when you came back to the couch in the green room and you sat down, Yaga popped off with a 4K.
Yeah.
The man went crazy.
Yeah, because he sat in freezer by himself as Ella. It was the one thing that the Sonics weren't paying attention to as they pushed from backstairs and bunker. They gave it their best shot, but Yaga had a 4K in that round, which is why he came back up to 13 and 10. He was in a lot of opening engagements. He was in 6 opening fights, 3 kills, 3 deaths. Remember back in stages 1 and 2, we were like, it kind of seems like he's competing with Vertical for almost the same role. Not the case anymore. He's he's letting Vertical almost have like the big spotlight, the flashing moments, because he was the one who was in MVP contention. But Yaga, instead of trying to fight for the same spot, is utilizing the second entry position to flourish. He's the guy who's not first in the building, but he will always find the mid-round frags, and that's a big reason for why they were able to win.
Yes, and also he looked good, almost as good as you guys in Indochino right now. So
Oh,
for
shut
those of you
up.
watching at home, if you want to look as fly as this, make sure you check out Indochino.com because listen, you just don't look this good just for no reason, right? But not only that, Jacob, show them the inside.
Look
I
at
got
this.
I got the J-Lo
Look at
dress
this, man.
inside. It looks nice, and also
Mine's boring. Mine's simple and clean.
It
no,
is.
no.
It's
You look
simple
handsome.
and-
Don't
you
play
are very
yourself,
simple and
man.
clean.
You can't be
You guys-
humble on
you
the
guys-
desk
hey,
like
hey,
that.
hey, hey.
We
Bro.
got to teach him a little bit of desk cockiness, right?
You know what you need? A little bit of space in your life.
Yep.
That's the cool part about it. You can always customize the suits that you get as well. So once again, we're giving away also, well, Indochino, they're not giving it away to everyone, but they are running a contest. You can win a $2,000 custom wardrobe. You got that right. $2,000. You get to look as good as ever. Trust me, your date's going to love it. You can wear it to interviews, and I guarantee you will get that job. To check it out, make sure you go to Indochino.com, and you do not want to miss it. $2,000. That's a lot of suits, man. But, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to map number 2 to see if Oxygen can shut out the series against Soniqs or if Soniqs can force a tiebreaker map. We'll see you guys on the other side of this break.
What does it take to create the future of a gaming community? Join us on this 4th episode of I Call Next as we discover how to level up gameplay and reset the expectations of an entire league. PayPal. Press play.
If you want to get better, try reviewing your game footage. Insights.gg's game capture tool makes recording and reviewing fast and easy. With no lag, automatic recording, and instant highlights, it's never been easier to learn from your gameplay. Try it for free at insights.gg today.
up in Texas, you're expected almost to play sports. I played football and basketball. I was pretty good, but it became clear to me that I was too small to do anything beyond high school. Obviously, I love to compete. That's why I do what I do now. When I was in high school, if you played video games, you're kind of seen as more of a nerd. The amount I played was definitely not something I talked about. I ended up being a Major League Gaming pro on the Rainbow Six Vegas series. It never occurred to me to be a career, honestly, until Siege. I think I'm the oldest pro player in any region right now. I can't see myself not being in esports just for the rest of my life. You know, I have a great relationship with the Soniqs. I've been with the organization literally since the Soniqs started. I've had opportunities to even join other teams in the league, to leave the Soniqs, sometimes at more money, and I refuse it.
Super's leadership has impacted the Soniqs really well, obviously because of the success we've faced.
The experience and the motivation that he brings to the team is very valuable.
He keeps us structured and together and coordinated.
He's really grounded in the decisions he makes for the team.
A lot of his leadership comes from outside the game. I think it's more than anybody could ever understand.
You know, he helps us with strats, he helps us with in-game decisions. I describe him as selfless.
Mastermind.
He's a really smart guy. He gets portrayed as this villain when in reality he isn't. He's a pretty nice guy. He's pretty smart. He understands what he's doing.
I'm just used to being seen as the bad guy or the villain. You know, myself and the rest of the team's kind of embraced it. The goal is to always win. We want to prove that we're not just a dominant team within NA, that we're a dominant team worldwide.
Welcome back once again, ladies and gentlemen. We are very ready to jump into our second map of our second semifinal here at the NIL Finals. It's between the Soniqs and Oxygen. Oxygen just barely squeaking their way out of their initial map pick back over there on Oregon with an 8-7 final scoreline. And now we get ready to head to Clubhouse for map number 2.
Oh, lots of fun on the docket. Clubhouse, and if we're lucky enough, Coastline. Also an option here, but obviously we have to get through Club first, and a map that kind of mimics Oregon in a sense, but is just a little bit more congested. It's going to be very close quarters in between these two teams, trying to work their way through the building. Should be making for some pretty fun stuff. For the Sonics, that last map seemingly going their way up until the dying moments. We make it to overtime, and Oxygen fights so strongly from the defensive end and just really thwart all of Sonic's game plan, not really able to contest in any serious manner. The last round especially, Oxygen practically just setting the playbook on fire and just coming out with sheer aggression against SQ. But that's all in the past, and well, this is the future. We have Clubhouse here, folks, as Oxygen and Sonics try and see if they can take this.
Some surprises were sprung out back in map number 1, but it's going to be no frills this time on Clubhouse, a map that has seen nearly infinite play. Doesn't matter what region you're looking at as well. Teams have been playing this map out like crazy, and that means for the most part it's going to be very hard to sneak something new in, especially with SI looming on the horizon. If teams do have anything special, unfortunately they're more likely going to be saving it for that event here. So expect, once again, teams to be playing into the meta for this map, and that'll mean it's going to be a very structured, very team-favored, very execute-heavy map once again here as we get into Clubhouse. Already seeing the attacker bans go away. No surprises for either one of them, though, as both Thatcher and Habana are immediately removed from the pool.
Oregon, you have Hatch play. Clubhouse, you have Hatch play. And we're going to have the exact same bans on the offensive side because of that. Valkyrie also going to be coming out from the Sonics, as we talked about before. This is a routine one for them. Just do not want to try and deal with the amount of intel that she can gather, as well as how comfortable overall multiple pros feel on that op. Mira, going to be the exact same thing, really, as we're actually going to have the exact same bans from Oregon as we do on Clubhouse.
Just in the reverse order for some weird reason. That actually makes sense, though, because the team pick order is different this time, too. So
they may or may not have switched sides, John.
I wasn't paying close enough attention, but either way.
Where's the photographer we needed? That your quizzical look was just amazing.
I was like trying to think if I was right or if you were right. And normally in these situations, when I can't figure that out, I just ditch the topic and move on. So we're gonna do that.
Oh man, never let me be right. That's rule number 1, actually. It's right at the top of the list inside of Siege commentary. Never let Stokes be right. It's literally the first rule. So either way, Oxygen and Sonics, we have an exciting Clubhouse here for you folks. As Oxygen, we starting things off on the defense, and they'll be taking a slight page out of the Sonics book. We have Thunderbird here on vertical. I'm excited to see where he wants to put these stations at.
We already did see the Sonics bring Thunderbird into the play at least once during the last map here, but now it's going to be the first time we see Oxygen bring it to the table, being used very much in a similar way, though. It's going to boost some of these power positions deeper, specifically inside of Arsenal, although still one station. Oh no, all 3 have been deployed there, so never mind. It's going to be mainly inside of Arsenal to allow, once again, for OXG to bolster those more defensive positions and hopefully allow for that 1 or 2 bullet difference to be enough for them to win out their initial 1v1 and obviously get them the man advantage they need to shut down the eventual attack into the basement. As we continue to describe the similarities between this map and Oregon, once again, teams almost always go for the initial play into the basement here, and it's going to be a very heavy focus on defending just the basement and pretty much nothing else.
Absolutely, and I mean, you can even see that in the strategy overall here for the for Oxygen. They really want to get in the way of the Sonics when it comes to their overall intel gathering, as well as a couple of different things. I really like the pickup here for Kino with the goo mine, just because it's going to give them info on the entries here. Anybody steps into that, they won't be able to sprint, and it'll just make their life a heck of a lot easier. And definitely a great thing to partner with what else they have going on across the board here. And oh, Grixer, a beautiful play. He'll sneak inside. Possible refrag coming through, but Rexon already hitting his mark as well. Laxing defaults her, and now Oxygen in the opening 45 seconds have already lost 2 bodies.
Important to note here, obviously, I was just talking about how Oxygen and usually defensive teams play this basement site very heavily into the basement itself. OXG took the exact opposite approach and tried to go very roam heavy here and are paying the early consequences to that due to the lurks that have worked their way in from the Sonics roster here, most notably Grixer sneaking right into the bar and sealing the initial kill away, and Rexon, of course, assisting him with the second one as well. It's both Laxing and Foxay, 2 of the senior leadership players here from Oxygen, now gone just a minute into the round here. They're going to have to try and fight it out, but Yogg immediately dropped, being distracted by a drone. Grixer gets his second pick of the round, and Oxygen's defense, what remains of it anyway, in the basement, is not going to be too much to fend off against the 5-man roster. Still nearly at full HP as well for the Sonics.
Yeah, Sonics have nipped this in the bud so early on here, and now for Oxygen, this is practically an all-for-naught round. There's really nothing that they can do here to try and fight back against the Sonics. I mean, they do definitely have some solid utility in order to do so. The Nitro Cell still here for vertical that could come up up big with possibly a multi-frag if he's able to get that to land properly, but it's going to take so much from OXG to try and pull this round out. With Soniqs having so much time, this is more than likely going into their favor, as well as just with the amount of utility they have to abuse a lot of different things inside of this space. Kansan already getting a lot of work done with this skeleton key as Kino goes hunting.
Nice impact here is going to get him off of it, although we are still going to see the hatch explode, and with that as well, the utility piece on the hatch getting knocked out there due to the impact being used purely to get the player off the point. So not working out in the way that the Oxygen members would have hoped there, seeing as they're in this 2v5. They really needed to try and preserve that hatch, and it's just only sold this round down the river that much more quickly here. As once again, you can see a few remaining members of OXG trying to hold on to the site, but Grixer now with a third kill inside of this round, just entering his way to success here, it seems, as he's found 3 separate 1v1s going in his faction, or favor, excuse me, and finally Yeti will trade out the last player as well.
Yeah, as we said earlier, there's really nothing that you're going to do there to try and fight back from that, especially with the way that the basement's set up. They really can't get out in any situation, and that obviously leaves it down to a very limited amount of possibilities in which Oxygen can try and play that out. As long as the Soniqs do not give a heavy amount of frags over to the defense, that round is going to go their way almost every single time. Now, the thing I love from the Soniqs in that round that I would love to highlight has got to be the knock play, especially. The entry from that was paramount to their success. Oxygen had no idea where he was coming from. It was simply the audio that was giving it up initially to the Mozzie player, and that was it. So for Soniqs, a great call early on will gift them around to the offensive side as Oxygen yet to get on the board.
OXG indeed struggling quite heavily on that initial round, but once again, due to how quickly they were picked up by a lurking member of the Soniqs, not necessarily due to any of their own mistakes aside from missing the intel on that player. So we've yet to see them truly get tested here on what they can show us when they are put into that position due to how quickly things fell apart on that initial round. Let's see as well how the Soniqs will try to handle things. This is a site as well that's usually played out to a pretty heavy degree. Soniqs will have plenty of information as to the setup that Oxygen are currently deploying toward, even with the shields going down and one of the rotates opened up through bar here. It's all something that Soniqs have more than likely seen before and are going to be ready to handle.
Something that I always love about Oxygen's play, the amount of options that they leave open that could possibly be abused later on. You can see the rotates being made around stage, deployable shield at the bottom of red stairs as well, or cash stairs for those of you that are more finicky about your callouts. Laxing's going to be playing around this space and all those goo mines to support as well. Legion, an operator that, I'll be honest, and some of you might know this, used to annoy the crap out of me, but he's just an overall fantastic pick, really, whenever you're trying to throw something into heap. Always good, has impacts. He can really do whatever you want him to do. And for Laxing here, he'll be able to use that for not only intel, but again, slowing these members on their entry. Super will begin the opening ensemble here for the Soniqs as they'll immediately breach into CCTV and start opening up some fresh angles. And speaking of angles, actually, vertical, there's actually one missing currently that Kino is now trying to fix. Kind of an awkward spot for vertical to play in this space without that being there, just because his main job, contesting that door, holding on to garage, and making sure that those players on plat don't get a clean entry in, but now has that open. So Soniqs, good for business here with that wall open as well.
Fox is still up on his own little island over towards the other side of stairs,
so
closer
cheeky.
to gym and bedroom here. Yeah, nice angle as they pop open that one little circle with the map hole there, and that allows them to see all the way deeper into the rotate, which they're gonna get a chance to execute on this in a second too. There you go, the down made on the vertical, but it does come at the cost of Rexon, who tried to go straight forward in and got cut off either from the inside of Cash or Red Hole.
Now for Oxygen, fought back in a certain sense, but Vertical's been downed. No case control here either. It's actually Super that has control of that. Oxygen still spread across this entire map, and this is what we were talking about previously with that stage rotate. It's actually an angle all the way for Billiards. We've actually seen this happen before, the Laxing clip on Echo, all the way over inside of Strip, where he used a very similar angle to actually take down a player inside of Stock. Very solid intel now coming through for the Soniqs here as they're looking a little towards Garage, but really the playbook is still open. Oxygen trying to reinforce down here, but there's some drones in this space, and Kansan using that to his advantage. So be able to take down one, more than likely clean up the down player as well, and that's going to clean up the scoreboard just a bit here, but obviously an assist only nowadays with the way that they've changed that up. Grixer will be able to catch one as well as Oxygen getting picked to pieces.
Yeah, 3-tiered pinch coming in here from the Soniqs, from the balcony, from the push in through Garage, and now from construction as well. OXG have no way to play. They were so focused on trying to pinch out the pressure from the inside. inside, but Foxe, a swing and a very big hit as he knocks out both Kansan and Grixer with a single Nitro Cell, evening out the player count at a 2v2, but still enough room left for Super to get himself behind the server. No additional bits of utility. They'll have to push as they want to deny. Instead, they'll play it out in the post play. A big swing and a big hit, and a second one. Bing bong for Yaga as he shuts it all down and picks up the round for Oxygen.
Hey, if you see Yaga in the front yard, just know upstairs they're going hard, man. That's all I'm saying. Oxygen came to play today, fighting back in every sense of the term, not only on Oregon, but here on Clubhouse. And they're making me step up my game, John. I came in off of, like, what, a month and a half of not casting? It's like, whoa, hold on, guys. Slow down a little bit. Oh, my God. Like, but, I mean, it's just been so masterfully done thus far from them in the way they've been able to battle back against the Soniqs. Every single time, it's like they're practically reading the same books. I'm so serious. It's like Soniqs know Oxygen's going to do this. Oxygen adjust and try and make a play via this opposite way, or, you know, allowing Soniqs in to try and get this plant down with the Nitro. There's just so many different layers to that. Just beautiful on both ends. But, I mean, I will say this for the Soniqs. The initial entry into CCTV was a little strange, but besides that, I think overall the round could have went either way.
Yeah, absolutely the case there in a very, very close round. Either way there as Oxygen finally get their footing onto the ground, though, with a nice recovery. After things started out a little bit rocky on that round, they very quickly are now going to rotate right back down to the basement to, more than likely, I would assume, play into a much more bunker-heavy strat. We'll see, as actually I think we do have players still being deployed upstairs, so I'll hold my breath on that for a moment to see if Oxygen is really going to double down on that, but it looks like that's more than likely not going to be the case.
John, what do you want to tell Joe Biden right now?
Joe Byron.
Byron. Sup, baby?
We're just going to be making side talk references throughout the rest of this cast. I hope you guys are ready for that.
No, it's only this round, I promise you guys, okay? So get your clips in now. We're going to make sure that we cast the game properly. These boys are trying extremely hard. It's been such a fantastic game to not only be able to commentate, but I'm sure to watch as at home as well thus far. As Oxygen are going to be changing up the strategy from the top floor victory. They're headed downstairs, but still going to have some extended players up north here. So be hanging out over towards Garage, at least for vertical sake.
Slow down to a snail's pace, though, as again to correct myself. Actually, once more, do have the deployment of players upstairs, are committing themselves to the extended roam here, but are going to be a lot more careful with it from the looks of play from Vertical right now, immediately hopping away from that garage balcony as we do see the wall get open towards it. He wants the position on the top of red stairs instead, as it's much safer, gives him obviously much easier access to the blue stairs down below as well, should he need to rotate, and could even, of course, go down the red stairs and just straight through the hatches. I assume that they may have been left open at this point for a rotate for the team, as that's not going to be necessarily a mission critical one.
Delay is the name of the game here, folks. You do not want to see any of these Oxygen members get taken out early. They want to try and delay as much time as possible in these positions. The Soniqs will be starting off on the Jacuzzi side, but the pressure is starting to build in this area as Grixer's actually got the Jackal in, which could be a huge, huge play here for the Soniqs. They'll have so much intel to work through this space upstairs, but you can already see the drones out of Yeti, but still plenty of intel across the board for the Soniqs to play around with. Speaking of teams, Oxygen collecting themselves around cash as well, as Yaga will drop off, and Delay working out so beautifully thus far. Laxing will get taken down, but he deals just about as much damage as he receives, as Kansan's down to 1 HP.
Great start, though, for Kansan. Still going to be able to preserve himself and potentially still able to make a play later on in the round. And more importantly, still keeping that skeleton key alive and in play for Oxygen, or excuse me, for the Soniqs to try and use here in order to get them the top-down access they may need to attack the base. And with that said, there's still some presence from the top side they're going to have to worry about, but it'll be very quickly dealt with as 2 additional kills are found from the Soniqs, and Oxygen, unfortunately, faltering on this basement defense in a very similar way to how they lost out the first round. Far too many players being lost on extended positions and never really being given a chance to fall back to help out with this bunker setup on the bottom floor.
Now see, I do not hate the strategy that Oxygen took here. The only thing about this that I don't like is Yaga's rotation back up blue. That was a very poor call on his end, especially with the other 2 dying. Now the big thing is he's going for the refrag, but they've already cut that off. Now Kino making a big move here, and he'll actually be able to find 2. Oh no! Oh, Soniqs, please pull it out some way. It's Yeti up through the hatch. He'll take down the initial one, as it's all left up to Foxe Foxay, the IGL as of right now for Oxygen. He'll make a rotate in through the ash wall at the back of Armory, but with 0 impacts, he won't be able to make another adjustment. Tries to challenge in through Church, but with the newfound boxes, this is just going to be so easy for the Soniqs to play out. Foxay peppering angles over and over again, but no one willing to give an inch away. Super and Yeti both playing this to a T currently as the Goo Mines go down. Knows where Super's positioning is, but the shots are too clean, as Super and the Soniqs will get yet another round.
Swift pickup being found from the Soniqs on this basement defense, as they seem to have the number of OXG set up there when it comes to trying to again deal with that extended pressure and knock them out. So some beautiful work from the Oxygen, or rather from the Soniqs roster, as they have no issues, or very little issues, that is, in terms of knocking out that extended play. And as well, not allowing the large majority of those players in that setup to work their way back down to the basement where they would have been able to contribute to it later on. Soniqs are great at cutting off that additional support and making the actual execute onto the site as pretty much easy as it could be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Soniqs have been doing a bang-up job thus far of gathering map control. Now, the one round that Oxygen ends up taking, that's where we see OXG hit some very big plays, and that was the big thing there. Is yes, Soniqs get man advantage, but Oxygen still have plenty of map control in order to play around those advantages, and that's what we saw that Nitro Cell come through from Foxay and gets the big kills to actually get that down into the 2 versus 2. The biggest difference here is that Oxygen just overswing in the sense of aggression there and lose way too many bodies. It practically makes Kino's play, as beautiful as it was, more of a moot point because you're getting back to an even number, and even that, I mean, Soniqs still have an advantage in a sense there. They're able to work down for the case as well as for Oxygen's plans overall for those floors and box them out of their own site.
Those plans also really working again due to a false sense of security that the Soniqs are lulled into. It's good again that Oxygen are able to make these types of plays considering the desperate situation in the round, but as you said, they need to be found at much earlier points here to have the effectiveness that Oxygen need to actually come out with the win on Soniqs map pick here on Clubhouse.
I wouldn't even say it's more early, I'd say it's more controlled in your choices as to what you want to do with that situation, because as soon as those two go down upstairs, their job's already done. I mean, the timer that they had on that second frag, I think was like 1 minute and 5 seconds left, so their job's been achieved, John. They did their own game, they got it past 1:30. They didn't get the kills in a certain sense, but if you guys saw the board at that moment, Kan's super low HP, as I believe Rexon was also super low HP as well. So that 3 versus 5 is actually a heck of a lot easier to win downstairs than I think anybody initially thought, and it just ended up not playing out into their favor. Now, the good news is they still have a lot of opportunity here on this defensive side to change things up and get some rounds on the board, and that starts now with Jim Bedram.
Let's see how this third site pick now from the Oxygen roster is going to pan out, as the Soniqs will work their way forward and try to once again come out on top of this one to set up a 3-1 scoreline for themselves here. Arguably going to be the most claustrophobic site that Oxygen has gone to yet, especially when it comes down to the final moments, if the site setup is still left alive and is having to contend against the pressure from the attackers at that point here. Early focus from the Soniqs once again is going to be over here on the Jacuzzi balcony in terms of opening that one up, and as well putting some pressure from this top Logi hatch so that Yaga or anyone else from Oxygen that's going to play onto the inside of Logi itself is not going to have the comfortability that they so desperately want to fend off pressure from construction.
Indeed. Still sticking to the triple hard breach as well for the Soniqs, just guaranteeing that any of these hard walls that need opened are opened, especially with the Maverick coming into play. Don't have to worry about any of those mute jammers or anything of the sort. With 45 seconds off the board, Soniqs still with a lot to do, but with the time in order to achieve it. As you said, Super will begin things over here on the wall, and this is the big change to mute, folks. For those of you that are new, this is probably not something that you're used to, but for us old folks here for Rainbow Six, this is something that none of us think should happen. Those mute jammers obviously getting changed just a little bit and making it to where now the tops of the walls are more exposed. So it's a little weird to see initially, but once you understand the change, it's like, oh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. So it's going to be a little bit more abusable for the Soniqs in that sense as to exactly what Super did right there. Just make sure you rappel up the wall just a little bit more and get above that mute jammer. And for the Soniqs, this has been such a solid opener thus far.
And already finding that opening kill as well against Foxay, so he's not going to be able to contribute here. That roaming Jaeger no longer going to be a piece of the formula. Super as well with an opportunity to get a second, but doesn't catch it quickly enough there. The transition from, I believe it was Laxing there, is made back into Logi. That does mean they're going to have a 2-player stack inside of Logi, though, which could become quite dangerous at some later point in the round.
Oh, Yeti!
Oh, man! Oh, no. Yeti just held that G button a little bit too long, and Yeah, he's going to suffer the consequences of it. Grixer makes up for it fairly quickly, but also Rexen is going to be lost a second later. Vertical being the one to find that trade here for Oxygen as they are holding on by the skin of their teeth here as they try to once again come out on top. Yogg is going to get caught. Never mind. Yogg spins it back around to get Super, and now it's Oxygen with the leading charge here as the remnants of the Sonics leap into Logi, and soon, I believe the Jacuzzi balcony, if they even got that open for themselves, looks like they did, so Kansan will be now in position to push in towards this with Grixer. A slight pinch for the main Red Hole, but you can see there's still a player on main stairs to be dealt with in addition to the two that have cutoffs from the bathroom, if not in the site. So this is a tough task. Not saying it lightly for the two remaining Sonics players.
This is going to be a serious brawl coming in here. The utility standing tall for Oxygen right now, but they're starting to run dry. Still have an impact, but Grixer, he'll use his Candela. Doesn't push it, he'll actually push to the other end of construction as of right now. Case control now going into Kansan's favor as he's worried about the player on stairs. Sees a beret of Alibi, but not able to hit his shot. Speaking of which, Vertical will get one, but Kino will blast away the competition as Oxygen take yet another round.
Again, a little bit of a bumpy start for them as they take the initial loss on that opening frag, but thankfully, due to the mistakes from some members of the Sonics, as well as a few other missteps in trying to work their way into the site, things work out for Oxygen at the end of the day.
That was really nice of you. I just want you to know that. That was really some of the Sonics members made a blunder there, guys.
Just trying to be subtle. Been harping on the man a bit too much tonight. But either way, as a result of those plays, once again, Oxygen have themselves set up for a very secure, I believe it was a 3v2 hold in those final moments there, and have pretty much the perfect matrix of player positions to make sure that the Sonics cannot move an inch closer to that site without taking a risk to their own lives.
Yeah, it's super unfortunate, just because like if that nade really does go off from Yeti, he more than likely kills that guy, and that opens up the entire site for that position especially. So definitely a lot more abusable for Sonics in that sense, but they're not out of this in the slightest. They've gotten 2 rounds on offense. They're sitting pretty. They're more than likely not pressed about this at all. So they just need to have some solid rounds going into these last 2 and possibly split this at 3-3 and make their defensive side pretty favorable.
Time to see, once again, if we can have that evening up to a 3-3. The problem for Oxygen is going to be the return towards this basement, as well as the insistence on the extended plays. It's going to once again be deployed here for Lansing and a few of the other members of OXG as they try to hold that additional third floor pressure for themselves. Past 2 rounds that they played on this site, we've seen this become an issue as they've been unable to move those players back downstairs or adequately trade out the losses of those players to make the final fight in the basement palatable, allowing for Sonics to, for the most part, run it over 2 rounds in a row.
Sonics now out the gates, blinders on as we start the horse race. We'll see where they want to try and immediately entry from. We'll have 2 starting from the west, possibly pop in through Strip, but more than likely should work up to Jacuzzi and start trying to get some pressure on that top floor. Grixer will be assisting in that, as will pop open the main window from main stairs, making it difficult for anybody to try and rotate up and assist them. So Sonic's going to be going about this in very similar fashion as they did previously. Also have Yeti working on the CCTV wall as well. So we get more of a read onto what Oxygen were doing with this round. It's actually not even a top floor hold. This is going to be phantom pressure on this top space, as Foxy's actually managing the main stairs, whilst we also have Yaga over towards Secret.
A slow build up here. Sonics, once again, look to try and figure out where these extended players are going to be positioned towards, and more importantly, how they can potentially execute 1 or 2 of them here before they begin to commit themselves to the deeper parts of the building themselves here. Yaga probably going to become higher of most of the Sonics here as they try to work their way in and have Yaga in a very pivotal position over by top blue. We'll get droned out, but once again, he's going to have that backpack jammer working for him there, so not going to get physically spotted. And regardless, though, since the position will be quite obvious due to the drone getting shot out, he'll still fall back and take a safe position deeper in the site. It seems like everybody's made it down this time, so OXG not able to put the pressure onto Sonics, but focuses instead on keeping their players alive, and that'll work out fine because they've also wasted the first half of the round here.
This is very, very solid from Oxygen. The phantom pressure upstairs is going to work really well into their timing here. You can see already 1 minute 20 seconds left on the clock for the Sonics, but it even goes farther than that, John. In the sense of the nitro cells that Oxygen are carrying right now, we have 4 artillery shells basically just waiting to be used on these Sonics members, and that's what Oxygen's game plan was all along. Delay time from the Sonics, hold those stairwells and make sure that they can't try and pressure down early or get any advantage in that sense, and then try and fight back with the utility with this verticality coming through that they know is going to happen. Kino, he'll dedicate his 2nd Electro Claw to continue to keep that kitchen hatch closed as Sonic's time continues to dwindle.
Super, as well as Yeti. getting ready to start staring down the barrel of Oxygen's setup here as they establish top-down angles or direct pushes themselves here. A little over half a minute remaining for Soniqs to make this play work, and they still might want to try and open things up over by the church wall. But again, big focus on working their way in through Moto. A great nade placed in here by Yeti. He gets the opening kill. Grixer can't find the target. Instead, it's going to be Yeti tearing his way through the church as he takes out 2 more players. Grixer's down, but that doesn't even matter as it's a 4v1 even with Grixer considered. Laxing's left alone. He has to open up a rotate just to get back over to main stairs, let alone get the reload off on this SMG-11. He'll be overwhelmed very quickly, and that's going to be a flawless round coming in from the Soniqs.
Oh, Oxygen is going to be so angry with the way that that broke down. No one worried about the long hallway for Church, and Yeti simply walks up it into Church and gets some serious frags, all because of it. Fantastic from him as he's able to bowl over Oxygen and give Soniqs the advantage yet again.
Soniqs up by 3-2 now, taking the lead as we head into the final round of the opening half. And OXG, once again, falling back on sites they have the option to play into at this point, as they are going to be locked away on their other upstairs site. So instead have to go over to CCTV and cash, as they have really no other option to play out here, heading into the final moments of the round. The other sites just haven't been working for them, unfortunately, so they have to rely on this one to try and tie things up at 3-3. Still going to be respectful if they can get at that point. Remember, this is oftentimes a fairly defender-sided map, so considering that, if Oxygen does not bring a strong showing on the attacking side, that could be an easy way for the Soniqs to run away with this second map. Their own map pick, by the way, and try to take control of a 1-1 scoreline so far in the series.
Honestly, to be expected in the moment currently, at least for the way that Soniqs is playing up against Oxygen. A lot of very solid ideas rolling around the noggins of OXG, but nothing just playing out in the way that they necessarily wanted to, especially those 2 rounds that came into their favor, coming through pretty big plays, and Soniqs just not really prepared in certain senses, especially with that Nitro Cell play coming through on this very site. So we'll see if Soniqs can possibly get the 4-2 split here, as it's starting to look a little bit more favorable, but Oxygen always has something in the wings, as we saw on Oregon. So could be another overtime situation when it comes down to it, but as of right now, SQ is just looking so solid.
Soniqs once again, specifically on the attack when it comes down to their executes here, continuing to impress with the coordination they bring to the table. Late Mute Jammer is going to be deployed by Kino, which ruins the plans for Super slightly. In reality, though, is only going to cause an extra about 5 to 10 seconds of delay due to a recent change that was made to the Mute Jammers. If you're watching and haven't played Siege in a while, they no longer extend so far upwards. They're going to be a little bit less impressive in that regard. So if you place them,
it's like half the reinforcement.
It's like halfway up the wall. So if you place it right here, you can still bypass it and open up the wall.
Easy, get that entire wall open. And the other nice thing here is you're not really going to want to use other hard breachers in that position, unless you're using Maverick, obviously, to blow open the whole wall or knock it out with Mav tricking. But the reason that they're bringing the Thermite here is look at where he positioned that and look at the wall right now. The entire thing is open. There's nothing you have to vault. There's nothing you have to deal with. It's very straightforward for them, so they completely circumnavigate the Mute Jammer and just simply don't have to worry about it. But speaking of things to worry about, Foxay could possibly be a thorn in the side of the Soniqs if he's able to work his way around this space. No one's seemingly on the Jacuzzi side, even though Foxay is favoring that right now. It's mostly the Soniqs congested around this space here for the garage. So many repels going on, lots of intel gathering for SQ as well. Just not really able to get a read onto what they fully want to do with this space as of yet. Need to check a couple more boxes and see exactly what they can do with Vertical instead of this garage position as well.
Vertical continuing to wait for an opportunity to frag out here, but the Soniqs don't seem to be favoring a garage push too much. It's not to say we won't see that emphasis in a few seconds here, as they're still working on opening up angles a little bit closer to the site itself here. Vertical, though, starting to get a little bit worried about pressure, beginning to work its way in, but having to be cautious, of course, of the presence from the balcony, too, due to the ever-looming presence that is much more solidly being built up there by the Soniqs over this past 20 to 30 seconds or so. Entering the last minute of play, though, we actually still don't have a clear picture of where the emphasis for this attack is going to come from. We're also just now seeing Soniqs shift over to try and put that extra pressure on the garage here. That'll put the emphasis once again back over to Vertical to fend that off, and that's assuming that Soniqs actually try to make a play for this one. Rexon's the only one that'll go for it, and that more than likely could be an easy fight for Vertical, but in the meanwhile, Grixer has struck out Laxing from down below, just at the entrance to the red stairs, opening up a new angle of attack for this team in the final 20 seconds.
More than likely have to try and work him out of this position, and yes, Vertical pressured back into the only safe haven here for Raptors. He'll get taken down, and the Soniqs bowl over Oxygen.
Look
the
at
kill
this.
feed lighting up orange, and Oxygen can't do a single damn thing about it. It's a flawless round 2, in fact, for them, as the Soniqs take their offensive half 4-2.
2 in a row, in fact, as well. Some impressive stuff there from the Soniqs. Now it's just about holding it together on this defensive half, and they'll have themselves a ticket punch to Coastline to try and shut this series down here. A map that, I'm going to be honest, will be fairly dangerous for the Soniqs to play on, even though we've seen issues pop up here for OXG. But regardless of that fact, it should be interesting to see how it goes. We still have one more half to get through, though, before we even reach that possibility. So let's see if OXG can rebound on the attack at all, or if Soniqs are in for a nice, easy, breezy second round for themselves.
You got to be rooting for the Oxygen camp right now, because that defensive half just very lackluster. No answer to the plans in which Soniqs continue to ensue. So we'll see what they can possibly do on their offensive side now. So it'll be a fresh swath of operators for both ends, and a different play style, obviously, between those offensive and defensive operators as well. So maybe breathing some life into OXG. We'll see what they can get done. But for Soniqs, I mean, what a stellar offensive side. 4-2. Handling everything that Oxygen threw at them, especially that curveball with the extended roam that they punished so unbelievably hard. We saw Kino fight back in a certain sense, but that was really it. Still able to take the round nevertheless, and Soniqs now earning this lead and coming into the defensive side well in their favor to take Clubhouse.
See if they can indeed find success here inside of specifically the basement hold, where OXG struggled quite a bit there, specifically when it came to kind of regardless of how they chose to hold it, whether it was directly in the site or even in an extended play, it just never really worked out too well for them. So now Soniqs will be able to extend that mastery onto this defensive side itself, and they too will try to play this quite aggressively at the beginning, most notably Rexon holding out on the catwalk here for a Garage, and a little bit of support, I believe, from Yeti closer to Cash. That's not the only players we have here, but oh, a great drone position just above Rexon that even he might not be aware of as of yet here. He's going to try to move his own position, catches the nades possibly being thrown at him. He does get the additional support from Yeti moved in. Yeti, with way too bold of a play, though, hops right off the balcony into the arms of Vertical, who's very much ready for him, taking him out cleanly, and Yaga follows it up with number 2. Even if Yaga didn't get that kill, the nade more than likely would have found it also.
Oxygen checking all the boxes right now, and some of them just making sure that it goes through. That frag grenade, as you said, the insurance, the situation inside of Raptors. Now Soniqs actually on the receiving end, a 5 versus 3 in favor of OXG right now, something that Soniqs haven't seen since Oregon. So we'll see what they can possibly do with this one. Oxygen, obviously, at least within striking distance right now of the Soniqs at this 2-4 split. If they can get this initial one on the board, then they're gravy for most of this offensive side as long as they can get this ball rolling. Oxygen under the hard tasks now of getting the hatches open and just trying to use this time as strongly as they possibly can. Foxy will be able to get open the blue hatch here inside of Stock as Kitchen comes up next.
Rexer ready for the punch to be swung in his direction, immediately responds with a gut swing instead against Vertical there as he knocks him out. Soniqs definitely losing some players early on, but not giving up the fight just yet here as their first response is picked up from down below. And it's going to cause a bit of a slowdown here for OXG. They'll go directly down the main stairs, however, but not going to be sticking around for too long. It looks like there's going to be a focus on the moto drop instead, with Kino supporting from the oil pit to try and push it through blue side.
Well, Super, very pivotal position at the moment. And over here towards Dummy's box. There's plenty of Toxic Babe still. Just used his second to last one, just saving that last one to delay. Handful more time are dwindling dangerously low for OXG right now, but obviously still with that man advantage. They're playing things out pretty well, but no, Super pressuring with the M590, but it'll get traded out as it's all down to Kansan. He's been so successful in his gunfights yet today, but right now, it's a tall task for him as the case starts to go down near his Dummy's box. Doesn't have his Nitro Soda to try and stop that at all as Foxay simply manning the bottom staircase. Yaga will be able to complete this as, oh no! Yaga not paying attention to the rotate. Kansan will work his way through. The Claymore there, he'll get rid of that as well, as he has control of the case now, as well as the positioning of Foxay. No drones on him, but a hot spot will continue to assist Kansan, but he's not ready for the swing. Foxay and Oxygen lock up their first offensive round.
Foxay on fire today when it comes to these clutch scenarios here. finishing off that 1v1 and making sure that that round is not lost after things start out quite poorly for our defenders here. And in favor of Oxygen, but things started to turn around inside of that execute, most notably with Rexon picking up the trades that he found there. Super pushing forward down to Oil Pit, yes, does pick up that additional exchange, but also makes him unable to support the play from the inside of Church and creates a pretty chaotic situation at the end of the round. They're ultimately going into the favor, once again, though, of our attackers as they bring the scoreline within one round's grasp of each other here, heading into the second round of the half. Soniqs will bypass the cash hold and instead go straight to Jim for their second site.
It's always so interesting to see the way things break down when it comes to the second half. The first half, you kind of get it built up in a sense of, okay, you know, both teams are, this is exactly what's happening, right? Like, oh, okay, Oxygen is having some bad times on defense. Soniqs is doing stellar when it comes to overall strategy as of right now, really getting in the way of Oxygen. But then you get to that second half, and the shoe's completely on the other foot, like we were talking about before. You have so many different options as well as the playstyle being completely different. Yes, Oxygen can have a bad defensive side, but that doesn't mean that their offense is going to look the same. And they come out the gate swinging, able to get those two big bodies, and then obviously Soniqs fighting back, but the positioning for Oxygen just way too strong in that situation. Granted, it gets down to the 1 versus 1, and Foxe definitely in some hot water there for that clutch, but they get it done nevertheless.
So with that said here, Soniqs' lead is once again going to be on unstable ground as we head deeper into the second half. OXG looking to make that rebound. The attacking side here in Clubhouse starting to find more and more rounds, especially inside of North America. There's starting to become a little bit of a trend here if Oxygen can keep it going throughout the rest of this half. And once again, give us an attacker-sided half, much like we just saw from the Soniqs. If that's going to be the case, overtime certainly will be in the cards once again, but that's way down the lines. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Instead, let's see what Oxygen are going to work themselves towards here. There's no real surprise in terms of what they're doing here inside of their first minute or two of play. Clearing out the downstairs hole, going to take away any rotate options down those main stairs, as well as obviously getting open that jacuzzi balcony as swiftly as they can. Where they'll, oh, that's unfortunate. There, Kansan gets a ping of a drone downstairs, but ends up shooting out one of the Alibi clones in the process.
Happens for the best of us, and you know, as much as that utility can definitely assist you in info, it's not the worst thing in the world. So, be able to assist in other means. As of right now, for Oxygen, working the balcony and starting to get some better vision deeper into sight, being able to abuse some more of these angles. Laxing going to take some fire from the drone hole here from Kansan at 1.5, assisting in that as a timer about to reach a minute and a half. So Oxygen getting some solid things done thus far, but nothing really down onto the Soniqs just yet. No clear out the staircase as Oxygen starting to build up towards this jacuzzi side. Oh, man. That's a great burn strategy, honestly. That's fantastic out of him because now the nade's going to come out from Foxe and...
Oh, never mind.
Well, sometimes you miscount, John, you know, like...
We are going to get some pre-pings going for the execute here, but once again, without this wall being dealt with, there's not really much point in these pre-pings because they're not really going to be having the angles needed to shoot through them. Rexon still also holding on to a very extended position over here in cash, especially for this late in the round as well, but it hasn't been pressured at any point. Obviously, that's going to be changing over the next few moments. Kino ready to take on the challenge, but his opponent, Rexon, also aware of the potential push due to the drone that was sent that way, and great support coming in from Grixer over in construction. Completely whops Kino, takes him out, none the wiser to the extended push from him. Now, once again, Soniqs are going to be put in a great
Rexon.
position to shut this down. Rexon getting the intel from his teammates. The ping outside there. Takes down Vertical. Once again, this attack, a shell of its former self, is down to a 3v5. Make that a 3v4, though. Foxe strikes with the entry, but Grixer, again, always there right when he's needed as he immediately gets the trade against Foxe. Yeti's got control of Logi. One more kill is all that's needed, and the Soniqs will push up onto 5. And Yeti will be able to claim that with a sidearm as he works his way out. I think it was the Keratos there as he shuts that down.
You never get to see a kill from that thing either, so always great to see the Revolver every once in a while make a stand, and for the Soniqs, it definitely will achieve that. Now, for Oxygen, it's going to be a timeout as it's a 5-3 split currently in favor of the Soniqs, so very close to them getting to match point, and Oxygen want to get this timeout in before another mistake is made, and the Soniqs end up taking this map. Now, the real question is, what is the adjustment? The Soniqs playing a heck of a lot more patient in that side, inside of that round, especially not giving up those bodies nearly as early, as well as Oxygen with some serious oversight as to the positioning of Soniqs, especially around the cash room area, and they just lose way too many people to that situation.
During certain occasions, just a little bit too, like you said, haphazard with how they're approaching the attacks in these scenarios, maybe needing to double drone things or just double check things before they commit themselves to it. But unfortunately, so much time is being wasted by the members of the Soniqs earlier on in the round that OXG doesn't necessarily always have that luxury here. They're kind of being forced into scenarios like we saw there with the play towards Cash, where once again, it was only less than a minute left on the clock at that point. Kino really had no choice, had to push himself forward. While he gets the pressure on the one player, again, didn't have time to maybe throw a second drone in or have a teammate check it for him to see what was going on in construction and how that potential cutoff could have come in from Grixer. One example of how we've been seeing that potential issue affect the Oxygen roster throughout this half so far in just the 2 rounds that have been played out. It's early days overall in the half, but unfortunately, Oxygen aren't going to get many more days here if the Sonics continue to excel. So they're just 2 rounds away from shutting out this map now. It's 7-3 and sending us over to our 3rd and final map on Coastline.
Early days for the half, but it's almost dusk when it comes to the score line. Sonics around the corner here from sending us to Ibiza. See exactly what they can achieve going forward, though, as we are on to round 9. They're looking for their match point right now, and it starts off with this basement defense. Oxygen within striking distance inside of that last round, but once again, the gap up to 2 rounds now. As the Sonics will be setting this up, I don't think we're going to be seeing this roam strategy that we saw previously, just because Oxygen played so well around that. Same for Sonics as well on their offensive side, so no one really favoring that in the moment, and that's going to seal the deal as well. So Rexon will actually end up sealing the hatch inside of stock. So could see some people try and rotate later on, but as we all know, that's pretty risky, especially when you give up that mid-floor and Oxygen are allowed to set things up, especially around those stairwells.
So Sonics will take a closed door option here by focusing pretty much entirely on the bunker setup for themselves. Not going to be bringing any extra frills to this one by trying to set up the sandwich setup and pinch again against what would normally be the clear from Oxygen down on the 1st floor here. It just hasn't been working too well for both teams as they've been trying it quite a bit throughout this map here. So it's time to go back to basics. We'll see if that'll work out for the Sonics here. Yeah, definitely going to want to put that down. There's been a lot of play around that oil hatch for some reason.
That just lined up so perfectly with what you were saying, because you're like, oh, it's back to basics, and he literally put down the Claymore that is the most basic one in all of Clubhouse. Like, that is the one that, like, as you were saying, you do every single time. You do not want anybody coming out of oil pit.
Kino already mounted and ready to go over towards the blue stair, just waiting for the call of the descent to come in. Vertical, they pulling off a lot of the same stuff closer towards the main doorway over here, but still lots more to be checked, and that was something that I was talking about during the pause, that Oxygen haven't always been checking everything before pushing their players in, or at least committing to an area. They aren't able to drone that extra room or two beyond, and that's allowing sometimes for members of the Sonics to rotate in freely and get some trades for themselves. Grixer trying to just open up the floorboards here. The spray's a little more wild than I think he anticipated for, so
I think we just heard him in Kitchen Hall and was like, I mean, if a bullet hits him in the head, that'd be pretty cool,
that's
wouldn't it?
one bullet less I gotta hit him with later.
Exactly. The amount of times that, you know, you can just randomly kill someone in this game just because of, you know, solid audio and able to abuse that. It's one of the beauties of Rainbow Six overall.
If Grixer killed someone there, though, I would have been like upset for the player on the attack. That would have been.
Oh, cheeky
that wouldn't have
ace.
made me happy.
Cheeky ace utility. Yeah, me neither. Honestly, I honestly despise when that happens, but it does tend to happen, and something we could see from the Sonics later on, those random wall bangs. But some ace utility goes down, but the impact will be there to counter it. They're keeping this hatch closed for business at the moment. Grixer still has an impact as well, so we'll be able to continue this onslaught of utility over towards this kitchen space. Getting down on the timer now here for Oxygen as Kino's trying to push himself forward, but today just has not been his day. 5-7-2 at the moment as we're sitting right on the cusp of Oxygen's execution.
I see Kino strike first, however. Just we were talking about it, manages to pick up an initial kill here
The
against
caster's
Yeti.
bless.
It's the opposite of the curse. But either way, we see OXG getting themselves onto the board early on and continuing to find those strikes. Rexon with a beautiful flick around in exchange, as well as not dying to the player from blue. Seems like it may all be for naught, though, as it's going to come down to a 2v4. Vertical immediately picks up another exchange against Super. Grixer now falls in blue. It's leaving it down to Rexon, and he cannot dance with Laxing here. Laxing out with some shuts him down, and that's going to be another round for OXG going up on the board.
I mean, he might have not been able to dance with him, but he still had some good moves. You know, you got to respect it. You got to respect it. Anybody that enters the dance floor is there to have a good time, and you shouldn't make fun of them, Sean.
Did I make fun of him?
No, you didn't. But
okay,
you know,
I was like, what are you confronting me for?
No. It was more for the
What did I
meme.
do wrong?
Yeah, how dare you, John? I can't believe it. But for the Sonics, I mean, defensive round building up in a pretty good fashion initially, but Oxygen just able to abuse a lot of different things here. I really like what the Sonics are doing, especially with the kitchen hatch to keep everything closed and make sure that Oxygen can't possibly take control of that space, but Oxygen did that through more fragging than they did anything. Starting to work the main stairs, Sonics really paying attention, getting pulled to the corners of the earth on that one. We have people worried about kitchen, worried about main stairs, worried about oil pit, worried about secret. There's just so many things that Oxygen are doing in that moment, and it's overwhelming the Sonics. The biggest thing there to actually highlight past the fragging ability of Oxygen there is actually the overwhelm of info coming on the Sonics end. Because think about this, if you have that amount of things going on, the comms are going to get messy. It's going to get difficult to try and say what's going on around you and try and be helpful to your fellow comrade.
Things working out really well for Oxygen there, too, considering, again, they only had the singular focus to worry about down in the basement itself. They didn't have to worry about extended pressure. Oh my goodness. Rexon with, even the GN in the chat as well. He's feeling it right now. Rexon with quite literally a one-tap. Very rare at Siege you get it that confidently, but he found it as he knocks out Foxay and immediately removes as well the Maverick from play, meaning again it's going to be that much more difficult to try and open things up on the site now.
Yeah, he only needed the one in the chamber for that. Just take out the magazine, don't even need it. But either way, Oxygen actually going to be down initially here. Obviously, Foxay being the IGL for Oxygen, it'll give him a better overview of what his team is doing, so he'll be able to assist in a certain sense from this more commanding position. But past that, the utility has been so strong for OXG, and specifically Foxay. We've been seeing him with some pretty solid rounds on this Maverick thus far, so obviously him being off the board now is going to be sorely missed for Oxygen as they work their way in through Jacuzzi. Vertical right now inside of Waits as Grixer bears down on him, and Yeti's actually going to be here to assist.
The good news is the loss of utility isn't going to be the be-all, end-all of this round here. They still have two additional hard breach players that can contribute at this point in the round. Laxing, of course, with the can openers in his pocket. And obviously, you've got Yaga with the Selmas to be deployed at any point during this round also. So they can still get open everything they need to, most notably near the garage as well as the main balcony leading into the site itself. But still, down a player here, finding absolutely zero opportunities to try and pinch off a member of the Sonics to try and even that back out. This is still going to be very, very tough for OXG to try to find any safe path into the site here. They're going to try to focus up a little bit on construction. Yaga already at the doors. It's been allowed to be open for free. No reinforcements on the construction walls. That also gets opened up with little to no conflict here, but there's no defensive setup inside of Cash itself. This is all part of the plan for the Sonics roster here, as they have much heavier emphasis for the defense over towards red near Kino. Tries to swing solo on in through the garage door here while there's a distraction towards Cash, but it does not work out. Rexon catches it, shuts him back down, and we're now down to a 5v3 for OXG.
Oxygen trying to force these plays right now, but Sonics are ready for all of them, and this more than likely going to be a Sonics round as well. The utility is just too plentiful for the Sonics in the moment. Yeti's going to be able to get the angle down low as well. Kansan gets a pick onto vertical. It's a 2 versus 5, and, well, Yaga out of ace utility, and out of his life as well. He'll lose his head, and as it's all down to Laxing, simply trying to work the construction door in this 1 versus 5. They see his feet, got some nice sneakers on, but they're a little bit more bloodied here as the Sonics will take their round.
Sonics quickly rebounding there after some success was found by our attackers, but ultimately not in the long run here, as another upstairs hold yields more aggressive results for the Sonics that come out hugely in their favor right from the very beginning of the round with the one tap against Foxay, and even later on as well with Yeti's push out towards the hatch just under stage to shut down one of the last pivotal players coming in from OXG. That sets it up at 6-4, potential map point coming in for the Sonics here if they take control of this final gym and bedroom defense.
Oxygen with 2 rounds and Sonics with 2 of their own as well, tying up what Oxygen was able to do on their defensive end. And now for the Sonics, also have a 6 pick coming through for Grixer. So hopefully the clones are a little bit more respected in this round. We don't lose any holographic lives. We'll have to see how it ends up going down, though, as Sonics will be back into gym bedroom, and this site extremely successful. SQ up against Oxygen, who really weren't able to muster all that much. They tried to play out towards the balcony, but there was just so many punishing moments for them in that round that really made it to where there was no true way that they were going to get into the site.
Time continuing to tick down here. Sonics is putting the final touches on their site setup on the inside of Cash and CCTV. or rather, inside gym and bedroom. My bad. Go a little late here. They do still have the extended setup over towards that other site, as the Sonics once again put the heavy focus onto this one here. And I'll wait for the OXG push to work its way out. That early focus once again over towards Jacuzzi, and as well access to that lodge. You have to see if they can catch anyone there. Much like the last round, though, it is going, rather our basement hold, it is going to be a pretty pivotal defense focus on this one site by itself, and a fairly claustrophobic one as well. Big contrast compared to the basement hole. This is why the extensions are necessary over towards Cash, as well as the top of red, as they do need some way to fend off the pressure early on and waste a bit more of that time, so they're not going to be fighting inside of a tiny box for the full 3 minutes.
Now for Oxygen, it's about working their way into the building. Obviously, trying to handle things from both ends. They know that the Sonics have some play going on inside of the cache area, as they did previously, but the biggest issue Oxygen ran into last time was this bathroom position that they were not able to actually work their way through. Had to lean over towards weights, and that's where a lot of the problems ensued, losing so many bodies to that situation. But this time, hopefully they can actually work their way into this bathroom space, but we'll have to see some better utility usage and just better counting as to what is going on inside of that area. Just an oversight into how many ADSs were in that space, and Oxygen just with not enough utility to try and overwhelm it. As for the Sonics now, though, looking very solid in their positioning, as they'll be holding on to this space, waiting for OXG to make the first move.
Vertical continuing to wait things out here all over by the windows. We'll need to be careful as he got shut down quite heftily from this position due to the failed push to the inside of Cash and the eventual freedom the members of the Sonics had deep around the inside of there to punish him for that position. Foxy gonna send out both of his nades here just to deal with anyone who he might have been able to catch on the inside of the bathroom as well as towards the gym side there. They actually will force the bathroom player out as some additional pressure will come in from someone else on the Oxygen roster here. Cans, in the meanwhile, has been called back from construction and is going to hold the cutoff on the windows here, while a few other members of OXG rotate into their execute positions entering the final minute of the round.
Loading new mag. As you said, not much time for Oxygen to try and get this case down. It has to be coming soon, but the positions from the Sonics have been so solid thus far. Kansan, especially around this construction area with this deployable shield, is going to be difficult to try and work him out of this space. Yeti also in tow with Super in this area as well, but it's a nice nade to initially open this up. Rexon will get one, though, as he trades out Yeti. Down to the 4 versus 4, but Foxay as well as his companions have worked their way into the bathroom. It's up to Kansan now to try and make a stand around this space, but Foxay hasn't seen him just yet. This is prime time for Kansan, but his leg's sticking out, and Foxay able to take him down because of it. Oxygen starting to handle this round as the case begins to go down inside of weights. Not enough shots as his head will be just underneath, but Super not able to check things through on bathroom either, but I believe the player's been taken out, and actually a fantastic move from him as well. Ready for anyone to be working this downstairs area either, but it's actually Kino trying to prioritize main stairs, and he whips onto Grixer. Super has to win this. He taps the case, moves back, but he has two bodies to worry about. Where is Yaga? That's the biggest question. It seems like they're working this downstairs area perfectly into the moment. That timer continuing to dwindle as he has to try and stick out the defuse, but it can't be done. Oxygen with a beautiful plant, and they'll get away with that one.
Such an awkward positioning there for Super on the case as well, so not really an easy opportunity for him to even get onto that, let alone clutch out the 1v2. Gets that one freebie for himself as he rotates over, but not nearly enough defensive pressure coming out from the Sonics that time over towards the Jacuzzi balcony side, kind of allowing OXG to walk in for quite a few of their players. Most notably, you saw Foxay walking right up towards the breach, zero pressure at him from the main stairs, from Logi or anywhere else, and chucking those nades in, able to flush players from the Sonics out of their initial hold position. So right from the entry point, members of the Sonics were being pushed out of position into awkward spots they may have not been ready to play into, and that left a lot of entry opportunities open for the OXG roster.
I think the biggest thing there was that Sonics were not prepared for that plant spot. I think everyone assumed that it was going down in between the weights and not on the far side, and that actually gave the ace a lot more protection than it normally would. Because if you remember, we actually ended up seeing Super wall bang right there. Yeah, he's trying to get those shots to land, but nobody's home. He's right behind that metal sheet, and there's nothing that you can do about that situation, especially with Oxygen already having control downstairs. You don't have a chance for the Sonics to try and go down and play around that instead. So very well done from Oxygen, and it's just like we were talking about. The bathroom was the biggest deal for them in the round prior, and this time they get it right, able to get that plant down and get the round successfully.
Let's see if they can rebound it now. Once again, OXG only one round away from overtime. They brought it back on our first map and are going to be looking to try and do things again here on Clubhouse. Certainly in the cards, but that would be such a sad story for the Soniqs roster. They've showed so much promise on the inside of these two first maps of the series here. It'd be a shame to go out 0-2 and not be able to see how it would play out, especially on Coastline being the chaotic map and very fun map that tends to be. Either way, we are heading into the final round of regulation, and it's going to be another gym and bedroom hold from the Soniqs.
Mai coming out in the 6th pick as well, so see what Yeti can do with this. If there's any change in positioning as well either. So as for Super, we'll be back onto the Maestro, and it's looking fairly straightforward as we're used to, but I want to see what Soniqs try to do with this bathroom hold this time around, the way that they're going to try and counteract Oxygen's initial game plan here, because I don't think it's going to be changing up too much from Oxygen. Obviously, we could try and see them play in through cash this time around, but a lot of the Soniqs game plan has been leaning towards that space just because they really like playing around this construction area. They have a lot of deployable shields to try and block these angles in towards the doors. And it's just a pretty safe haven because as long as you're able to, work your way away from the construction window, there's really not too much to worry about as long as your walls are reinforced.
With the Soniqs setup complete, and once again, Oxygen spawned out on the board. This is their last chance to find retribution for the mistakes made earlier on in this map. Otherwise, it's going to be the Soniqs that take it 7-5 and move us swiftly onto our third and final map here. Early presence from OXG is going to focus quickly on forcing Grixer out of his natural position over here from the inside of security and back into the depths of cash instead, where both him and Rexon are going to try to play this out and fend off any aggression that might come either through that hatch that was just open, through the breach inside of the regular balcony, or of course the push that's happening now on the actual garage catwalk with two members of Oxygen pushing in to take control here.
Rexon seemingly aware that that got sledged open, and he is. There's a beautiful angle on it, and aware that there's somebody else in this space, even though no one is home right now for Oxygen. Both these members currently on rafters inside of garage, so we'll see how this situation continues to play out here for Kino. So the rest of Oxygen, specifically Foxe, he's over towards Jacuzzi balcony right now, and he's actually already got one of the panels open, so he'll be able to at least have sight line onto the top of main stairs and possibly be able to pick up someone on rotation in that space. Updating Kino's situation as well, they've actually gotten into cash, so now this is where the squish starts to come in for this site and things start to get difficult. The beauty of this, though, for the Soniqs is they still have some solid positions to play around, as Yeti has actually changed that deployable shield from inside of Master to inside of Construction. So this is just fantastic play from the Soniqs, glaringly aware of what Oxygen's game plan is in the moment.
Still waiting. He's got that yellow ping for one of the members of the Soniqs sitting further back. Super is going to become the first victim of this round as he gets naded out by Vertical. That's been a long-running theme of this series. These well-placed nades. Yaga with a free cross against Rexon as well takes that out. And OXG are already in prime position to shut this round down. That's not even considering the third kill that Yaga just picked up against Yeti.
This is just so very well done from Oxygen so far. Grixer trying to fight back inside of Construction, but it's going to take some form of God to try and help them right now. I mean, it's a 2 versus 5. Make it a 1 versus 5. Kansan gets one, but Laxon guaranteeing the overtime here as Oxygen starting to fire on all cylinders. You can see Redeemer happy about that one. Kino as well, as he just gets gifted some very big picks. And Oxygen overall with a very solid plan as to how to deal with things in that top floor this time around. I truly loved the squeeze that they put on that site. It just made it so congested for the Soniqs to try and play, and they were just constantly walking into crossfires.
Yeah, this time the Soniqs with no real capability to play into those crosses as well. Too much utility being deployed against them, forcing them out of positions, as we saw in at least one player's case during the course of that round, making it a fairly awkward affair throughout the play. Soniqs are now also going to be put onto the attacking side for this overtime play, so we'll have to wait and see if that will end up being a blessing or a curse. This has been a little bit of a weird game when it comes to the round shares for attack and defense. Either way, though, it's first team to 2 rounds out of 3 here picks up the win, and if it goes to Oxygen, this series is over. Oxygen will move on to the grand finals, and Soniqs, unfortunately, will have to sit here in our semifinal watching from home.
Either way, I mean, it's definitely worked its way up to being quite the interesting map so far. I mean, both going to overtime as well as, you know, Oxygen battling back from a pretty severe deficit just to get us to this moment. So for the Sonics, it's reset time. They don't want to think about what happened inside of regulation. They want to focus on these rounds going forward. It's just water off the back at this moment. But for Oxygen, they have got to be riding high on what they just achieved and carrying that over to their defensive side. We could see some pretty serious changes, and we're already getting a couple. Now, the thing is this is actually going to be decently abusable here for the Sonics, specifically Yeti with his torch that will be able to thwart a couple of these positions, most specifically the one that they have in construction with that deployable shield.
Time's going to start ticking down, and the pressure is on for the Sonics here to make their impact known inside of the 3 minutes they now have to work this site here. Immediately taking care of the Logi hatches. That's just the first step to work towards, and probably going to see some emphasis work its way over on the Jacuzzi balcony in just a moment. Super instead dealing with the east main balcony wall first, just to make sure that's going to get opened up and is available to try and clear out any extended play. Although for the most part, we don't really have that from Oxygen. What we do have, though, is a very tricky play potentially coming out from Foxay here. He's going to open things up, try to see if he can spot anyone on Jacuzzi, but there are no takers at this point, so it's time to run right back to the site.
What kind of a biker bar has a jacuzzi? I'm just going to ask.
A nice one.
The 5-star ones.
You're saying you wouldn't want a jacuzzi in your biker bar?
You know what? After a long ride on my hog, I would definitely want to hop in a jacuzzi with my bros. So, you know what, John? Maybe you're right. If I ever have a biking club, I'm going to buy a jacuzzi. You've convinced me.
I mean, they have like a weapon arsenal downstairs. They've got like slot machines somewhere in here. Like, come on, a jacuzzi? That's not too much of a stretch.
You know what? You got me there. You definitely got me there. But we will be starting things out on the jacuzzi side. Sonic's already losing Grixer, and that's a huge piece here, especially on the Yana. That's going to be a lot of info out the window. Not a true info operator sitting amongst them anymore. And neither is Kansan as he'll be removed. And this is what we were expecting out of Oxygen. They just play so well with this pacing, John. This is a thing I love about this team. They are not scared to just take that dial and crank it over and over again in just different directions and really mess with their opponents. The Sonics feeling that wrath in the moment.
Foxley's second attempt to get aggressive on this round pays out in huge dividends as they pick up their second kill of the round here, bringing it down to a 5v3, making the execute already a bit of a false start for the Sonics just because of the manpower disadvantage here. They're already going to have to deal with crosses on the way in. Foxay, meanwhile, has returned to the site and is helping out with the defense here now. Super's dead. Yeti's on the ground. Rexon's the only stable player still running here for the Sonics, so it's looking very much like this first round is going to... Okay, I didn't even see the silhouette for that one, but I guess he got a headshot.
I mean, Laxing, don't put your head there.
Laxing just getting quite literally swiped off the map by Rexon. A bit of a nicely placed pre-fire there. Yeti's still down on the ground. He's actually probably retrievable, so this isn't... Yeah, I just realized he's in a pretty safe spot. No one from Oxygen really wants to risk pushing out to try and stop that from happening. It would end the round, yes, but it could also put it down into a 2v3. Oh, Foxay, though, with one little tap as Yeti's only at 20 HP after being revived, quickly takes care of that revival and still leaves Rexon alone.
Well, Foxay will eventually get taken down, but Rexon needs some Herculean effort to achieve this round in the moment. 3 people to find and nobody home. A single person going to answer this call is Oxygen will find their 7th round, taking the lead here on Clubhouse in a map that we honestly thought was going to end inside of regulation.
Now keep in mind, this started very dominantly. 4-2 on the attacking side for the Sonics, but obviously Oxygen has been able to repeat that same exact score. They've quite obviously learned quite a bit about how to play the defensive side, as we saw there on that round. Much more confidence, much more awareness of the overall strategy from the Sonics, and able to shut that down much more confidently, especially for Foxay there. Now it's time to see if there's going to be any adjustment for the Sonics on their own defenses. They head onto that side as well for what could be the last round of this map, and maybe even the last round of the series if Oxygen comes out on top.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a it's not over till it's over situation. This is what you should be taking from this from home is exactly that. Do not give up inside of those games. Even though you might be down 3 rounds, there's still some way to come back and win it. I'm looking at you people in my draft games on League. Please, just stop forfeiting, okay? Like, there's still opportunities. There's still things that we can do, but it's the exact same thing here. Oxygen just constantly putting in that effort and figuring things out. There was a lot of things that Sonics were throwing at them that they had to make adjustments to, and especially when they got over to their offensive side, it looked like Soniqs were starting to run away with things in a certain sense. Those rounds that Oxygen were getting away with were very, very pick heavy. Soniqs were really getting some serious damage dealt to them, and Oxygen were able to abuse the round because of that. But past that, Oxygen have completely ran away with this. So we'll have to see what Soniqs can possibly do on their defensive end right now, although things have not been looking too hot. It's CCTV for their final stand here on the defensive end.
Just a huge change in the overall storyline of this map, which seems so dominant for the Soniqs towards the beginning, but quite obviously is no longer the case. Time to see now if the Soniqs can rebound at all. They do get this defensive round, and even better, they get to take it back to CCTV and cash. So all is not done just yet here for this team. Still, some light potentially on the horizon for these guys as they try to even it back up, but would be a 7-7 scoreline, or take us to the final round of OT here. We can get past that step first, though, and we can see once again, Soniqs going to take a bit of an aggressive stance in their own regard, specifically for Rexon. He works his way down those garage stairs, looking to directly challenge the breach a few seconds after it's made.
Well, for Oxygen, slow and steady inside of what could be their last round here. Soniqs will antsy as to what the exact take will be from OXG. Vertical starting things off on the jacuzzi balcony, whereas Kino way off out towards the warehouse right now here for Clubhouse. Be working this east end here for a minute. Soniqs not truly pressured just yet, but there's a lot of breaches around them. Specifically, Grixer currently playing inside of construction. Has to be glaringly aware of the positioning of these Oxygen members. Vertical's going to get lit up inside of Wade's, but he'll at least be able to survive for the moment. Yeti possibly with an answer to this, as a drone will come through, but he's playing these positions so very close. No one's truly going to want to challenge that, especially into a mute.
Results being found for either side as the damage onto Vertical. A lot more needing to be done here inside of this last minute before Oxygen will feel safe to navigate themselves forward here. That's a big play from Yeti, but it's all for naught as Yaga catches it from a mile away, it seems here. Even had the additional support from another member of OXG if it was necessary. But either way, OXG get the kill, and they're on their way now to setting themselves up for outright victory at the end of this series, bringing things down to a 5v4.
Yaga's going to take some heat as well. Vertical still alive, but barely breathing in the moment. But that's all they need. His utility to be alive as well as a gun in his hands. And Oxygen ready to take this round. They've taken down Yeti. Almost solid players across the board right now in the frag department, but Rexon and Grixer, they've been standing tall thus far here on Clubhouse. 12-8, 13-8 respectively, and both of them in very pivotal positions in the moment. Kansan pushing forward, but Kansan's been dusted. Kino will follow suit as well, though, as Grixer has to swing for that. I mean, if he doesn't, it's more than likely the round, but it might be anyways. Vertical will take down yet another, and Rexon, he's gone fishing, looking for anyone that can possibly be on this balcony, but it's up to Super right now inside of the site to try and thwart any of these game plans. 20 seconds remain for Oxygen to get in sight and actually commit to this plant. Currently on Yaga as he needs to get inside of the building. It's a push from Super. He'll take down one. He's got the shotty. It's Super with the triple kill to keep Sonic in the game. Foxay, he's got to try and clean it up, but he's got no time. Oh, one remains. 0-0 on the clock, and Oxygen simply let that go by the wayside. Super just walks through CCTV like he owns the place.
This has been happening so much throughout this series where players have just been allowed to walk in. To be fair, it's only on a flex. That's a bit more forgivable. In this situation, Super walks right in the front door of the retake and just shoots out 3 players with the M590. You gotta stop that. You can see the first player is distracted here by something over towards Red Hall or something like that, but still, the call needs to go off. Someone needs to get off case at that point, and just none of it connects. After such a good build-up for OXG at every other moment in that round, it all falls to pieces to Super.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And what a play from him as well. I mean, it was a requirement in order to do that. Otherwise, Oxygen are walking away with Clubhouse. This is a completely different story. And for him, I mean, the positioning there was truly insane. Able to not only get the player out on plat, but then come back through into Cash Room and deal with that in the way that he did. So for the Soniqs, they stay alive in this, all off of the valiant effort of Super.
Really doubling his kill count as well inside of that round there.
A triple.
6 and 8 now, yeah. I think 3 kills coming out for him, so the impact being made both in frags and leadership now for him. As obviously you can see both Grixer and Rex nearly tied in terms of their kill streak there at 13 and 9 and 13 and 8 with Kansan, as well as Yeti pretty close behind at 8 and 10. 9 and 8. We've got similarly leading fraggers over on OXG's side. We've got this round to talk about here. OXG also going to head over towards CCTV and Cash for the final round of this map to decide if it's going to be a map 3 or if OXG get the simple 2-0 to move on to face off against Dark Zero tomorrow.
What more could you possibly want for our final semifinal of the day? 7-7 neck and neck in between Oxygen and Soniqs, longtime rivals of the NAL. Something has to give. Are we ending it right now, or are we taking a trip to Ibiza? There's only one way to find out, folks, and it's in the next 2 minutes and 36 seconds. The Soniqs will begin things here on the east side. They need to get the CCTV wall open, but you can see Oxygen pointing their defensive utility towards this direction as well. Obviously, the most default way to handle this space, but the Soniqs are going to stretch Oxygen thin here. Well, as thin as you can stretch people on CCTV and just Clubhouse in general with how the map usually is. Very congested, but still going to breach open the construction side as well and just have that open that they could possibly abuse later on.
Vertical continuing to wait for the actual opening to work its way out so that he can maybe try to throw a couple shots through it, and if he gets lucky, find the early kill against Yeti. So far, though, not going to be able to connect those shots. Yeti sneaks right past like a bandit, gets himself out of there, and is going to work on opening up the other side of this wall now as well. Once again, that's going to be the defenses falling apart. Not a huge loss there for OXG, though, kind of a Hail Mary and trying to get that kill anyway. As once again, Soniqs are continuing forward as expected here, knocking out that main wall. Now shifting their focus more than likely either towards a construction or garage push.
Yeah, Common Days Siege, CCTV wall is always going to be open. There's not really a single way in order to stop it from happening. Trust me, professional teams have been trying for quite some time, all the way down to bandit tricking, but there's a counter for everything that you want to try and do. Foxay will get taken down low as Grixer, with some fantastic patience inside a stock, will find him. And now Oxygen, they'll be on the back foot here and have to try and fight back in similar fashion to how the Soniqs did.
Vertical continuing to hold up on the catwalk here. The wiser as the drone play working itself against him. Did expect something, though, as he activates the smart glasses for just a second or two there. Nades are going to be chucked in over towards Red. A small amount of damage being found onto Laxing in the process of that. But still nothing to really write home about here. Laxing still very much ready and very much willing to take fights at the top of Red as we enter the final minute of play here for the Soniqs to try and work their way in. So far, only with that breach on the balcony to work with, but they've had similar rounds play out here before. We're going to have to wait and see how they'll adjust things.
Does Oxygen do in this situation? Frag grenade still coming around, and
that was almost a winner.
Yeah, that was so very scary, especially in the decision making. But Grixer's got angles now there in that space as well. Kino apparently aware of people outside, but not aware of what lies in the depths. Oxygen still able to try and hold on to CCTV as of right now. Laxing's going to get smoked out, but he's just going to prone here and wait to see what goes on. He'll actually end up losing his life as SQ rushes Red, but Yaga gets one. The second one will get downed, but it doesn't matter. Soniqs lock it up as they still have plenty of bodies alive inside of Garage, and Oxygen not able to close it out, although they have case control inside of Cash in the moment. Soniqs able to take it on the second map and push us towards Coastline.
They allow the comeback to happen once again, but this time follow through on the shutdown. It's the Soniqs that'll take control of our second map of the series here and push us to our third and final one, going all the way to Coastline here. And what a coastline that is going to be. These two teams have been playing their hearts out. That's not to mention all the insane rounds we've seen due to mistakes, as well as obviously the excellence coming out from both of these teams as well. Coastline is going to be a treat, and you absolutely want to stick around to watch that third and final map. I know it's getting late, folks, but I think it's worth it.
Hey, all I'm saying is crack the energy drink, get the popcorn, go and get on the couch. You're going to want to lock in for this one. It's Coastline. It's more than likely our most highly octane-fueled map that we could possibly give to you guys as a decider. I'm excited. He's excited. We all know you're excited as well. And, well, speaking of which, likely got some stuff going on here in just a moment. But I mean, how do you feel about this one, man? Personally, this is probably the worst showing we've seen from Laxing in a minute. 4-13, and that's the big thing, the big takeaway for me for Oxygen. If we see a little bit more, even a tiny bit out of Laxing, they more than likely win this in a 2-0.
Well, that's enough from us for the time being. We're going to send it back down to the desk here to break down this very, very close map once again as it goes to an 8-7 scoreline at the end of it and see what they think as we get ready to head into map number 3.
Thank you, Stokes and Blue. Don't talk about my baby Laxton, but hey, let's be honest. 4-13 was not what Oxygen needed to close out that map, but still, Soniqs were able to come through and get a big win, and they tied the series. We're going to tiebreaker map.
A slightly strange attacker-sided Clubhouse, which is not something we're super accustomed to. 4-2 halves on the attack in both ways, and the Soniqs picking attack in overtime ended up being the thing that won them the whole map. I didn't know how smart that was. They had attack to start with, and they knew going back to it in overtime is something that we can rely on because we knew how solid their attacks were, and they closed it out because this map was a whole series of avalanche kills. You get one, it landslides into suddenly a 5v2 scenario, and teams on the other end of that 5v2 simply can't compete after.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, sure, Clubhouse has been in the pool for so long, and everybody's like, oh, it's so stale, oh my gosh. It has underwent a little bit of a shift, especially because it's no longer the 5-1, 4-2 defensive kind of map. It's a lot more common.
It used to be crazy.
It used to be crazy defensive. Now it's the 3-3, sometimes 4-2 either side. It's not necessarily that surprising. So this game going 4-2 to both attackers it's not like, oh my gosh, that's absolutely crazy. But we are going to Coastline next, which is going to be really fun. That's a definitively attacker-sided map.
I can't wait. Ladies and gentlemen, get you some coffee, get you, energy drink, get up, walk around, smack yourself, do whatever you need to do in order to stay up because map number 3 is going to be a banger. But let's break down this game for just a moment because CDAPS, I'm going to be honest, man. When we took a look at the first half of the game, what we saw with Vertical was not the MVP in the running that we saw all stage 3. What the heck was going on, man?
He was just getting shut down. It's as easy as that. The way that the Soniqs were flooding the site late kind of mitigated his roam presence as well as overall. If he got back to site, he was just getting swung by 3 people. I really like the Soniqs attacks, and then Oxygen overall were able to bounce back and look just as strong as their attacking side. I thought for a second it was just going to be a steamroll, and I was like, oh man, this one's going to go quick. But, I mean, we were talking about it. Both sides attacked really well.
Yeah, and I also loved how we saw, even in the midst of, Laxton trying to, get back into the game, so to speak, he picked an op that even if he's not finding kills, anyone who's dead is still capable of using his intel afterwards. And I almost wonder if, even though he does play the flank watch role, so to speak, if because he knew he wasn't playing super good to start that game, if he picked 0 because he knew even in death he'd be able to use his intel if those cameras were used appropriately. It's just kind of a thing in the back of your head because you do have to base this off of what you called it, the weight room.
Yeah, I mean, the weight room is just on maps like Clubhouse, maps like Oregon, whoever just comes in, plays better Siege. It's a way to simplify it down. Not everything has to be full bells and whistles. Sometimes you just got to hit the weight room. You just got to flex on it. And no, I'm not talking about Yeti and his biceps. We're talking about just the raw mechanical and who's hitting their shots, because sometimes games can just boil down to that.
Kind of like the hyperbolic time chamber, man. But you're talking about not being able to get kills. But you know who were able to get kills? You know what? Let's just play the footage because this was something I didn't expect to see. But my man Super definitely popped off. This is going to be the mastermind, the IGL of the Soniqs. And with plays like this, I mean, it gave us a lot of hope. And when this moment happened, to bring it to overtime, Super popped off in such an incredible way. He put Shiny to work, popped 2 players, got another one. The triple kill was there. Was able to finish it out, but still, they were able to win the round, and that was absolutely huge from the IGL of Soniqs. And if they're able to keep this up, they might be able to take map 3 going over to Coastline.
Coastline, remember how that one fared? For OXG, 4-0 on it in the course of the NAL, and they also played it once internationally and won it. So when we go to Coastline, I'm fully expecting Oxygen to understand how to play it a little bit better. This is another 7-8. We had 2 of them in this series so far. Both teams, yes, winning their map picks is cool, but because it came down to this kind of margin, I don't really know if it's like that dominant. Ultimately, it went to around 15. It was decided by nothing more than a coin flip.
All right, now take a look at the stats right now for the Soniqs because this is the sight to see. Rexon 15-8, Grix right behind him 14-9. Everybody did a fantastic job, and if the Soniqs can strike like this on Coastline with just everything firing off on all cylinders, this is a very terrifying team. But ladies and gentlemen, we're about time to get ready for map number 3. But before we do, we're going to have a short break, and then we're going to see who will join Dark Zero in the finals. It's going to be either Soniqs or Oxygen. I can't wait. I know you can't either. We'll catch you soon for Coastline.
What does it take to create the future of a gaming community? Join us on this 4th episode of I Call Next as we discover how to level up gameplay and reset the expectations of an entire league. PayPal. Press play.
Do you want to get better at Rainbow Six? The best way to improve is to review your gameplay. That's where Insights comes in. Insights Capture automatically records as soon as your match starts. Immediately review your VODs with game events like kills, deaths, and assists. Clip your most important moments to share and review with teammates or friends. Connect your account to insights.gg to access more tools to help you improve your performance. Download Insights for free today.
I grew up in São Paulo, Brazil. Moving to the US was really hard in the beginning because I couldn't speak a word of English.
So I had to learn every single call out again in English. So that was really hard.
I used to see people competing on stage, and that's pretty much what I wanted to do my whole life. Well, I bought my first Game Boy when I was around 5. When I started playing games, FPSs, I always wanted to be in the esports scene. My family was really supportive since the beginning. They always wanted me to follow my dreams and go pro if I actually had the chance.
Since I joined OXG, I think I probably added some raw talent, mechanical skill to the team. So whenever they need me the most and need someone to be swinging every corner and just shooting people, then I think I can do the job.
How about that? Can he get it first round? And it's an ace in his first round, Michael!
Kino brings impact to our team because he's able to play these supportive roles and still frag successfully.
We were looking for someone who likes to play the game.
He's just so flexible as well that we're able to have him on our entry role or on our supportive roles.
To describe Kino in a word is sporadic, but in a good way. He's very goofy around us, so he's like a comedic relief, basically. The youth that both him and Yog both have really brings something both to myself, Vert, and Fox.
There's always something new with him every single day.
The word I would use to describe Kino would probably be rambunctious. It's his laugh. He just makes like a almost as if he's got hit in the head kind of laugh. It's so funny.
He learned English on his own, so he learns new words every day. Ruffles, he calls it ruthless. And
Our goal is always to win invite, of course. I want to prove myself and prove that Auction is the best team in the league right now.
final time this evening, ladies and gentlemen, we are rocking and ready to jump into this last map of the series between the Soniqs and OXG. And like we were talking about before, it's going to be a very, very fun map. We're going to be going to Coastline, arguably one of the most open map layouts we have in the formula. And with all these crazy plays, these crazy flanks, these crazy missteps we've been seeing from our teams leading to such insane rounds, I think Coastline is going to be a really fun map to finish out this series. Who's going to come out on top of it, though? That I have no idea. We've seen two very, very close plays so far, and it's time to see who is finally going to come out on top of this one. Both maps have gone to full overtime as well, so that just once again illustrates just how close of a map that this has been.
Yeah, these teams have turned into a powder keg, basically, on both of the maps that they've played, and I'm going to agree with you. I really think that Coastline's going to be the catalyst for some just absurd Rainbow Six Siege, but luckily enough, folks, we do not have to wait very long. We are traveling to Ibiza, all the way from the beautiful city of Los Angeles, to take Oxygen and the Soniqs to their very final map to decide who goes to the finals. Somebody has to play against Dark Zero, and it's either Oxygen or the Soniqs.
Some of us are actually coming from Vegas, so it's a little...
Well, we're in Los Angeles, and
it's a little weird.
I mean, honestly, I like LA more. I mean, not LA, I like Vegas more. Why did I say that backwards? No, I like Vegas way more than I like LA.
We're about to start a debate real quick.
But I mean, it's, it's personal. Everything's personal preference. That's what it is.
Well, either way, we've got bans up on the board. Let's chat about those. The bans have actually been identical for our first two maps.
Our entire production crew is offended right now.
It's not just production. The chat, it's going to get crazy if we go deeper in this topic. So.
I mean, they can all just make fun of me. I'm from Iowa. Like, what do you want from me, man? I, live next to corn for 15 years of my life. Like, a desert's probably going to feel more like, oh.
So Thatcher will get knocked out. Once again, an expected ban here. But Lion, again, another one that is not going to be in line with what we've been seeing for the previous two maps, but does make perfect sense considering it's going to be Coastline.
Yes, sir.
This is a map where we've seen a whole bunch of Lion play over the past pretty much a year now. So
might be his most annoying map, to be honest.
It's become a bit of a mainstay when it comes to this map, so it's actually a fairly smart ban between that and, say, like a Nomad
It's
choice
literally
as
just
well.
the Lion ban.
Yep.
That's it. Everything
That's
else is the
good
same. Yeah, but that's fair enough. I mean, this map overall plays into the favor of everything on the board right now. So, I mean, the Lion ban is the most paramount one. That's the one that I want to see every single time that you see Coastline, because he's just so influential when he's able to just sit on the top of the building with the 417 and just bear down on people, whilst also having those EE1Ds to assist his team throughout the map while they're clearing. So for now, for Oxygen, they're going to have to look to other means to do that, and that's going to go towards laxing with this. Yana Foxe also having the Rotero drones initially, but he'll switch over to Maverick. Now, this is where the conversation becomes very interesting. He could be doing this for two reasons. Number one, the frag grenades. Number two, the hard breach. But the thing about the hard breach is you don't necessarily need it when it comes to Coastline. So we'll see the way in which they want to abuse this, but especially when it comes to this kitchen site, I don't see them getting too much traction out of that torch.
Let's see here now how the initial defense will go for the Soniqs, as they're going to start things out inside of kitchen and service. On top of that, one very interesting operator pick. For those of you who've been watching the NAL, it's not going to be too much of a surprise for you. Grixer specifically going on to the Oryx. A lot of hatches on this map and a lot of emphasis on rotational play of Roamer. So considering that, Oryx is going to be actually a pretty useful choice for this map due to mainly his ability to hop up and down the hatches, giving him plenty more options of traversal for trying to get up and down through these floors compared to everybody else on the map.
Yes, indeed. Lots of firepower being brought on both ends as well. Soniqs on one SAS operator, everyone else with SMGs in hand, and a willingness to take the fight to Oxygen towards the upstairs especially. It's going to be quite the big deal to be able to hold on to this for a time and hopefully get some frags in that direction as well. Rexon will be playing currently inside of office. There's currently Yaga, don't put your face there. Rexon has been so nasty with these shoulder peeks thus far. It's the second one inside of the series that's been on cam, so you know it's happening more than just those two. Oxygen already starting things off on the back foot.
That's going to be the Finka gone now as well, so no adrenal surges to be used on this execute Rexon. All right, he's not going to do it again now, or is he?
I'm so terrified for this man outside.
I think he's going to do it. Hold on.
Oxygen is sweating bullets.
Okay,
Rexon's going to get across, though.
He makes the smart choice here. Waits for kind of a moment of opportunity. He's going to go to a safer corner. Still looks like he's going to try and hold the corner itself and play somewhat into the defense on this room here. But Kano, as you can see, does not want to mess with that right now. He's rotating away now. The situation has seemingly been contained, and Vertical as well going to get a little bit of that swing. It looks like Yeti wants to try and take some notes from Rex in there, see if he can influence it into his playstyle a little.
Oh, Foxe, you sly dog. Working his way in through service, and I don't believe there's a single soul that knows he's in this space right now, but that's going to give up where Super is, right on the other side of this reinforcement, and oh no! The hologram's going to throw off Foxe for just a split second as it tries to push it in front of him, but Super will simply swing out and remove the head of Foxe, and now Oxygen in the lines of losing this round early. Already two bodies down, and some very serious damage coming from that frag grenade that'll take Super down to 1 HP.
Super is a lucky star watching him in this round here, as not only does he find that beautiful headshot, but the nade somehow doesn't fully take him down, as you can see, leaving him with just a sliver of HP to use throughout the rest of this round here. Grixer continuing to play into a front desk position here. We are going to see the Gemini walk past him. He realizes it's the Gemini and just is going to quickly turn tail and run away, letting it get all the free info, because Kanzan is also here to support. He can only go 1 for 1, and the other issue is going to be Rexen down below, but Rexen still comes out on top. Him and Super now are working with 5 HP or less here, but that doesn't matter much. Vertical's the only player left, and now he's got that same HP, but it won't stay that way for long. Yeti shuts it out with the last kill coming in for the Sonics as they take the first round quite confidently in their favor.
There's just so many Sonics bodies on that bottom floor, you know, especially going into the later half of that round. We saw them initially starting upstairs, but the take that we saw from Oxygen wasn't necessarily pushing them in that direction. They were really looking to go direct, especially with Service, you know, kind of being a play for Oxygen there. But that's where actually things started to go wrong. That pick from Foxe happens, and all of a sudden Super stands up even taller than he was before and able to even assist in other means. Oxygen losing 2 bodies very early. And, well, there's not really much you're going to get done in that situation, especially when Sonics are able to then regain control of the entire bottom floor.
They're going to double down on the first floor holds here by going towards the double bar hold now, and this will obviously lead into some emphasis on the upstairs hold as well, much more differently than we saw things get played out on the Sonics in the previous slate, where there was almost entirely just the emphasis on the first floor hold. This time, things will more than likely need to be extended up, at least over towards the hookah rooms, due to the top-down angles that can very easily be established by OXG, if Sonics should choose to ignore that for some strange reason.
Surprisingly enough, we have not seen the Thunderbird that we've normally seen from the Sonics throughout most of the year, at least from when she did end up getting put into competitive play on their coastline. We usually see her around this vase position here, but not to be the case here, especially on this site as well, where we've seen it down low. But despite that, Sonics still with a solid opener and just favoring other utility, especially with Grixer on the alibi. This is something that we've seen starting to come into more teams' lexicons across the board just because of the MX4 getting that buff, and honestly, it being just one of the most solid SMGs in the entire game. Great rate of fire, and that's usually king when it comes to Rainbow Six.
So, the pressure continues to broil in from Oxygen and get closer and closer towards that site. Some of the inner workings of Sonics' strategy are going to need to be tested here. Most notably, this player extended out over towards the service doorway. Yeti, who has been spotted out, I do believe, by a very well-positioned drone. Very much ready for this type of aggressive play. If he tries to swing in toward the wall, the drone spot at the bottom of the stairs and very nicely shot out by Yeti, but still, once again, like I said before, Intel kind of working against him right now as he tries to play into a corner position, and again, does spot out the play through the drone hole here, but doesn't really have an angle from his side of it to be able to shoot out his opponent. Things will continue to kind of stall out there for the foreseeable future as a result of both teams having equal positioning here. Any of those seems to have quite a few players trying to barrel down on him, so maybe he will be pressed out of this position sooner rather than later.
Yeti seemingly ready for it, though, is worried too much about the pressure on around him. Cool as a cucumber, currently sitting underneath the window inside of service. It's possible frag grenades to come in here, as well as Vertical taking a small amount of heat upstairs, but it's more or less the timer right now that is fighting against OXG. They've gotten some semblance of map control, but they haven't been able to actually enter inside of service, but that will start now with Kino spearheading this with the F2. Kanzan will be able to take down Yaga. That's a big pick onto the Finkas. Yeti's working his way back towards bathroom, but Kanzan and Grixer both get dusted so quickly here. It's a 4 versus 3 now as Rexen's inside of security. Case is outside of office right now, so Oxygen still have an open playbook as to where they want to go with this. No true commitment here, but they've at least been able to trade out Yogg for 2.
little over a minute to play this out as well here, so plenty of time for Oxygen to think about how to handle this, especially with the player advantage they currently have. There's some strange positions from Soniqs they're going to have to eventually outwit here, though. Most notably, Yeti sitting in the open courtyard here, which the Gemini is going to walk past, and see Rexen instead as he'll actually take that Gemini down. Rexen is the one actually trying to do the target hunting right now, moving around, trying to draw all this attention away as the Oxygen members set up for their execute. Yeti just has the cutoff from the inside of Kitchen primarily here. Should we see a swing through that direction and try to get out towards the Sunrise Barn? That is more than likely what is going to happen here. Kino, you can see at the door, ready to take out Super, but Yeti ready to trade as well as he takes him out pretty much instantaneously. The swing still comes into the site. Rexen will try to assist from up on top, but Yeti just cerebral right now. Reads right into Laxing's flank, coming in through barrels, and shuts that one down to bring us down to even numbers at a 2v2. Drone pre-placed for Yeti, but still, as he moves in, they seem to have some intel devices themselves. The drop down, oh no, nearly leads to a team kill here. Yeti needs to be careful, but Rexen's going to help out now as he takes down the planter sitting in the corner, or rather the player holding the pool door, leaving only Foxy alive, hiding behind the chassis as Rexen takes that one out as well. A beautiful retake from the Soniqs as they claim a second round.
Yeti is just an assassin in the moment. I mean, so many beautiful shots coming from him, and you can see the hype, just the smile on Xander's face. He deserved all of that right there. He was truly the only thing that stood in the way of Oxygen getting that round. Time and time again, able to read through what Oxygen's game plan was and shut it all down in the end. In tow with Rexen. Actually ended up getting that last kill. Now for the Soniqs, they're up 2 rounds. And not only that, 2 rounds on the defensive side of Coastline, John. It's a 2-0. We don't see that happen very often as the offensive side is so unbelievably favored here.
With Yeti being kind of activated, as it seems, especially after that last round's play, that means even more firepower has been added to the overall Soniqs roster. You've got Yeti, you've got Rexen to contend with these insane one-tap peaks. You've got, again, Kansan doing some similar stuff, and that's on top of Grixer also being able to make plays if needed. The only one that you can't necessarily rely on for that type of stuff, at least off of the 2 rounds we've seen played so far, is Super. But even in this series, we've seen moments of brilliance from Super, most notably his ability to catch members of Oxygen not watching flanks or possibly direct retake angles like we saw with that triple kill that he got over on the inside of Cash towards the end of our previous map. And that's not even everything. There was another round where he pulled off a very similar play, albeit to much less success, but still the same overall effectiveness by kind of rushing and sneaking in a kill or two and then getting traded out.
Okay, so what is the answer here for Oxygen? Personally, it feels as though the map control is just never in their favor in the moment. We don't really see them clearing out space, especially on the top floor. You know, there's just not really an abuse of the overall map in the way that, you know, Coastline is presented to the offensive side, which is usually abusing that top floor and trying to clear things out. Get it to that congested moment where the Soniqs really don't have that many options inside of the site to sit, and then try and hit that that execute. You know, either that or really start looking for those picks as well, because as long as you're limiting in that factor of overall map control, the defense isn't going to be able to rotate in the way that they want to, and the way that we've seen the Soniqs do thus far. And well, it seems like it's going to continue on, at least for Laxing, 0-3 after not the best clubhouse in the world for him, but it doesn't seem like Coastline's going to be too big of a change.
Oh, Yeti, seeing that someone was near him, but
the Spidey
absolutely,
repel.
Yeah, the wrong read on where that pressure was coming from, unfortunately, as we see that Hatch get over behind him. I think he panically tries to run down the stairs, but it's far too late as a quick exchange is picked up here by the members of Oxygen against Yeti to bring it down to a 4v4. Also removing was a very dangerous component of at least the previous round from play here. But like I said, you got 3 other members of this team that we could very easily see the same type of proficiency come out from Kansan. Possibly going to directly challenge as he needs to be careful to repel on big window. He's watching for it, but instead it's going to be the swing from Billiards first here. Tries to get a second kill and nearly finds it. Also, Rexen so low. The fights for Oxygen going much more handily into their favor this time as they catch on to the aggressive play and are looking to punish it at every single avenue. Normally by double peeking most of these. Grix are now caught out as well, just leaving Rexen and Super in the play for the dying minute and a half that remains. And never mind, Rexen decked by Yaga on another repeat. It's all up to Super now.
All up to Super, and they know exactly where he is as well. Inside of VIP, Yaga's going to hold this cross. He'd like to lean out more towards door just to cover that and make sure Super can't get any direction over towards the guitar, but seems like Super's actually been able to adopt the angle. Biggest thing is, though, Oxygen's inside of the belly of the beast. They're inside sight, and it's an oversight from the Soniqs. that round just not going their way. Oxygen able to nip a lot in the bud there. The biggest thing would be those picks that they got over towards pink as well as billiards that really limited Grixer. He's not allowed to leave that space anymore. He's stuck inside of hookah because all of his saving graces are off the board. He's stuck there, and there's not really anything he can do. He tries to reset his laser gate, but that's really all for naught at the end of the day. Oxygen get their very first round off some very solid picks.
Kitchen and Service is going to be up next here for the Sonics as they lose on the tertiary site, but through that, we'll be able to unlock the sites they've already had very confident wins on earlier on in this half. It's up to Oxygen to adjust from those strategies now, as we somewhat have already seen on that previous round. Like I said, having a much better track record for catching those more aggressive swings for the Sonics that time compared to the previous 2 rounds, where those members of the Sonics pretty much had free picks or free capability to at least attempt to get those picks in the opening minute or 2 of the round due to a very small amount of map control being picked up by Oxygen in those opening 2 rounds. Going to be a bit more restricted this time if Oxygen continues to play properly, as we saw just back on round number 3. So we'll have to wait and see which one we will get, and more importantly, how the Sonics will respond to this newly renewed Oxygen attack.
Attackers are heading out to defuse a bomb.
Well, finally, get out of the prep phase. Arguably the most boring part of Rainbow Six, and we get into the action phase where all of the action happens, the thing that everyone cares about, where we get to see who is better in the moment. And as of right now, it's kind of up in the air. Oxygen with some very serious adjustments in these last couple of moments that have left Sonics kind of gobsmacked in a certain sense, but doesn't mean they're going to be slowing down at all. If anything, it seems like the aggression has built up. Actually, Rexen with a lot of pre-fire, same as Yeti out towards Sunrise, but Oxygen not too concerned with it at the end of the day. Kino will be working with the off-this rotate here, just trying to make sure no one can get back in towards the blue bar, keeping these two separated over towards the west side of the building. Should make things a little bit more palatable for Oxygen.
And he continuing to kind of dance
he was
around
just tapping away at that.
Laxing finally on the board here as he's able to isolate out the position of Grixer, taking him down. Yeti's you're going to see 2 players pushing against him, but now he's got the support. Super strikes, but Yeti falls as Foxe gets the trade for Oxygen, and they stay in charge. Rexen as well, heavily injured now at about 1/3 of his remaining HP after being hit, I believe, by a nade.
For Oxygen, it's a moment here. Oh, very close, but oh my goodness, how does that even happen? Kansan gets away. He practically just steals it out from Oxygen here. He'll tie things up. And into a 3 versus 3, just pulled the rug out from under him right there. That initial shot hits him right in the neck. Just not high enough to achieve that headshot. Unfortunate for the Oxygen member, but saving grace for Sonics. We'll definitely be happy about going forward, especially if they pick up this round. The positioning base right now is definitely in favor of the Sonics, with Rexen all the way upstairs right now, looking to see if it could possibly make a play through this aquarium hatch, and rubbing onto that arm as well, just being very patient with what he's doing in the moment. You know, got to get those good stretches, those gamer stretches in every once in a while, John. Got to make sure everything's in the proper spot. But for Kansan and Super, the proper spot's already been selected. They'll sit inside of beer for the time being and await Oxygen's presence inside of the site.
Foxe continuing to look for any sort of entry opportunity, but the Sonics have gone fully passive here as we enter. Well, actually, I'm not going to say that just yet. Not fully passive, especially not looking at Rexen's POV. Rexen's looking to make a Batman of himself here over the next few moments, possibly with a possible leap down to save the day, as his other 2 teammates will defend the site itself. Foxe realizes that things are actually pretty much open for the taking inside of the site, but no, Yaga is not allowed forward. Super finds a second pick inside of this round here, taking him down and giving the members of the Sonics the player advantage. Keep in mind, though, all 3 of the remaining members of the Sonics are heavily injured. It's the opposite for Oxygen. Laxing finds a pick, but he also goes down. Foxe needs to finish this off. He's going to start with the first one here. Needs to get Case down as well, as Rexen slowly begins to rotate over towards him. No emphasis on trying to get Laxing back up here. He's focused entirely on the OBJ because, unfortunately, he's out of time and needs to get that down on the ground. He'll succeed in doing it. Rexen can't lock down his exact position, but as a result of that, he's closed the gap. Rexen moves in, gives himself away by taking out Laxing. Now he needs to figure out the rotate from Foxe. Had the right read, but backed away too quickly, so that duel's going to reset itself once again. Foxe just needs to mind game this one, and he can win it out on the timer, but Rexen quickly approaching the threshold to get on top of him. There's going to be the first counter defuse attempt, sticking on it, already halfway through it. Where's the swing from Foxe? Needs to do it quickly, and he gets it just in time, shuts him out, and that's going to be a round for Oxygen.
That's a ballsy move there from Rexon as well, just to try and commit to the plant. I mean, that's not something that we see happen very often in Rainbow Six, just because you have that constant buzz going off every single time. But, I mean, you could see just how wary of the situation Fox was. He's like, okay, do I kill him? I don't know what to do. He's a mad lad. Like, I don't get it. Like, this guy's crazy, man. I don't know. But, I mean, he's still able to get it done, and that's really what matters. Fox playing that entire situation to a T. And time again, we've seen him in these clutch moments today, and he's been able to pull a rabbit out of a hat. Tip of the cap to him for his play so far through this best of 3, as Oxygen will tie things up 2-2 on their offensive side.
Even scoreline here now. Once again, we've got an even map share as well. Both of these teams, like we've been talking about throughout the entire series, have been neck and neck the entire time. Even the leads these teams have been able to pursue have not lasted very, very long, as their opponent has been right on their tail a few rounds later here. Overtime for our third and final map is certainly in the cards with the way that these rounds are going so far. But we have 2 additional rounds to still play out here before the first half is even done. So that's well into the future before we have to worry about that.
So, John, it's currently 1:54 in the morning on the East Coast, and I only have one thing to say about that. If you're tired, just take longer blinks, okay? It's just like a mini nap. You'll be okay. You're gonna get through this, okay? Just trust me. Pop those energy drinks and get ready for this, because I mean, just look at the way these teams are playing. Rexon with the early aggressive peek out towards southeast side, or rather, excuse me, the compass spent a little bit too much there for me, but either way, out towards the ruins side of the map, and not able to get too much there, but both of these teams have been playing things to the absolute limit in the moment, right on the cusp of just being a little too aggressive, but getting away with so much on both ends. It's really up to just how these teams have been able to trade out, but right now for the Soniqs, they want to try and get some control over this series once again here. They start off on 2-0 lead, but as of right now, hasn't worked out in their favor, although they are on the defensive end right now, so more than likely decently happy, at least content with these results. Exon now playing things out towards office, but really nothing going on just yet. Oxygen being very patient with this opening minute.
Rexon continuing to wait for an opportunity to commit himself to the swing as well here. Vertical going to be trying to boost that up, but oh no, it's Grixer and Rexon once again getting naughty with these aggressive plays as he moves in, finds Yaga. That's going to once again remove the Finka from the battle here. No adrenal surges to help out Oxygen as they work their way into the site, as well as those ranged revives that could potentially come in. Soniqs as well trying to change up some slight positioning. Super's going to go back to the inside of the Sunrise bar, the bar itself, and his teammate will rotate a little bit further back to hold the Cool Vibes position.
Vertical, big pickup here inside of Sunrise, has still another yet to come as it's Super, but he chooses to back off instead, and well, likely the proper call. It's a 4 versus 4 right now. Don't want to continue to dwindle the bodies low on the defensive end, especially given the timer, as well as the positioning of the Soniqs overall. And Super, I mean, he's been hitting his shots today, folks. 5 and 3. The Aim Lab sponsorship is just working out for him. I'm telling you, Kansan will take down 1 for himself as well. And this all of a sudden went from a 4 versus 4 to an absolute bloodbath of the Oxygen members. Laxing will finally get something done here for OXG in round 5, but it's going to be all for naught. Grixer will wrap that one up with a bow, and the Soniqs are back in the lead.
Grixer even with the cheeky hold-up position there, fully revealing himself doesn't matter, as we see great performances from nearly the entire Soniqs roster coming into this series here. Even from Super, I would argue this is probably one of his best series, if not best matches so far throughout the year and in quite some time, as he has a beautiful time controlling the spray there of the pushes coming in from Pool Door and making sure that OXG do not get anywhere close to the site in that last minute or two of the round.
He's playing so very solid right now, and he's abusing that Alda to the nth degree right now as well. I mean, that's the thing that LMGs in this game are so unbelievable at, is constantly spamming those angles. And the thing about pro play is a lot of people really like to contest angles extremely quickly. I feel like that's the difference between good and great players in Siege, is how much time you can spend inside of that angle and how many shots you can get out in that very little amount of time. So a lot of people like those jiggle peeks, send a couple of shots, get that hitbox back to safety, but that's when the LMGs are actually favorable. You can just continue to spam that angle, and that's the beauty of Siege as well, man. It only takes one. If you hit them properly one time, it's all over, and that's exactly what just happened in that moment for Super. Fantastic stuff for him, as he's positive right now at 5 and 4.
The Soniqs, a lead already well established for themselves on this defensive half. Even if it goes 3-3, that's still going to be an overall victory for them at the end of the day. If they can push it up to 4-2, that'll be even better. But at the same time, these leads have been somewhat deceiving in that, once again, we've usually seen a rebound from our opposing team on the second half.
Do you just want to say it? We're going to overtime. Like, we are.
Well, now you've just cursed it, so I don't know about that anymore.
I'm sorry, East Coasters. I'm sorry, New Yorkers. You guys are a little screwed, but that's okay. I mean, it's worth the wait. It's worth staying up. It's worth just watching what is going on in between these two teams, because this, honestly, has been a hell of a series so far. Very entertaining to watch, and not only watch, but also commentate. So we're getting a little bit deeper here into round 6. Oxygen with a fairly neutral opening here, as we'd expect. They'll start working on Sunrise. We've been seeing the Soniqs operate around quite often. This time, though, it will be Yeti in this space.
Our Soniqs roster waiting at the thresholds right now, trying to see if they can
Gotta get it off the ceiling.
opportunities for themselves as he tries to get this Nitro down to maybe redeploy it a little bit later on, but not going to be able to find such an easy path to do that, unfortunately.
He's got it. He got it back in. We're good to go. And, oh, speaking of getting it in, Grixer is going to get it in on Vertical. A headshot, nevertheless, as well. And Vertical has been shut down inside of this game so far, folks. This is round 6, currently 1-5-3. Not something that we expect out of one of the best players out of Stage 3, but it's what we're getting right now for OXG. We want to see the team across the board be able to try and take it to the Soniqs in the moment. But Soniqs, as of right now, starting to pull ahead yet again.
Continuing to wait once again for potential opportunities, and more importantly, potential swings to come out from one of the members of the Soniqs roster, but just not finding it in that department here. Kino getting no challengers upstairs against him. He's going to have to encroach on the downstairs territory if he wants an opportunity to find that. As once again, Soniqs have focused their defense almost entirely on this quadrant of the map here. Next, Kyra is trying to open up a path in from barrels and should be able to do it successfully. There's too much pressure for a member like Super to try and swing out and take those downs. That is going to be a hole opened up. Yaga as well with a great angle to punish Super for sitting in the corner right there. The top down's now established, and finally Oxygen can start making some progress in their favor here as they even it back out into a 4v4, and some good damage on the Rexen too as he's forced out of the office.
Unfortunate for the IGL there that the frag basically just lined up the stars in order to find him in behind that deployable shield, but Oxygen are going to be able to get that back either way, rather it be gifted or found, doesn't really matter. Oxygen not able to try and fight back now, though, as Grixer has actually moved his way back into the top floor, and no one very aware of it in the moment. Be able to take down one. Kino will take him down as well, as Foxy's getting the plant right now inside of Kegs. Cans will be able to fight back against one, but he knows what the positioning is of Foxy, as he'll double back on the angle and be able to take him down too. It's all left up to Rexen instead of the 1 versus 2, but he's got very minimal HP up against 2 fully healthy Oxygen members. Foxy on the long angle here, as well as Kino currently working inside of the lobby space. Rexen, worse for wear in the moment, as well as worse for wear on positioning. That it's now completely known to the Oxygen members. It'll be a Nitro Cell out to clear deep inside of Beer, but he's dead either way. Kino just simply lying in wait at the front desk will get it done, and Oxygen will tie things up yet again.
Yeah, the Nitro, I think, only makes the situation even worse as he kind of smokes himself off slightly, so not able to get a clear picture of where the opponent is on the threshold past that barrel's wall there. So it allows for OXG to recontain the situation after once more Soniqs try to bring out that wild style to the table with those aggressive swings, and ultimately are finally bested by OXG as they slow down the pace to be able to get control over those players, knock them out, and eventually work their way into the site. 3-3 is going to be the scoreline at halftime here. Dead tie between our two teams, which should really be no surprise at this point, given the way the series has gone. It does, however, mean that Oxygen are now on the defensive side here. They're also going to go right towards a kitchen and service defense for their opening round.
I would like to think that their anime arc is just that they're fighting so hard because they love each other so much. That's really what it is. You know, just the sheer love that Oxygen and Soniqs have for each other. They just can't let each other go that easily. It's always got to go max OT. You know, it's just always a good time whenever these two are on the docket. And today's not going to be any different. We will be switching sides now, though, obviously, as we hit that 3-3 scoreline. So Oxygen will be manning the defense, whereas Soniqs will be standing up for this offensive side. They've got a couple of different different ideas going on for their offensive takes rather than what Oxygen had, most notably Yeti having the Nomad here, so they'll be able to lock up some of these stairwells up top, and that's actually going to be extremely favorable for them because Oxygen have not brought the Oryx this time around, so won't have anybody to try and operate around those hatches. Oxygen, though, will be focused on holding up this top floor, at least for the time being, around that vase space, just to make it a little bit more difficult to work their way in from Hookah, but we'll have to see what else is going on around this area because that alone will not achieve this job. The Sonics will more than likely have an answer to that once they've scouted it out.
Foxy looking at maybe get an early contestation against the push, working its way up the Hookah stairwell, but definitely not going to lead towards it. Only one panel opened up there, and the player's just doing it, I think, for sound propagation anyways, that if Foxy did try to lurk upon it, it'd be a little easier to hear and possibly catch if you have someone else watching out for that. Either way, Foxy creeps himself forward here and is going to keep an easy watch on the area just in case one of the members of the Sonics would try to sneak in, but it's not looking like it's going to be the case. The rest of the team here working on entering the building through the normal means, most notably that hatch just above the master bathroom. And we'll start clearing things out from there.
Some Womai discs in the area. They try to burn, but the flashes actually work their way through, attempting to get a grenade onto that vase position and just make it a lot more difficult for Yaga to try and work around that. So he'll bail, as you would indeed expect. But either way, Oxygen doing a pretty bang-up job of delaying things right now as we're about halfway through this round. But given that it is Coastline, anything can happen on a moment's notice. You got quick access to the site as well as very minimal space overall through this entire map. It's quite congested once you're actually inside the building rather than being out towards the courtyard. So to see what they can possibly do here. But as of right now, this has been pretty dastardly. Soniqs not really able to get a read on the situation overall as Oxygen continues to keep everyone up and alive, and Kansan missing out on an extremely important opportunity. He'll lose out to Vertical on the vertical angle.
Vertical continuing to play into this angle and now finding a new target, but maybe a little bit more than he's asking for here.
You see him look at the ground? That's some Halo stuff right
ducks
there,
and
man.
dives his way out of there as he tries to hide his head as much as possible. Super, however, will find another entry frag for the team, and he's just going to entry himself into the site in the meanwhile. No support on it, so he gets traded out. I think he was expecting Grixer to be in a better position a little bit earlier on there as he does get at least one cut off.
Wow.
Yeti with a beautiful shot against Vertical as he knocks him out of the play, and that leaves it down into a 3v2 here. Yeti, Grixer, and Rexen now up against just Foxy with Grixer's most recent kill against Yogg. Just needing to find out Foxy, and they've kind of already done it with that drone as well as a nice bullet connecting right through his torso to bring him down to only a sliver of HP. He returns a little bit, but it's not going to be enough. Too much pressure against him. Rexen finishes things off, and the Sonics take the round.
A team play from the Sonics there. The case not getting down, so bit of an oversight on the positioning as to where Oxygens were in relation to the Sonics, but they're still able to get it done. They do not overswing and lose too many bodies in that situation. To be honest, it's really only Super that they lose to him trying to put the case down at all. So for the Sonics, very well handled. They knew Oxygen was going to more than likely try and double back to handle Super, and if anything, that was more of a bait. They try and come back in, and there's just too many Sonics members around the space, and they just start taking out Oxygen members while they're trying to deal with that situation. So very well done from the Sonics to battle back, especially after Vertical got that nice pick through the floorboards.
So as this comes down to the wire here in the final 5 rounds of play, need to wait and see if the Sonics will be able to continue to find success at the same degree as we saw in the last round, or if there'll be a continuous process of Oxygen evolving, as we already saw back in the first half for them on the attacking side here. Obviously some missteps once again in trying to play out in the aggression against the Sonics, who kind of been the kings of that so far in this series here, though Oxygen said a few fights at the title themselves. They're going to try and slow down that play as much as possible here. Most notably with Foxy bringing the Legion into the picture. Those goo mines hopefully tripping up some of those sneakier plays that Sonics may try to go for, especially as they start to creep in towards areas like Kitchen, if they try to work their way down Cool Vibes, or even as they try to push their way in through the pool door or up through Office into the blue bar. That can be slowed down with those goo mines in addition to the other forms of utility that's being brought by Yaga and of course Kino.
Yeah, a literal thorn in your side is Legion time and time again. Definitely one of the most annoying operators in Rainbow Six. You're primed and ready to go, and then all of a sudden you step on one of those goo mines, and you're really not going anymore. So we'll see what the Sonics can possibly do with that, but we should be seeing them open towards more of a top floor take, simply because these air jobs are just so solid for gathering control up top, especially once you clear out those Oxygen members. You just lock up the stairwells and make things very easy for your sledge to work the entirety of the the floor. So we have Foxay up here to try and slow some of this take down, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the Sonics are going to have to go with that. The air jabs are always serviceable, really in any space that you want to put them, as long as you're ready to work that cutoff. So minute already off the board here, as the Sonics are already getting some space open towards Sunrise, possibly looking for a plant here later on.
Y'all continuing to ran through the angle he has on the inside of security there, cutting off anybody who might be trying to work their way through it, but no success found for either team. Both squads still a full HP for all 10 players here, so unable to connect on anything just as of yet. Only a minute gone from the round here, but the Sonics already opening up quite a bit surrounding, specifically the Sunrise bar. Not nearly enough to where they'll be able to contend with an actual push here, but Grixer is going to get the first fight here as he tries to take down a player over towards the big window, but ultimately will not be able to find much from it. That player ducks the heck out of that fight as quickly as possible. Rexon, though, a little bit different, but Laxing ready for the challenge. He's got the M590 primed and ready to go, and a new challenger approaches. Kansan also tries to test Laxing in the corner and fails as Laxing gets a second.
Laxing so patient here in behind the shelves for Kitchen. Air jab down, and they now know where he is. But the thing is that the Sonics seriously need to handle this situation. Nitro cell out, and is it going to get him the kill? Yeti, he's too patient, and Laxing with a triple kill at a moment where Oxygen desperately needed him to come back to light, and he's done so. Super will finally be able to dust him, but he's already dealt so much damage. It's a 4 versus 2 in favor of OXG.
Grixer now the only one left standing aside from Super here, so still trying to work the 2v4. The good news is they do still have a decent amount of time left in the bank. Not amazing, but certainly workable if they can potentially sneak their way into Blue Bar and have proper coverage onto the plant. That's going to be the problem, though, is providing the proper coverage at 2v4 due to the amount of cutoffs that members of Oxygen can very quickly establish should they try to go for it. You can see it once again being deployed right over here on the side as they get ready to hop in, although it's not going to come in the area you expect. They're going right back into Sunrise to try and directly contest the hold in here.
Oh,
Kano
beautiful.
Immediately shutting down Grixer. Perfect timing for him, and Super, with no real capability to work himself in here, is going to try for it, but it goes the way you would expect, with a quick shutdown coming in for Oxygen as they trade the round out, bring us to a 4-4 scoreline, and keep these teams deadlocked.
Oxygen keeping this teeter-totter going, tied things up at 4-4 for the moment. As Sonics just not able to get into the building in a convincing fashion, especially over towards the kitchen area. They're able to walk in from service, but that's really about it. We don't see a true control of that top floor, any abuse of the vertical angles at all. And, you know, really for the Sonics, that's more than likely just the better option in that area, is just start to try and bear down onto those players on site. But, you know, that doesn't mean that the kitchen take can't work out. It's a very common thing to have someone in that area that Laxing's playing as well, so they're more than likely ready for that. But I mean, sometimes that M590, I'm telling you, if you just sit down and you pray at night to the M590 gods, that thing will gift you kills. We have seen time and time again throughout the years of Rainbow Six, this thing get people out of terrible situations, and it does it there for Laxing yet again.
So, with the score being as close as it is here, Sonics need to find a new way to breach past the setups that OXG have been deploying here, as once again, the aggression coming out from them is just as potent as what we've seen from the Sonics inside of their own defensive half, and it's making for a very tough time for the Sonics, as we just saw in that previous one. A new site, though, means new opportunities as well for our attackers, most notably over here towards the theater now. We're going to play into the site for the very first time. The Sonics chose outright not to play into the site throughout their defensive half. Oxygen clearly not favoring, or clearly favoring it, rather, a little bit more here, as they're going to play into it quite heftily, and we'll see if this will work out for them.
You know, I'll have to say, I'm a penthouse enjoyer, most definitely. I think that this site has some unique things about it, especially for a siege site, you know, especially with the way that it used to be played. It's played completely differently nowadays, and just, you know, that honestly is a huge thing for the devs and the way that they've changed up this map, because it's made penthouse a lot more serviceable, especially with Mira off the board. You know, you have people playing around VIP, the room's been made bigger, there's a couple of other safe havens to play around in that space, so you're not always immediately getting contested, as well as the walls being changed in there, actually 2 walls away from the window, so that used to be in that space. So it just makes that area a heck of a lot easier for the defense to actually occupy, and that's what we're going to have in this. Yago will be working that area, as well as the shield that everyone's used to being inside of 90 hallway for OXG.
He's going to put himself on the big window to try and get some of those air jabs in position to deny the rotates from OXG further out. They've got the position of the deployable shield here. The Goyo shield being put there so that they won't have to deal with that later on in the round. Going to be quickly mating that out of position, though, and dealing with that, so the extra support will now be gone, and actually not taking out that specific shield just yet, but I did hear another one blow up a second ago. This is actually going to be a normal one, I do believe, at the end of the day.
Oxygen still with these insanely long angles. Worked in through VIP. Soniqs have not applied pressure towards the hookah side just yet. So trying to bear down on these windows and see if they can get anybody to just simply cross and give them a frag, but it's just not coming in the moment. Down to almost a minute here for the Soniqs, and they need to get something done. Oxygen just completely spread across the map in the moment. Really nothing in control of the Soniqs in this area, at least for right now. Have Guitar and yet another one coming in down low, but Vertical's in this space. He'll remove the head of Yeti. More than likely try to challenge out towards the window just to see if anybody's around double. Foxy will get down to Super's trying to push forward. Currently at 7-7, make it 7-8. And oh no, it's actually 8-7. You thought Kino would be able to do something there, but Super, he's just been insane today. 9-8 currently. He's got the most frags on the team. What else could you want from this IGL? Kansan can get one. It's all down to Vertical, the best player from Oxygen in stage 3, to try and clutch up this round.
Vertical gonna work his way up here, and a nice headshot to be found against Grixer, taking him down. It's Kansan versus Vert now for the title on this round, and Kansan is not gonna waste any time. Not that he really has much to waste at this point. Needs to get this case down on the ground. He's gonna be able to complete it, but he needs to get the coverage pretty much immediately, as Vertical is already here. Looking to take the fight, but Kansan, he wins it out instead, as once more, the Soniqs will come out on top. The seesaw is alive and well, as once more another round is picked up here from the Soniqs as they push ahead only by one round, though, at 5-4.
Frustration on the face of Vertical in that moment. Oxygen let Soniqs get away with way too much there, especially allowing Super to work his way all the way up to the walls of Theater. That smoke goes down. There's really no way that they want to properly contest that. But Super, he's the one that takes the advantage. He walks all the way up on it and catches two people completely off guard inside a Theater. Oxygen want to take some time to think about that one.
OXG, that's an unfortunate loss, and one that they are not going to be able to.
The entire chat right now. Bing bong, Kinito, suppy wuppy, hard hat holidays. That's what we got going on right now, guys. That's what this timeout's actually about.
So that is going to take us into the auction timeout as the references continue. But either way, OXG in a rough position now after losing that one. Again, in very similar fashion to how we've seen previous lost rounds from them get taken as well. They are turning it around usually on the rebound, but unfortunately, again, here on the defense, they can't just continue to volley these rounds back and forth. Soniqs are in the driver's seat here, so all it's really going to take for Soniqs is to have one streak of 2 rounds, and this process will be broken, and then OT is no longer a guarantee. Soniqs could very easily just run away with a 7-5 at that point.
Very interesting rounds indeed. I mean, I'm currently sitting inside of the camp of I just don't think Oxygen were aggressive enough inside of that last round. You know, Coastline usually, it really does favor the Brave when it comes to the defensive end. If you allow map control to start being taken from the offense, that round's basically done. There's really nothing that you can do, especially when they have the crosses established. It just becomes such a volatile thing for the defense. So for Oxygen in that one, not really much they can do past those 2 kills that go into the favor of the Soniqs, and that's why we see them take it in such convincing fashion. Now for the Soniqs, they're right on the door of 6 rounds. 2 rounds away from taking this inside of regulation, which would be the very first in between these two today.
Again in the driver's seat, but can they keep it that way? These attacks have been so brutal here, and once again so surgical usually in how they try to find those first few picks. We've been seeing that play throughout the previous 2 maps as well here. You can see how close it's been even with that, though. Oxygen almost always finding a way to rebound in the final moments of these maps. Did it twice in a row where they come back in the second half on both our initial map on Oregon as well as the second one on Clubhouse, and now looking to keep the scoreline even all the way up to another potential 6-6 tied scoreline if we end up in OT again here. This will be the round that they actually need to take for themselves. It's going to be downstairs in the kitchen service hall, where there's already been quite a bit of success for Oxygen earlier on in this half.
They have to use every single round so far to figure out who the victors are on our maps, and this map is starting to build up to a very similar story. The Sonics currently sit at 5-4, but you guys already knew that. Need to try and get the ball rolling here on the offense yet again. It's going to be down to the same game plan, trying to clear things out and see what kind of informational base they can possibly take here. Some very interesting barbed wire placements inside of this space. Possibly get rid of a couple of drones here, but past that, not much more that it's going to do. Does deal a little bit of damage, actually, fun fact, if you do end up walking through it, but I could count on just my 2 hands the amount of times that I've seen electrified barbed wire be useful. So we'll see how it actually ends up working out for Oxygen here. Could be some underlying things that could be quite favorable for them, but that's definitely not going to be one of them. Foxy gets taken down as so many hot pings come through the building off of a pretty solid drone placement.
And the bait from the drone works out too. Somewhat gets him into the open, at least gets him to stand up and take the challenge on that one, ultimately leading to his death there. And the Sonics once again continuing to be in commanding position here as we get to the second half of the round. Minute and 30 remaining here for the Sonics to get onto the site downstairs and take control of this map for themselves, or of course wipe out the remaining presence from OXG, which might just become the goal here, as we've seen happen throughout a large majority of our rounds here. Vertical, though, sits at the bottom of the main stairs, very much waiting for that transition to start for the Sonics here and hoping to catch 1 or 2 players before he might get traded out.
Back in the day when it hit the splash screen to load your map, it used to say bomb-TDM. But for them right now, it's just kind of just TDM. That's really it. And for all of us that play this game regularly, we all know that's what Coastline is. This is just a pure hell in a cell with so many angles to abuse. And if you're someone like Yeti, you probably know what you're doing. That's going to be 2 frags in through the courtyard that Oxygen were simply not prepared for. He mans the window, but that's all he needs. Kino will be able to get 1 for his troubles, and trust me, it's a lot of trouble. Down to 10 HP currently, as he's the only one inside of sight. Laxing still trying to work the lobby space, but is he the one being worked instead? It is. Yeti will get that. Kansan will clean it up. Talk your stuff, boys. The Sonics are looking beautiful right now.
The seesaw has finally broken, and one standing at the top of it is going to be the Sonics. They'll take the lead here, pushing themselves up to a 6-4 lead. Now it's all up to the Oxygen roster, needing 2 rounds in a row here in order to bring this back and trigger a 3rd consecutive overtime to still have an opportunity to close out this series and go to the grand finals. If not, if any of the next 2 rounds are picked up by the Sonics, we'll have them facing off against Dark Zero in our grand final to start the day off tomorrow.
Man, I love this manga. I mean, it just keeps getting better and better the more I read, John, let me tell you. But for the Sonics right now, you have got to be excited for them. I don't care if you hate them. I don't care if you love them. This team is playing so fantastic. And not only that, Super, I think at least, still has the most frags on the entire team. And yes, he does indeed. Yeti only has 7 in the moment, even though he popped off inside that last round. Super's currently sitting at 9-8-1. He's tied for the most frags in the game with Kino.
Very, very impressive stuff.
That's something we never see from
like
Super. John, there was a time, probably, what was it, 6-8 months ago, when we were just like, oh yeah, Super 007, man, ha, funny memes.
Meme.
Yeah, meme. 9-8-1 when it matters, and that's what you love to see. You love to see it.
Great stuff from Super is once again an interesting point for Super here. There's been a lot of talk about what's potentially going to happen with him going into the 2022 season.
Yeah.
If this is once again going to be his last showing at the NAL, should the worst happen, not implying anything, there's been talk.
He's been playing the game a long time, boys and girls. Like, I mean, this guy played Rainbow Six before it was Rainbow Six Siege. Think about that one for a second. Do you guys even know what Raven Arrow is? Do you have any idea? Did you play any of the Vegas games? How old are you guys at home? I mean, like, come on. Super's been around for a very long time.
I think to be fair, again, just to top off what I was saying before anybody panics.
Oh, you're good.
I think he's going to be around for a very, very long time. It's just in what capacity we'll continue to see him be around. So.
You know, and it's really that. I mean, to be honest, for me, in the moment, just seeing how this game's playing out right now, you know, I don't think that there really is an argument to have him off the team, you know, and even moving into like a coaching capacity or something like that. I think that he's definitely still bringing things to the table that are paramount to Sonic's success, and not having his voice, you know, actually in the game, able to make adjustments like that. I mean, it's going to be so difficult. And to be honest with you guys, IGLs are not a dime a dozen. It's very hard to find a true solid IGL in Rainbow Six Siege just because that position is so unbelievably difficult.
certainly, once again here, it's even more difficult to find one with the amount of experience that Super has.
Right?
The only one you could really compare to that would be someone like Canadian, but we're passing by all this action here as Corrixer and Cans and get things started hot here. 2 kills in their favor. No trades coming back here. Kansan as well, finding Laxing, working his way up the cool vibe. That's it!
What?
They walked their way right through the final round. The Soniqs are going to the final to face off against Dark Zero to be the NAL 2021 champion.
Well, that does it. The Soniqs push all the way to the final in extremely convincing fashion in those last 3 rounds. I mean, it was a teeter-totter going back and forth in between Oxygen and Soniqs. You really never knew who was going to take the round, but then the stars aligned. The Soniqs seemingly just aware. Their third eye decalifies, and they're just seeing everything in front of them all at that moment. The Soniqs able to get one over on Oxygen inside of the best of 3. OXG will not be able to best the Soniqs as they'll take it for the year against Oxygen.
The Soniqs with an impressive run that's still going strong here with the potential to be the NAL's champion for the 2021 season. Standing in their way is going to be a team that's also been looking for glory for quite some time in Dark Zero. The structured, huge team has been built up again around one of the most experienced, probably the only one who could compare to Super here in North America. Canadian leading that team now.
I mean, double-time hammer lifter. I mean, what else do you really have to say past that? I mean, I completely agree with you. Having 2 of the longest-standing IGLs battling off in the NAL finals, what more could you want? I am so unbelievably excited to see tomorrow. And the funny thing is, that's not even the only match that we have.
Absolutely the case. We still have a relegation matchup as well between XSET and Parabellum to decide who is going to take the 9th slot inside of the NAL heading into the 2022 season. Will XSET be able to preserve theirs after a relatively disappointing year that has showed some promise, to be fair to them, towards the end of the run? Or will Parabellum, who's been tearing it up inside of CL, carve a path towards the NAL for themselves? That's going to be the ultimate question, and that'll be played out over a best of 5 later tomorrow as well.
Yeah, going to be a lot of Rainbow Six action, especially for North America tomorrow. And I mean, listen, I'm just ready to get in, go to sleep, wake up, and do it all over again. That's what I'm just so excited for. Once again, dude, I mean, the suit's looking clean. We're going to be looking clean tomorrow again, folks. So, I mean, thank you to Indochino for all of this, and thank you for facing everybody else for flying us out. It's been such an experience so far, so much fun, and I hope you guys at home are feeling the same.
We're going to chuck it back down to the desk to break this final map down and get you guys ready for bed and get ready, more importantly, for matches tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Blue and Sox, for the amazing commentary. But with the highlights powered by Predator, we saw exactly why Soniqs deserve to go into that grand final spot to face off against none other than Dark Zero.
Look at this, dude. My predictions were both wrong, and I don't care because the series was just that good. 2 maps go all the way to 8-7. And then this one, a series I thought was going to swing in OXG's favor because they love Coastline and they've been doing so well on it as of late, goes the Soniqs' way because of an impeccable attacking half.
Yeah, I mean, I would say arguably with Soniqs, it was their defensive half being even better. Getting a 3-3 split on a map that, sure, Coastline has almost gone to that 3-3 favor because defending is more consistent with 90 pressure and VIP actually being holdable with the walls. But as we saw everything stand, everybody on the side of the Soniqs for their attacks was firing on all cylinders. They were getting pick after pick after pick. They were steamrolling and looking good.
Yeah, and looking good. They definitely looked great, man. But Soniqs, I mean, let's talk about it. A lot of unexpected stuff came out in this matchup. But one of the top fraggers on this team was Mr. 1.6. Jacob,
didn't see that coming.
I never seen Super act this way before, man.
Well, I mean, it was before that clutch on Clubhouse
That
either.
fired him up.
That was a big one, yeah. But then I think, what was it, 9 kills? I think on
9
Coastline?
kills.
Which before we've seen that happen, and he'll be playing on site. He'll be playing smoke, and then traditionally he'll find a way to still be a backline support member for his team. But in this case, it felt like he was like, I don't know, was someone just like saying, "Hey, Super, it's now your responsibility. I'll take a back seat," because he did great. It's like if he's getting 9 kills, it's because he's getting them and someone else isn't in position for it. I'm trying to figure out how this happened.
It Soniqs looks scary, man. Super was activated. C-Daps. Dark Zero, not Dark Zero. Oxygen got knocked out. I mean, what are your ultimate thoughts? They put up such a good fight before they dropped the Soniqs.
Yeah, it was a really good game. Pretty much just little tiny minor mistakes coming through. And once again, you kind of don't want to boil down the game to one thing, but early round dominance for Soniqs was something that on a map like Coastline, it's definitely necessary. When you have somebody like Grixer who's going to consistently go 1 for none, not 1 for 1, 1 for none, and give you that full 5v4, it's really hard to squander those rounds. He was doing it on attack, he was doing it on defense, everybody else getting involved all the way across the board. Very consistent play. That's what we know out of the Soniqs, and that's what we love.
Oxygen struck first by winning the first map, but it's going to be Soniqs that dominated the entry stats. Take a look at the opening kills for a moment. That's 7 with Grixer racking up 4 of them. Everybody was just incredible in this game. And Jacob, I mean, for the fans at home, they got a good one to close out the day.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people want Soniqs to be in that grand final scenario to begin with because, need I remind you, they were the only team in the NAL in 2021 that maintained top 3 or higher for every stage. Every other team, at some point along the road, had some stage where they fell off because for Space Station, they were 7th place back in stage 1. For OXG, they dropped to 6th in stage 2. And Dark Zero, they've been 6th, 4th, and 4th. The Soniqs were 2nd, 3rd, and then in potential for 2nd again. They were podium placers. So now they're in a grand final scenario against DZ, and I think most people expected them to be there because of that consistency. So it's nice to see them get this dub over OXG.
CDAPs. All right, this is it. Soniqs going to the finals, facing off against Dark Zero. How do you think they're going to fare in that matchup right there? This is going to be a huge game. See who's the best in North America.
It's going to be a really important game for both of these teams because there's a lot of bragging rights, and both of these teams, they like to win. It's I mean, you got egos, you got confidence on both sides, so it's definitely going to be a barn burner for sure, and I'm excited.
Yes. Now, also, what is next for Oxygen?
SI's there. I'm not worried about, in this case, yes, international play, but to be fair, OXG, if they're at full strength, then international play is a really good thing. I do still think that they came out of Sweden really angry over the fact that they couldn't play up to full strength. They kind of wanted to show the world what they were capable of and got stopped right before they could. So when they go to the Invitational, I think that kind of fire should still be there. And it's not, again, like SSG, it's not the end of the world if they didn't progress further in this bracket, they didn't make the grand finals, because that series was still darn close. That could have been over in 2 maps, provided that all they do is win 1 more on Clubhouse and they take the whole series home. Not to be, I'm still not really concerned in their case though.
Not at all. CDAPs, when you take a look at a team like Soniqs, I mean, there's equal effort all around. There really wasn't any dead weight at all when it comes to this team. If you were to call out an MVP, who would it be? Or do you think it's just total team play that just wins it all at the end of the day?
I mean, for Soniqs, you got to give it to Super. We saw him be the most athletic he has ever been. I'm here for the desk for one time, and I see Super hitting shots that I've never seen him do.
Must have something to do with the qualifier cast you did with him right before.
Maybe. So that was wonderful
Recency
to see.
bias, something.
something. But, I mean, we already talked about it. He's the mastermind. He's leading everybody, but now he's leading by example in the kills department, which is just a rare and absolute treat to watch.